That day, mysterious magical gates suddenly appeared out of nowhere in the sky, portals leading straight into dungeons. Behind each gate lay an entirely different world teeming with countless terrifying monsters of every shape and size imaginable. And those monsters came pouring out in a relentless flood. The only ones capable of stopping them were the awakened, people who had unlocked magical abilities, and they fought together using their powers to take down the invading beasts. Amid the brutal chaos of that battle, surrounded by swarms of melee monsters on the ground and flying horrors filling the sky, a team of heroes stood shoulder to shoulder. The Golden Seekers squad, Fine Gold, Ingolf von Dietz, Fine Gold, Claudia Burjo. Each of them wielded unique abilities. One could command flames, Fine Gold, Nathaniel Cavell. Another manipulated wind to clash with the airborne monsters, Fine Gold, Iwako Heidke. And there was also a cold-faced girl of unknown identity who fought valiantly with a thunder spear crackling with lightning, Fine Gold. After a fierce exchange of blows, as the five of them held the line together, a monster suddenly lunged toward an ordinary civilian with no mana, knocking the terrified person to the ground where they screamed in panic. Someone, anyone. Dietz glanced over at Burjo and shouted for her to help the civilian. Hey, go save those people in trouble right now. But Burjo just lazily propped her cheek on her hand and drawled indifferently, but there's too many. While the others hesitated and passed the buck, the green-skinned monster raised its claws toward the trembling civilian curled up on the ground, clutching their head in fear. Just as it seemed the monster was about to crush the life out of them, a foot came flying from nowhere and slammed into its face with devastating force, caving in one entire side of its skull. Caught completely off guard, the monster was sent flying backward and crashed into a wall with a thunderous boom that shook the area. A tall man in a sharp suit and long flowing coat appeared. He tilted his head slightly to check on the person still kneeling on the ground and smiled warmly. Everyone's still okay over there. Overflowing with confidence, he turned to his teammates and declared, I've got this one covered, Find Gold, Misato Kawakairo. In a flash, Kawakairo leaped high off the ground. He gathered power into his right hand, aiming straight at the dense swarm of monsters below. A cold, piercing light flashed in Kawakairo's eyes. With a barrage of precise strikes targeting every weak point, he wiped out the entire group of monsters in front of him in a single devastating move. His teammate Heidke stared in awe at the scene and marveled. He's insane taking on that many monsters all by himself. Cavell, standing silently behind, simply observed without a word. The girl in the tight red outfit glanced toward the gate without much surprise. With time attribute magic, he can see the future. He already knows exactly what those monsters are going to do next. As they watched Kawakairo charge forward to slaughter a fire-breathing dragon-like beast while still wearing that confident smile of certain victory, the whole team reached the same chilling conclusion. That guy, he's no longer human anymore. The battle paused momentarily once every monster that had emerged from the gates was finally eradicated, their corpses strewn across the ruined city streets. Kawakairo led the Golden Seekers squad to stand before the massive serpent-like monster right in front of the final gate. He called back to his teammates. All right. With one decisive swing, he cleaved the monster's head clean off in a single stroke. This should be the last one, right? Brimming with confidence, Kawakairo declared, with this power, I can finally protect everyone's peace. He reached out and placed his hand on the open gate leading into the dungeon. Now then, I'll seal this gate. But the moment the words left his mouth, an unseen force blasted him straight through the portal. Kawakairo's eyes widened in shock. He dropped to one knee, bracing a hand against the ground to steady himself, yet he still skidded back a long distance from the impact. When he looked up, he saw only his trusted teammates on the other side as the gate was sealed shut behind him. Kawakairo furrowed his brow in confusion. What the hell is this? Bewilderment filled his eyes. I've never seen a future like this before. He rushed right up to the sealed exit and stared at his former comrades. You all planned this together. Why would you do something like this? Cavell grinned with malicious delight. Why, you ask? At that moment, he and the others no longer hid their greedy, cruel smiles. With his hands in his pockets, Cavell stood in the middle of the group and sneered contemptuously. It's exactly because you didn't know that you ended up getting betrayed like this. Kawakairo struggled to stay calm and asked again, what? The girl in the tight red outfit shot him an arrogant glance. You're a level 100 monster who can use time attribute magic. Burjo smirked and added, we just wanted to make money safely, that's all. Dietz ground his teeth in fury, and yet you kept insisting on helping people. Heidke pointed accusingly at him. You dragged us into this dangerous mess. And Cavell sealed it with a triumphant laugh. But today will be the last time. He raised his hand in a mocking farewell to the people who had once been Kawakairo's teammates, then arrogantly turned his back and walked away cheerfully. See you around. On his side of the gate, Kawakairo pounded relentlessly against the barrier, watching their retreating figures with a sliver of desperate hope. You guys serious? Let me out of here. In anguish, Kaiwakairo asked himself, just for those reasons you betrayed me. He remembered the days they had fought side by side, the six of them laughing and getting along so well. As the leader of the Golden Seekers, I always did everything I could to protect the world from the monsters and keep everyone safe. I always charged to the front lines in every battle, and yet, Kaiwakairo gritted his teeth and kept hammering the seal, rage blazing in his eyes. Why? Before he could find any answer to his question, a fresh wave of monsters surged toward him from behind like starving beasts. Kaiwakairo spun around and killed one with a single strike, but then he realized in horror. Behind him stretched an endless horde of monsters, swarming like flies. He activated his ability, his eyes glowed as he peered into the future. I can escape from here, my future is. The vision he saw shattered him completely. Death torn apart by the claws and fangs of those monsters. Kaiwakairo let out a hollow laugh. It doesn't exist anymore, does it? Alone against the overwhelming tide, the monsters charged at him in a frenzy. He clenched his teeth, channeling all his fury into his fist. Kaiwakairo leaped into the air, preparing to smash down on the entire crowd of monsters in front of him, but they kept coming in endless waves like ants. After a grueling fight, Kaiwakairo, covered in wounds, collapsed to his knees on the ground, head bowed, arms hanging limp. Blood poured from every injury, pooling into a large puddle beneath him. I couldn't change the future after all. He lifted his head, eyes ice cold. Maybe there's no other choice. Kaiwakairo stared at the monsters still rushing toward him. Other than accepting death, They swarmed over him, tearing into his battered body. Fresh blood sprayed everywhere. Yet Kaiwakairo refused to stop fighting. He kicked the nearest monster skyward, even as countless more surrounded him. I won't die meaninglessly like this. Kaiwakairo's hand still gripped a monster's head, desperately channeling his magic. I'll reincarnate and become stronger. He fought like a madman, continuing to resist, then reached the absolute peak of power. I will take revenge. This rage, I'll carve it into my soul forever. Kaiwakairo swung his fist into the empty air. Until the day I can exact my vengeance and wash away all this regret. A powerful surge of energy enveloped his body and erupted from his palms straight into the sky, blasting the surrounding monsters away momentarily. His entire body convulsed in agony as blood streamed from every orifice. The light stretched on endlessly before condensing into a blinding glow. The scene shifts to another place. Someone slowly opened their eyes. The person dressed in a hospital gown sat up, slipped on some slippers, and tried to stand. He looked at his reflection in the mirror. A somewhat pale young boy stared back through the glass. He touched the mirror, a mix of joy and coldness in his eyes as he murmured, "Looks like the reincarnation worked." Turns out this boy in the hospital gown was Kaiwakairo's new body after the transfer. Only then did he take stock of his surroundings. This is a hospital. These machines look so strange. Just how many years have passed? If it's been 100 years, then I won't be able to get revenge on them anymore. Hatred flared in his eyes as he recalled the smiling faces that had betrayed him. Kaiwakairo noticed something. This is. He picked it up, the student ID of this body. Student ID number 1,200,002, name Asai Kyosuke, attribute, void, confirmed. So about 20 years have passed since then. His eyes suddenly widened in astonishment. Kaiwakairo stared at the attribute line on the old owner's card. This is attribute, void. A smug grin spread across his face. Heh heh. Then the smile slowly lost all humanity. Kaiwakairo laughed like a maniac. He reminisced, in my previous life, my teammates feared me because I was the strongest thanks to the time attribute. But the further I went, the more I realized I couldn't grow any stronger. Even peering into the future, I could never see the true depths of a void attribute's power. I couldn't measure or comprehend the strength of someone with void using my own abilities. Kaiwakairo looked down at the hands of his new body. This kid really got the short end of the stick. No doubt about it, void is the absolute strongest attribute. It's like an undefined emptiness without order or rules, but in my previous life, no one possessed it. Because it's so insanely rare, nobody knew how to train it properly. He glanced back at the card. That's why this kid was still stuck at level 1. Kaiwakairo gazed at the innocent young face on the ID and thought, he probably got mocked nonstop for having no attribute, more than just once or twice. He pressed the card against his heart. Don't worry, kid. I'll make your name echo across the world as the strongest explorer on the planet. Thanks to seeing the future, I already know how to train the void attribute. Using my past life experience, I can perceive energy flows and nurture them into full potential. He channeled power through this new body. A brilliant light enveloped him, illuminating the entire room. With this strength, I'll become absolutely invincible, and I'll make those traitors clench their fists in regret for betraying me and pushing me to my death. he thought with a sinister, bewitching smile. He recalled Cavel's grinning face from that moment, and the faces of those who had once been his closest comrades in his previous life, smirking with twisted pleasure as they betrayed the person who had always trusted them. To get revenge on them, I need to level up first. From this moment on, the Kawakairo of the past is dead. You will be Kaiosuk. He lay back down on the bed and closed his eyes. The entire space was pitch black like ink, attribute void, just as the name suggests, its magic tied to the concept of nothingness. Its essence lies in the ability to freely turn imagination into reality. He squeezed his eyes shut and focused his mind as magical energy began to stir. Anyone can imagine things, just like an artist can picture the perfect drawing in their head, but when they try to put it on paper stroke by stroke, it's never quite as flawless as the vision. But actually manifesting it into reality is the real challenge. Fortunately, this body was still heavily injured. Kaiosuk's torso remained wrapped in thick white bandages around the abdomen. If I overlay the image in my mind onto this body, he grimaced with effort as he concentrated, visualizing it clearly. The stream of magical energy he was struggling to control flowed like a shimmering, ethereal light. He pictured every cell being healed by magic, directing it to each wound across Kaiosuk's body and using his power to mend the damage. The injuries on his arm gradually became enveloped in that beautiful, golden glowing light, like sparkling stardust from the Milky Way. The wounds on Kaiosuk's arm healed rapidly, and the magical energy slowly dissipated. He sat bolt upright in excitement and looked down at the arm that had been torn open moments ago, now completely smooth and unmarked. Perfect, it worked. Kaiosuk pressed his thumb against the skin on his right wrist. Since this was still basic magic, the recovery speed wasn't that fast yet, and the internal damage hadn't fully healed. He thought to himself, if I repeat this many times, my level will rise. By continuously imagining and treating the wounds over and over, I'll recover completely in no time. The ability to turn imagination into reality will also improve. Void attribute mana is vast and boundless, encompassing countless different elements fused together, and it can expand the scope of what can be manifested into reality. That's why it's possible to create and master so many different kinds of magic. On his own, he could become proficient in every element from wind, water, earth, and fire to lightning, and eventually the images in his mind would be perfectly realized in the real world. That mirror-like barrier will no longer hold him back. It will shatter, giving the void attribute the space it needs to grow, expanding as vast as the endless cosmos itself. Kaiosuk smiled. At that moment, a middle-aged doctor holding his chart stood stunned at the door. You're finally awake. Kaiosuk turned his head to look at him. The doctor hurried over to check on him. Don't move too suddenly. You were seriously injured after that monster attack. Kaiosuk lifted the blanket and lay back down on the bed. I see, so that's what happened to this kid. The doctor smiled brightly at him, and yet, even in critical condition, you woke up like you were blessed by a miracle from the saintess herself. Kaiosuk lifted his head curiously. What did you just say? The saintess, what's that about? The doctor looked surprised. You don't know. Kaiosuk honestly shook his head. The doctor's face flushed with reverence as he thought of her. The saintess of the 5 holy stars, of course. Kaiosuk's expression went blank. I have no idea. What are the 5 holy stars? The doctor adjusted his glasses and frowned at the chart again. Right, you just woke up. It's understandable that you're confused. He gave some instructions and left the room. Anyway, I'll do a full checkup on you now. I'm going to prepare the equipment. Stay right here and don't move, okay? As soon as the doctor left, Kaiosuk threw off the blanket and sat up. The saintess, the 5 holy stars, are they some famous adventurer family or guild that rose up in the last 20 years? He walked over to the TV remote on the bedside table. Leveling up is essential. But I also need to figure out the current situation first. He picked up the remote and pressed the power button. The TV came on. Special news report today, revisiting the level 555 dungeon disaster from 20 years ago. The screen showed footage of monsters flooding the streets amid chaos and destruction back then. Perfect, a special report on the very event where I was betrayed. Kaiosuk focused intently on the broadcast. The culprit was. The screen displayed an image of his previous self, the leader of the Golden Seekers Party, a level 100 user of the time attribute named Misato Kawakairo. Kaiosuk jolted in shock. What? He couldn't believe it and stared fixedly at the screen. I'm the culprit. What the hell is going on here? The footage replayed scenes of monsters emerging from gates and ravaging the city in flames and smoke. He foresaw the disaster but told no one, plotting to exploit the chaos and take over the world. The remaining members of the Golden Seekers stopped him. They are the great heroes known as the 5 holy stars. The camera panned to his 5 former teammates. After a fierce battle, Misato Kawakairo was defeated and the dungeon was successfully sealed. The news anchor's voice continued. It's a legendary feat everyone knows about. Even now, the 5 holy stars lead the world in various fields. Kyosuke stood frozen in front of the TV. Today we have experts here to discuss. He abruptly turned off the TV. His reflection stared back at him with his head bowed. He covered his mouth as laughter began to bubble up, growing increasingly manic. He sank into rage. Not only did they betray me, they smeared my name too. They sacrificed me. The image of his bloodied face flashed through his mind. And in return, they're hailed as celebrities, celebrated as true heroes, shamelessly claiming the glory while the whole world praises them as saviors. Kyosuke's hand trembled with fury around the TV remote. I will never forgive them, never. He clenched his teeth hard. His eyes burned with hatred. All of them, I'll send every single one to hell. The hospital room fell deathly silent. He took a deep breath to regain composure. Kyosuke turned toward the bedside table, but I have to be careful. I can't let them notice me yet. He set the TV remote down on the table. Then he reached for the phone. Right. The boy looked at the screen. The school this kid was attending is. He smiled with interest. The phone screen lit up just as I thought. The principal of Takigo Adventure Training Academy, one of the 5 holy stars, Iwako Hideki. Kyosuke gripped the phone tightly. I woke up and already know exactly where I am, lucky break. He sat down on the bed, resting his chin thoughtfully. But Iwako is extremely cautious. He's not the type to show weaknesses easily. At that moment, his gaze flicked to the student ID card on the bedside table. The card displayed his current identity and level. The level gap right now is way too big. I can't beat him yet. Kyosuke flopped back onto the bed. He spread his hand open and stared at it intently. I can't do anything at level 1 right now. I'll focus on leveling up and then go after him. He clenched his fist, eyes resolute. Just wait, Iwako, you're my first target. A few weeks later, bright sunlight streamed into the room. Kyosuke stood in front of the mirror, twisting and stretching his body. Perfect. I can move without any issues now. He slipped on his jacket. The doctor standing behind him couldn't believe it. No, it's unbelievable. In just a few weeks, you've made a complete recovery. The doctor thought happily of his idol. Could this really be a blessing from the saintess? Kyosuke, tying his tie with his back to the doctor, replied coldly, "It's not that, doctor." His face turned icy. "Everything is thanks to my own power." Kyosuke walked out coldly. At the door, he raised a hand. "All right, thanks for taking care of me." The doctor watched him go. "Ah, sure, take care of yourself too." He stepped out of the hospital under a clear blue sky. "Now then, I've got the basics covered." He slipped his ID card into his pocket. "My current level should be enough. Time to warm up a bit and then head into a dungeon." The boy flashed a confident grin. "Sounds good, doesn't it?"
Kyosuke recalled the conversation with the doctor back at the hospital, where the doctor had sighed heavily while explaining the current situation of this body. I heard what the doctor said. Apparently, Kyosuke's entire family perished in an accident. He slipped both hands into the pockets of his jacket and walked alone down the busy main street. The boy silently addressed the original owner of this body in his mind. I really do feel sorry for the Kyosuke who went through that. Then he closed his eyes and thought, but for me, it's actually a good thing, because it means I can do whatever I want without any ties holding me back. Kyosuke took one step forward. Right across the street ahead of him stood a gate. Curiously, he pulled out his phone to check the map. So this is the place, huh? After sizing everything up, Kyosuke pulled his hood up and raised his face mask, his eyes filled with determination. To level up and get stronger, I want to test myself right here. He walked over to the security checkpoint and placed his card on the counter. The guard immediately grabbed his wrist to stop him and barked, "Hey, kid." Kyosuke yanked his hand back and shot the guard a cold glance. "What's the problem?" The guard tensed up under that stare. "You." He had already seen the info on Kyosuke's card. "You're only level 27. This area requires adventurers to be at least level 30 to form parties and enter. And you're planning to go in alone. That's basically suicide." Turns out the guard was just worried about his safety and had reacted so urgently. He grabbed Kyosuke's wrist again, T.O. Chinese letter him, but Kyosuke stayed completely calm and replied, "I think that applies to normal cases." But our main character brushed off the kind guard's hand. He held his card up high so the guard could see it clearly. "I'm a student at Takigo Adventure Training Academy. As long as I sign the consent form, it'll be fine, right?" Kyosuke had done his homework before coming here. He stood there staring at the guard. "I already looked into all this while I was still in the hospital." The guard hesitated awkwardly. "Yeah, that's true, but..." While the two of them were still arguing without reaching a resolution, a voice rang out from behind Kyosuke, making his eyes widen. "Come on now." He turned around to look. Right at the base of a tree across the street stood 3 guys watching him. The one leaning against the tree spoke up. "That's enough already." The orange-haired guy smirked and said, "They're only saying that because they're worried about you." Another one looked at Kyosuke with mocking eyes and added, "Aren't you just a newbie? You should know your place better." Kyosuke glanced at them but didn't bother responding. He turned back to the guard watching the gate and pointed at the tablet screen on the counter. "I just need to sign here, right?" Without waiting for an answer, Kyosuke grabbed the stylus and decisively signed his name under the "I agree" line on the screen. The guard tried to stop him again. "Wait," but Kyosuke ignored him. After signing, he tossed the stylus back onto the counter and walked off coldly under the worried gaze of the security staff. Now there's no issue anymore, right? He headed alone toward the gate, waving casually back at the guard who was still trying to stop him. Anyway, thanks for the concern, appreciate it. Seeing him walk off like that, the guard quickly turned and pointed at the three guys clustered under the tree. Hey, you three, sorry to bother you, but please keep an eye on that kid. The kind-hearted guard really was a good person, he told the three. Letting him go in alone is basically sending him to his death. The shortest one with the split bangs sneered in annoyance. Huh. He stepped forward aggressively. Why the hell do we have to do that for some random punk? But before he could finish, the purple-haired guy with glasses, who hadn't spoken until now, laughed and patted his teammate's shoulder. Actually, this is perfect. The glasses guy continued. If no one's watching, the other two stared at him in surprise. With a sinister look on his face and malice in his eyes, he glanced at them. Then whatever happens to him won't matter, right? The three immediately caught on and grinned wickedly, excitement building as they dashed toward the gate. Some punk acting all tough. He's got another 100 years of training before he's ready. The good-natured guard, completely unaware he just asked the wrong people for help, cheerfully raised his hand to wave them off in thanks. Sorry for the trouble. I'm counting on you guys. The three followed Kyosuke through the gate. On the other side was a long tunnel lit by torches on both walls, but the endless path ahead showed no sign of our main character anywhere. The glasses guy said with glee, "All right, same as always." The orange-haired one laughed along with his buddy. Kill the kid, then blame it on the monster. The three recalled someone they'd killed in a dungeon before, a young guy whose body was covered in wounds, blood splattered across the walls and floor. They had stood there with hands in pockets, admiring their handiwork, all thanks to these idiots. And our wallets keep getting fatter. They murdered solo adventurers who entered the dungeon alone after the gate, then looted everything from money to rare gems. Imagining the thrill of killing and profiting, the three eagerly rushed deeper inside. 10 minutes later, they were still sprinting full speed. The glasses guy, already out of breath, asked the orange-haired one, "This tunnel been dead straight the whole time, right?" The orange-haired guy panted heavily. "Yeah, but we still haven't caught up to that kid." Suddenly they stopped. The orange-haired one pointed ahead as if spotting something. "Look over there." In front of them, Kyosuke was facing off against a massive swarm of dungeon monsters, finally caught up. A powerful aura radiated from his entire body. Kyosuke's eyes were ice cold. He swept his hand in one motion, unleashing a roaring blaze straight toward them. Kyosuke raised his hand level with his head, summoning a swirling vortex of magic that spun wildly around his right palm. Then he thrust it forward. The vortex and flames surged ahead with overwhelming force. Kyosuke's fire was so intense that it swept through the monsters in an instant, incinerating them before they could even flee. In the blink of an eye, the one-scrouted horde was reduced to ashes, leaving the tunnel clear once more. The three who had followed him stood frozen in shock behind him. The glasses guy's eyes bulged and his jaw dropped. No way. The short one couldn't believe his eyes either. He took out a high-rank monster all by himself. The corner of the orange-haired guy's mouth twitched stiffly as he pointed at Kyosuke. More importantly, isn't that rare drops right in front of them? A glowing pouch overflowed with gem-like items, and more precious stones were scattered across the ground around. The three scumbags' eyes lit up at the sight of the loot pouch. Their mouths hung open in greed. If we sell that, we could live comfortably for 6 months easy. They'd been watching and noticed Kyosuke was still focused on picking up the gems without any reaction to their presence, so they started scheming. Looks like the kid hasn't noticed us yet, dumbass. That rare loot is ours now. Just kill him. Without hesitation, the three sprang into their dirty plan. One leaped forward. The orange-haired guy had already climbed onto the tunnel ceiling. The glasses guy looked up at his teammate's position and smirked. The short one was also in place. The glasses guy glanced over and nodded to confirm once more. All three robbers unleashed their magic simultaneously, attacking toward Kyosuke. "Right now, kill him." Our main character pulled down his mask and cursed under his breath. "Fucking hell." He activated his magic, spun around in fury, and shouted at the cowardly trio, "You think that kind of trick makes you clever?" Using his abilities, Kyosuke effortlessly dodged their water and wind-based attacks with graceful movements. No matter the era, there's always trash like you trying to steal what belongs to others. The orange-haired guy and the short one jumped down in terror, staring at Kyosuke. What, he dodged the attacks? Impossible. Does he have eyes in the back of his head? The glasses guy refused to believe it. He conjured a fireball and leaped toward Kyosuke's back. Must have just gotten lucky, die. Kyosuke didn't dodge. Instead, he turned and channeled all his strength into his fist. A direct punch slammed straight into the glasses guy's stomach, instantly extinguishing the fireball in his hand. Blood sprayed from the guy's mouth immediately. The punch was so powerful that it sent him flying backward, his large body crashing heavily into the tunnel wall. Dust settled, revealing a cracked section of the tunnel. The glasses guy lay sprawled against the dungeon wall unconscious, while Kyosuke calmly resumed his hunt. He spoke to the unconscious scum. to trash like you guys. I won't show the slightest mercy. I'll crush you without hesitation. The two remaining teammates froze in fear, not daring to make a sound. Kyosuke stomped his foot on the ground, and I won't hesitate to use you as stepping stones either. He looked like the Grim Reaper incarnate, his eyes blazing with hatred as he glared at them. The revenge I carry officially starts right now.
The sky outside the gate remained as clear and peaceful as ever. At that moment, another person stepped into the dungeon. A handsome man in a cloak stood with his arms crossed arrogantly. Tsudai Yoichi, one of Iwako's subordinates. I came here after hearing that a student from the academy entered the dungeon alone. He looked at the three corpses lying on the ground. But why are there newbie adventurers dead here? Iwako stared at the scene and wondered to himself, what the hell actually happened here? The scene shifts back to the outside world, deep into the night, lights still on in one apartment building. Kyosuke sat in his room, staring at the ID card in his hand. In that level D dungeon, I was already able to level up and test out void magic. He focused intently on the information displayed on the card. My new spell is information concealment. Kyosuke grinned sinisterly, but it's not just faking my level, I can even erase dungeon entry records. Pretty damn useful, huh? He lay back on the bed, raised his phone to check the news. Tomorrow's my first day at the academy, huh? The phone screen showed a notification from the day before. Pay up already, wake up you attribute-less loser. He frowned in realization, so that's what it was. The next morning, students were on their way to school. Kyosuke was also heading to class with his backpack when someone called his name. Kyosuke. He turned around to look. A cheerful, energetic, and adorable girl waved at him, his classmate, Asahi Karin. Good morning, feeling better now. Kyosuke replied politely, thanks, I'm fine. She looked genuinely worried about him. Hearing he was okay, she let out a relieved sigh. Phew, I was really worried about you. Kyosuke's gaze softened as he looked at the friend in front of him, so even the original Kyosuke had someone who cared about him. At that moment, another voice cut through their conversation. Well, look who it is. Kyosuke tilted his head to glance over. The guy continued in a mocking tone. Isn't this the attribute-less punk who barely survived? Kyosuke looked and saw three guys with green and red hair approaching him with sneering attitudes. To protect a weak level 1 weakling like you, I should get some compensation, right? The leader strutted arrogantly. You've got it with you, don't you? I'm a little short on cash right now, so. Hearing that, he immediately remembered the message from last night. Yep, these are the bastards. Karin stepped forward to shield Kyosuke. She looked a bit scared but still bravely stood up for her friend. Stop it. Kyosuke just got out of the hospital. Her action surprised him. He noticed her hand gripping the strap of her bag, trembling nonstop. Kyosuke looked at Karin. He stepped in front of her. Thanks, but I'm okay. The two lackeys behind burst out laughing like they'd heard the funniest thing. Haha, listen to this attribute-less shrimp talking tough. Don't act all hard just because there's a girl watching. The leader cracked his knuckles with a cocky attitude. Let me remind you, you're useless. You can't even use magic properly. You guys are the ones who need reminding of your place, Kyosuke shot back bluntly. The three immediately stopped laughing, stunned as if they couldn't believe he'd said that. Huh. Our main character stood before the bullies who had tormented the weak Kyosuke and reminded himself inwardly. Unlike trash like you guys, don't worry, kid. I'll make your name echo across the world as the strongest adventurer. He raised his hand. I'm a man of my word. Kyosuke's action made the leader's blood boil. He summoned a fireball above his head, losing control in rage as he yelled at the main character. What the hell are you babbling about? Karin saw it and anxiously warned, Yuka. Using magic outside the dungeon violates school rules. But the guy ignored her and snapped, shut up. This attribute-less trash is the one who's wrong for daring to talk back to me. He hurled the fireball straight at Kyosuke. Take this. Kyosuke stood tall without flinching. Kyosuke furrowed his brow. His right hand also gathered fire magic. With a casual flick, his own fireball shot forward. Kyosuke's fireball was 3 times larger than the other one. The two spheres hurtled toward each other. A loud explosion rang out as the fireballs collided, scattering countless sparks between them. The 2 lackeys gaped in shock. No way, isn't that the same type of magic? Since when could he use that? The leader was also stunned. He couldn't believe his eyes. What the? Kyosuke looked at the scum with an ice-cold expression. That's all you've got. His words felt like a slap in the face to the bully. The guy gritted his teeth and hissed, you bastard. The leader immediately turned to his lackeys. Hey, you two, stop standing there. Take him down now. The 2 underlings obeyed and unleashed their magic toward the main character. Yes, sir, taste this. Once again, it was wind and water, just like the defeated robbers in the dungeon. Our main character didn't even bother dropping his backpack. He raised his hand and simultaneously cast water and wind magic. With one swing, his spell clashed head-on against their attacks. The 3 bullies were now truly terrified. What the hell is this? How many types of magic can he even use? I've never heard of anything like this. Before they could recover from their panic, Kyosuke asked a short, chilling question that froze them in place. satisfied yet. Kyosuke snapped his fingers. Now it's my turn. A massive surge of mana erupted behind him, swirling like a violent storm. Kyosuke advanced step by step with both fists clenched. Don't worry, I won't kill you guys, at least not yet. The three bullies finally panicked and turned to flee for their lives. Fuck. Kyosuke's voice rang out like a demon from hell. Kyosuke asked you guys for help back then, right? He grabbed the leader by the shoulder. So what did you do to him at the time? His eyes now held no emotion, cold and mechanical like those of a killing machine. Never mind, I don't need to hear the answer anymore. He clamped one hand tightly over the leader's mouth, making the guy sweat in terror. Scum like you guys, the leader desperately grabbed Kyosuke's arm with both hands but couldn't resist the overwhelming strength. Kyosuke coldly judged him, always saying the same damn lines. The guy was already crying in fear, and because of that, no matter what you say, I won't stop this fist until it lands. Kyosuke's hateful gaze locked onto the bully, his fist gathered power from countless different elements combined. Without the slightest hesitation, he drove his fist straight into the leader's face. Blood sprayed from the guy's nose instantly as he blacked out. His entire body rocketed backward like it had been launched by a missile before finally crashing to a stop. The leader lay sprawled on the main road, smoking and completely motionless. Karin covered her mouth in horror. Aside Kyosuke. The two lackeys frantically dragged their unconscious leader up. No one will dare look down on you anymore from now on. Kyosuke smiled with dark malice. Let's walk together on the path to becoming the strongest adventurer. Apologies echoed throughout the school grounds. We're sorry, we're really sorry. The two lackeys were dragging their leader who could no longer walk on his own. We're sorry, okay, that's enough. Once they'd gotten far enough away from our main character, the leader gritted his teeth and muttered curses under his breath. Damn it, ever since he got out of the hospital, he's completely changed. Kyosuke closed his eyes and spoke softly. In the end, he really wasn't anything special. Meanwhile, Karin peeked her head in curiously, still silent and wide-eyed. The two of them walked side by side down the hallway, but every classmate who passed by shot them unfriendly looks. People kept glancing over with concern before turning away to whisper and gossip among themselves. Kyosuke noticed the strange attitude from everyone around him. Am I drawing too much attention? Just as our main character and his classmate were about to enter the classroom, someone grabbed the shoulder of a male student behind them and spoke up. Hold on a second. The person asked, You're Asai Kyosuke, right? Kyosuke glanced back at whoever had called out. A handsome guy with a cold expression tilted his head politely. Do you have a moment? Kyosuke wondered to himself. Who is this guy? His eyes narrowed with suspicion and caution. He looks like some kind of noble headache. Should I just ignore him? After thinking it over, he raised his hand in an awkward gesture and smiled apologetically at the person behind him. Sorry, but class is about to start, so. The guy cut him off before he could finish. Oh right, I haven't introduced myself yet. He stood tall in the middle of the hallway outside the classroom. I'm Yoichi Tsudai, leader of the Cat Nowers. Karin froze in surprise and stared at him. Cat Nowers. Kyosuke's face turned icy. So it's the guild founded by Principal Iwako. His hand paused on the doorknob. Tsudai continued. I'll ask again, Asai. He gave a dark, ominous smile. Can you spare me just a little of your time? Kyosuke stayed silent. Then he turned his head and smiled. If that's how it is, then I guess I don't have much choice. The scene shifts to an empty classroom. Tsudai looked at him seriously and got straight to the point. I'll be direct, was it you who defeated those adventurers found dead in the level D dungeon last night? Kyosuke replied calmly, as if it had nothing to do with him. What are you talking about? But inside, he was full of questions. That information should have been kept confidential. How does he know? Kyosuke's expression turned cold as he stared at the man opposite him. Tsudai pressed on. I was informed that a student had entered the dungeon, so I went to investigate. Inside the dungeon, I found a notorious group of criminals who specialize in hunting newbies. But when I arrived, they were already just corpses on the ground. And what's more, Tsudai darkly recounted what he had witnessed when Kyosuke used magic. This morning you also used multi-attribute magic, didn't you? Inside, Kyosuke secretly smirked, so he doesn't know the specifics of my magic yet. Tsudai's tone grew sharper as he swung his arm. Now tell me the truth, were you the one who took them down? Kyosuke turned and rummaged through his pocket. This morning I was suddenly attacked, so I really don't remember what happened clearly. He pulled out his ID card with a helpless smile. I'm only level 1, how could I possibly do something like that? Tsudai looked surprised at the card Kyosuke showed him. The information on it was crystal clear. The student ID clearly stated level 1 and the attribute was void. He looked at Kyosuke's harmless, innocent smile and inwardly sneered in contempt. Just some nobody wasting my time. Tsudai gritted his teeth in anger. Then he turned and pushed the door open to leave. Before exiting the classroom, he said casually, sorry for dragging you here. He paused at the doorway and glanced back. Don't do anything suspicious again. It'll be a real hassle if I have to step in more. Kyosuke stood in the hallway watching Tsudai's retreating figure. He thought to himself, that Tsudai guy. Looks like I can use him. The thought made Kyosuke smile with wicked cunning. He can get close to Iwako without raising suspicion. Is there a way to turn him into my pawn? He wondered while considering how gullible Tsudai seemed. Wait, this might be the perfect moment to test that spell. Kyosuke's lips curled into a calculating grin. The scene shifts to an office. Tsudai stood at attention, reporting what he had investigated to a man sitting with his back turned toward a bookshelf. My report on the events in the Level D dungeon last night concludes here. The man crossed his legs, propped his cheek on his hand while lounging in his chair. Even you make mistakes, huh? Heike, with his slick-back shiny hair and hands glittering with jeweled rings, frowned in reprimand. I told you to be careful when choosing people to use. Principal of Takugo Adventure Training Academy, one of the 5 holy stars, Iwako Heike. Tsudai bowed deeply. I sincerely apologize. I'll smooth things over immediately. Heike stood up. Of course you will. He walked right up to Tsudai, who was still bowed low. If your involvement in the newbie hunting incident gets exposed, I'll be the one taking heat too. Heike grabbed Tsudai's face and forced him to look up. His expression was demonic, terrifying Tsudai. Don't forget that. If anything goes wrong, even you will be kicked out on the spot. Tsudai bowed even lower and shouted, I understand, Principal Iwako. In a corner where Heike couldn't see, Tsudai gritted his teeth and cursed inwardly. Damn it, why do I have to deal with this trash heap? If I'd known things would turn out like this, I would have squeezed way more hush money out of those bastards. Turns out he wasn't exactly clean either. He'd been taking bribes from the robbers Kyosuke had encountered earlier. He clenched his teeth, suppressing his rage after being scolded. Heike had already returned to his desk. That said, there's still one thing I don't understand. Tsudai raised his head curiously. What is it, sir? Heike picked up his tablet. According to your report, the student in question would have to be at least a 3rd year. But no 3rd-year students entered the dungeon last night. The tablet screen clearly displayed that fact. Heike set the tablet back on its stand. So then, they were probably killed by monsters while hunting newbies and you're lying to cover it up, he stated matter-of-factly as he walked past Tsudai with hands clasped behind his back, making the man's face pale in fear. He stopped at the window, hands still behind his back, gazing out at the clear blue sky. It's far more realistic to conclude that than to think one of my students single-handedly defeated a group of newbie hunters. Tsudai seemed to understand, so that's how it is. Heike didn't turn around. Exactly. Unless something extremely unusual occurred. Tsudai's eyes widened in surprise at those words. What? Tsudai recalled the unusual thing Heike was referring to. Unusual. The unusual part was Kyosuke's student ID, void attribute, level 1. He quickly spoke up, Principal Iwako, is it possible this has something to do with a special attribute? Heike placed a hand on his chin and tilted his head thoughtfully. A special attribute, huh? That's also a possibility. Hearing that, Tsudai's face lit up as if he'd realized something interesting. He smirked. Tsudai placed a hand on his chest with confident enthusiasm. Principal Iwako, please let me handle this. His target shifted back to our main character, Kyosuke. I'll take care of it quickly. Tsudai gave a sleazy, malicious grin with dark eyes as he made his vow. I'll resolve this problem completely. Torches blazed on the wall, casting bright red sparks that danced through the air. Several guys in matching outfits unleashed massive surges of power, all aimed in the same direction. Spotting the frenzied monkey in front of them, one of the guys shouted urgently, I see it heading that way. Suddenly, the monkey grew enormous. It let out a terrifying roar, its blood-red eyes glaring as if ready to devour everything around it. At that moment, someone focused a torrent of power into their palm, forming a swirling vortex-like circle. The blast of energy shot straight into the increasingly out-of-control monkey, making it scream in agony. The students watched in fear as the monkey slowly collapsed before them, cold sweat dripping down their faces. Tsudai was the one who had just defeated the monkey. He raised his voice to the others. Students, do not break formation. After witnessing that display, every trainee wore an expression of admiration and exclaimed in unison, Yoichi is amazing. No surprise, he was personally chosen by Principal Iwako. Maybe I should join the cat and hours too. Tsudai stood silently gazing at the pile of monster corpses stacked on the ground, then said quietly, all right, I've cleared out all the monsters in this area. The people behind him responded in perfect harmony. Nice work, Yoichi. Hearing that, he turned and walked away, instructing them, I'm leaving the rest to you guys. The students replied, got it. Now then, time to do what I actually came here for, Tsudai thought to himself as he slipped one hand inside his coat to retrieve something. Tsudai pulled out a small chain with a strange surface. He gently placed it in his palm. Reveal the location of Asai Kyosuke. With those words, he flung the chain forward while channeling an eerie green energy into it. The chain stretched out at incredible speed. The hand holding the other end of the chain felt a strong pull. Tsudai thought to himself, just as I figured, he's far away from the other students. Guided by the information from the chain, Tsudai quickened his pace in the direction it indicated. I don't know what he's planning, but that actually works in my favor. Tsudai began to imagine, his thoughts turned increasingly twisted. If that's the case, then no one will suspect his death was anything more than a tragic accident. I just happened to find Teacher Asai by chance. Things like this happen all the time in dungeons anyway. With that thought, Tsudai's lips curled into a sly, wicked grin. As if remembering something, he mused. First there was that group of trainee hunters. Then all the trouble starting from the moment he got discharged from the hospital. He recalled the scene he had witnessed from above. And more than that, I'm really curious about what they said. Tsudai remembered the time in the classroom. Back then he had asked in frustration, is that really true? A group of young men knelt before him. One with a bandaged face hurriedly spoke up. It's true, believe me, that attribute-less guy attacked us using the exact same magic we have. Not only that, the bastard created a gigantic flame we've never seen before. The red-haired guy's voice trembled as if reliving something horrifying. In the red-haired guy's memory, Kyosuke walked forward with an enormous flame towering dozens of times larger than his body roaring behind him. Tsudai looked at them in disbelief and sighed. I can't believe this. Suddenly he stood up and said calmly, all right, I've asked everything I needed to. The group panicked and trembled as they asked, so then? Tsudai, already turning to leave, paused and said coldly, hey, educate them properly. I don't need weaklings who lose to someone as useless as that. No way, that's not what you promised. The red-haired guy shouted, reaching out to chase after him but being held back by the others. A green-haired guy with injuries all over his face suddenly spoke. That guy has, his words made Tsudai, who was about to walk away, stop in his tracks. Stopped being human. As he uttered those words, the guy's face was filled with pure terror, as if he had seen a demon. His eyes were vacant and lifeless. Now guided by the chain, Tsudai arrived at a vast open area. Only the sound of his footsteps echoed everywhere as he walked and thought about that guy's expression. That fear wasn't normal. Tsudai told himself, to be sure, I put him through the Cat and Hours special training class, but all he showed was an extremely powerful illusion. He kept walking. Behind him lay scattered corpses of defeated monsters. He must have used some kind of artifact or something. I'm pretty sure he took out those trainee hunters using underhanded methods. With that thought, he let out a smug chuckle. Tsudai looked down at the path ahead and spotted the corpse of a goblin covered in wounds lying on the ground. Another monster corpse. Did Asai Kyosuke do this too? He wondered, puzzled. He examined the blood on the monster's body and analyzed it himself. Just a single ordinary strike? It seems what they said wasn't complete nonsense after all. But this kind of power isn't anything to be afraid of, he declared, his face brimming with arrogance. Tsudai thought of Heiki, the principal of Takugo Academy, and inwardly judged. Even Owako, the one expelled from the 5 holy stars, could do this much. His thoughts were filled with certainty. Right now I have no choice but to follow his orders, but one day I'll surpass him. And then I'll take his place at the head of the 5 holy stars and rule the world. Tsudai indulged in his grand delusions. A triumphant smile spread across his face. His eyes gazing forward grew deeper and more ambitious. He calculated silently, but to achieve that, no one can know about my connection to those trainee hunters. As for Asai Kyosuke, the one who could cause more trouble later, I need to make sure a small, unfortunate accident just happens to befall him. He grinned so wide it seemed his mouth might split to his ears. The chain continued pulling him forward. Tsudai muttered to himself, he must be around here somewhere. Finally, the chain slowed as if it had reached its destination. He retracted it and hid behind a corner to observe. All right, what's he doing in a place like this? Tsudai peered around the corner. Suddenly his face twisted in horror, eyes wide open, cold sweat pouring down nonstop. Right in front of him, Kyosuke was sitting atop a pile of monster corpses. A smug smile on his lips as he spoke. You're late. I've been waiting so long I got bored. Tsudai quickly ducked back behind the wall, his whole body trembling. What the hell? My presence should have been completely concealed. Kyosuke smiled and asked calmly, you're wondering how I could detect your presence, aren't you, Yoichi? Tsudai gritted his teeth, eyes full of disgust as he thought, can he read my mind? At that moment, Tsudai stepped out and asked irritably, what the hell are you anyway? Hearing that, Kyosuke replied calmly, I heard Owako chose you, but you're not as impressive as I expected. Kyosuke looked down with ice-cold eyes, his voice lowering. The way you hunt newbies and extort money from them, it's exactly like that coward Owako. Tsudai's face flushed with anger. What? How do you know about that? Kyosuke jumped down, his voice slow and deliberate. Yoichi, do you really enjoy tormenting others that much? Light fell across his back, giving his entire figure an overwhelming presence. He asked softly, but you've never understood what it feels like to be the one hunted, have you? Now I'll teach you that feeling, Kyosuke declared coldly. With this kind of magic, I'll make you pay for what you did to me. With those words, Kyosuke's face turned utterly frigid as he stared at the man before him, his expression mixing cold menace with eager anticipation. Seeing Kyosuke's overwhelming presence right now, Tsudai roared in fury, "You're a dangerous bastard." "Way too dangerous," he growled through gritted teeth, his eyes blazing with even more rage. But the moment the words left his mouth, he summoned his sword, a blade shining with blinding golden light, radiating an otherworldly surge of power. "For the sake of my ambition." Tsudai charged forward, attacking while boldly declaring, "I'll defeat you here no matter what it takes." Kyosuke casually sidestepped the strike, his entire body relaxed with both hands still in his pockets, looking utterly nonchalant. Kyosuke gathered power into his palm and taunted with a mocking tone, "That's it. Is this really all the strength you've got?" He unleashed the flame from his hand. It roared outward, massive enough to swallow everything in its path. Tsudai swung his sword and shouted arrogantly, "You think you can beat me with that level of power?" Right after he spoke, he looked up to see another mysterious green bolt of lightning hurtling toward him. Acting on pure reflex, Tsudai quickly raised his sword to block the incoming attack. A few stones scattered at his feet from the impact, but then a golden aura enveloped them. Surprisingly, those stones rose into the air as if preparing to strike back. Tsudai gripped his sword tightly, his whole body tensing into a full combat stance. He glared at Kyosuke in fury and ground out through clenched teeth, "Damn it, he really can use multi-attribute magic. What the hell is your void attribute even?" Before he could finish, Kyosuke lunged from behind him, eyes sharp and deadly. Tsudai sensed something and his eyes widened in shock. He spun around and barely managed to block the strike with his sword in time. "You damn bastard, you're always getting in the way of my plans." Tsudai spat the words through gritted teeth. After the clash, both were forced back, sliding across the ground and leaving long trails in the dirt. Kyosuke spoke indifferently, "Your plans, huh?" Tsudai shot back with full confidence, "That's right, one day I'll surpass Iwako." He laughed loudly as he voiced his ambition, "And then I'll take his place and become one of the 5 holy stars." Kyosuke asked coldly, "Why Iwako specifically, why him?" "There are plenty of other 5 holy stars." Tsudai narrowed his eyes and smirked slowly, "Because he's someone who was once expelled from the 5 holy stars. If I become one of them, I'll have the right to rule the world," he said, his expression as if stating the obvious. Suddenly he paused, then grinned happily. "So when you think about it, targeting the weakest one makes perfect sense." Kyosuke turned his head away, his face filled with disgust at Tsudai's filthy scheme. He uttered a single word, "Coward." Tsudai immediately flared up. "What did you just say?" A layer of eerie green light enveloped Kyosuke. He rested his sword on his shoulder, propped one hand against it, and spoke to Tsudai. "I was actually worried you'd already gotten close to Iwako. But if your ambition is this pathetic and small-minded, then I don't need to worry at all." Kyosuke looked down at him, his entire face radiating contempt and revulsion for Tsudai's actions. Hearing those words, Tsudai, who had been smug just moments ago, suddenly lost control. His eyes bulged as he stared at Kyosuke standing before him. The guy gripped his sword in rage and charged, "Shut your mouth. What's wrong with wanting power? What's wrong with wanting money and women?" He swung his sword frantically while shouting. He screamed right in Kyosuke's face, trying to justify his twisted mindset. "Strength that lets you trample over others and no one dares say a word. That's the kind of power I want," he roared, face to face with the eerily calm Kyosuke. Tsudai laughed savagely and full of greed. "Once I become one of the 5 holy stars, I can do whatever I want, and when I reach that position, I'll finally get my hands on the Saintess's weakness, and then I'll make that woman mine." Tsudai laid bare his vile, depraved thoughts, ideas so disgusting anyone who heard them would feel utter contempt. The two continued clashing. Kyosuke replied coldly, "It seems what you're saying isn't even worth listening to. Time to end this." With those words, Kyosuke delivered a powerful sword strike that sent his opponent flying backward. Tsudai looked up at the shattered fragments of his own sword in terror and cried out, "No way, my sword." Kyosuke casually tossed his own sword aside. "Thanks to your useless, rambling nonsense. I've already finished preparing that spell." Hearing this, Tsudai screamed in fear, "No, don't come any closer." "Now then, let's see how well you dance," Kyosuke said coldly, his pitch-black eyes glinting with razor sharpness. The moment he finished speaking, Kyosuke closed the distance and unleashed a spell on him. Absolute hypnosis. As soon as it activated, Tsudai, who had been struggling, went completely still. His face turned blank and vacant. Then he toppled over like a statue, hitting the ground with a loud thud. Kyosuke gazed down at him thoughtfully and mused inwardly. This magic requires breaking the target's spirit first, but once it's triggered. "Hey, stand up!" At Kyosuke's command, Tsudai's joints slowly began to move. Some unseen force lifted him upright. His body remained rigid like a wooden puppet. Tsudai tilted his head and replied in a lifeless monotone, Yes, sir, I have stood up. Kyosuke smirked with satisfaction as he looked at the man before him, thinking, looks like it worked perfectly. He gave the order slowly, for now, focus on completing your mission. I'll give further instructions later. Sudai responded in an eerie, mechanical way. Yes, I understand. Kyosuke frowned slightly at the repetition and commanded, switch back to normal speech. After that order, the light returned to the other man's eyes. He no longer looked completely soulless. Sudai turned and began walking back the way he came, replying, I'll return and lead the group now. Kyosuke watched silently as he walked away slowly, his expression shrouded in mystery. Suddenly Kyosuke smiled, a glint of triumph flashed in his eyes. At that moment, as Kyosuke stepped out from the dark area, a sweet voice called out. Karin ran up to him, worried. Kyosuke, where have you been? I was so worried. Kyosuke smiled apologetically. Ah, sorry, I was just talking with Yoichi for a bit. Karin looked surprised. Huh, with Yoichi, what did you two talk about? He replied calmly, just a little about turning dreams into reality. Karin smiled and asked, so did you get any good advice? Kyosuke thought back to Tsudai's vacant, hypnotized expression and couldn't help feeling a thrill of amusement. He answered evenly, yeah, I got some really great advice. Thanks to it, one of my dreams is definitely going to come true. Karin beamed happily. I hope your dream comes true soon, Kyosuke. Hearing that, he replied, yeah, I hope so too. Suddenly, a voice called out, the special class is about to end. All students gather immediately. Karin heard the announcement and urged him, come on, Kyosuke, we can't get left behind. Watching Karin's back as she walked ahead, Kyosuke thought to himself, I'm really glad I joined this class. Because in the end, I've finally obtained a pawn that Owako will never suspect. He smiled, a smile tinged with subtle joy and a hard-to-detect smugness. In the principal's office at Takigo Academy, Hideki lounged in his plush principal's chair, swiveling around with an irritated glance at the person before him before asking, well, any progress on that trainee hunter incident? Sudai bowed respectfully and handed over a file. Yes, sir, as predicted, a student with a special ability is involved in the matter. The file belonged to someone they both knew well, complete with a familiar ID photo. The student is Asai Kyosuke, a first year with the Void attribute. Sudai reported seriously to his master. I've detained him at the usual location and interrogated him. He admitted to using multi-attribute magic to defeat the trainee hunters. Hearing that, Hideki suddenly paused at the odd detail. He glanced up and asked, multi-attribute magic, what are you talking about? Just as he expected, Hideki was bound to be surprised by what he'd gathered. Tsudai smirked inwardly with malice. But he chose not to fully confess so as not to ruin the plan, saying instead, the details are still unclear. If you give me more time, I'm confident I can investigate further. Then he suggested, by the way, it's been a while since we worked together, why don't you handle this one personally, Principal? He wore a sly, scheming expression, his eyes glinting dangerously as the corner of his mouth curled upward. Hideki didn't suspect a thing. He tilted his head back, stared at the ceiling and thought for a moment, then agreed. Doesn't sound bad. He cracked his knuckles with a series of pops, his eyes filled with boredom and the craving for fresh entertainment. It's been ages since I tortured anyone. I'll make sure to repay him generously for all the trouble he's caused both me and you. Sudai didn't hesitate. In that case, let's, before he could finish, the phone rang, cutting him off. Hideki frowned at the desk phone ringing at this hour and clicked his tongue, wondering who it could be. He waved Sudai off dismissively. I'll head over later, go on ahead. Sudai bowed respectfully, yes sir, see you then, and withdrew. Hideki picked up the receiver, Iwako speaking. A sharp, mocking female voice came through. Oh my, if it isn't the great principal himself, thank you so much for choosing our company in yesterday's bidding. Hideki recognized the voice instantly and snapped irritably, cut the act. Lei Ryuoxi, the woman on the other end, was stunningly beautiful and impeccably stylish, clearly someone of high status with short, elegantly styled hair and an aura of wealth. She smiled, not falling for it, huh? After all, we're partners, we split the government subsidies together. She was the CEO of Lei Company, one of the 5 holy stars, Lei Ryuoxi. Hideki leaned back comfortably. You haven't changed a bit, have you? I don't have time for games right now, I'm busy, so let's talk another day. Refusing her since he still had to personally handle the earlier matter. Ryuoxi mocked, a man who rules an academy and pockets funds for himself like you, busy with what exactly? Hit right in his sore spot, Hideki flared up, watch your mouth, but something more pressing came to mind, cooling his anger. Forget it. He continued, I'm currently investigating a student with the Void attribute. Ryuoxi asked in surprise, Void attribute, what could a failure like that even do? Hideki brushed it off vaguely. Yeah, but still, it's a special attribute after all. His expression and tone shifted instantly, so anything could happen, right? Ryuoxi pondered for a moment. Her beautiful face took on a faintly terrifying expression. She spoke up, "You mean something like Kawakaro's time magic." The familiar name made Heiki's face darken. He gripped the phone tighter, eyes burning with hatred. Heiki shouted across the line, "Don't mention that name, it makes me sick." To avoid going deaf from his yelling, Ryuoxi pulled the phone away and chuckled, still as hot-tempered as ever. Her own eyes carried the same loathing for that name. She sympathized, "But I don't blame you. Ever since he awakened that power, the balance of power among adventurers has completely shifted." Ever since he awakened that power, the balance of power among adventurers has completely shifted. Her red lips curved into a dangerous smile. She didn't want to interfere further. "Fine then, I'll contact you later. See you." The line went dead with a series of beeps. After hanging up, Heiki's demeanor flipped instantly. He slammed the phone down on the desk and cursed furiously, "Selfish vixen." But it wasn't just Ryuoxi making him angry, it was also the old friend they'd mentioned. He grumbled, "Still, hearing that cursed name again after all these years really pisses me off." Heiki's face darkened, his eyes scheming something. He growled, "In that case, isn't this the perfect moment to vent all this rage?" Sometime later, following Tsudai's lead, Heiki personally headed to the location to investigate the special first-year student. He walked through the forest, only a few steps from the factory. As he approached the entrance, he mused, "Now then, how should I torture him?" Waterboarding, pulling out nails, a series of horrifying tortures flashed through his mind. At the door, a lock appeared, and Heiki activated it with his fingerprint. His face twisted into pure evil, thrilled at the prospect of indulging his perverted hobby of tormenting others. He sneered wickedly, "I'll pour all the rage I couldn't unleash on Kaiwakairo onto you instead." The door unlocked, he smiled in satisfaction. "Good, it's open." Heiki pushed the door open and called, "Sorry to keep you waiting, Tsudai." But inside the factory was completely empty. No sign of Tsudai, only old equipment and scattered parts. Unexpectedly, Heiki frowned in surprise. "What the hell, there's no one here." While he was distracted, Tsudai raised his sword from behind and struck. Heiki sensed it, spun around, and saw the glowing blade coming down. His eyes widened in shock, but with his profound strength, he caught the descending blade between just 2 fingers without even turning fully. Heiki's face darkened with rage at his subordinate's betrayal. He ground his teeth. "Looks like you underestimated me. Probably got too full of yourself from all the praise, huh, Tsudai?" The other man's eyes flashed with panic. His carefully laid plan had collapsed. Heiki erupted in fury. His palm glowed as he prepared a counterattack. "You really thought you could beat me with that?" A long golden chain materialized, writhing like a serpent as it swiftly coiled around Tsudai. Heiki's eyes burned with killing intent, ready to eliminate him on the spot. He yanked the chain hard. In an instant, it wrapped Tsudai tightly from head to toe, even gagging his mouth and hoisting him upside down. After binding him, Heiki kicked him viciously. "No way someone like you could ever be my match." Tsudai, tightly restrained, couldn't do anything. Even screaming in pain was impossible as the kick sent him flying. Heiki stepped closer and snarled, "You picked the wrong enemy, you piece of trash." Tsudai struggled desperately, eyes wide with terror as he watched the approaching footsteps. Heiki loomed over him, fists clenched in rage. "You destroyed yourself over stupid ambitions, Yoichi Tsudai." A voice suddenly rang out, "Still as foolish as ever, huh?" Heiki jolted, heart skipping a beat. Someone else had been here the whole time and he hadn't noticed. He spun around toward the depths of the factory, stammering, Who's there?" From the shadows, Kyosuke stepped forward, "Kneel before the strong and exploit the weak." He looked at the man before him with mockery. "Looks like you're still as greedy and foolish as back then." Heiki's eyes bulged in fury. Someone dared to act so brazenly on his turf. He threatened, "How dare you insult me? I'm the principal of this academy." Still the same as ever, lording power and authority over others. Kyosuke walked forward slowly with hands in his pockets, replying calmly, "Self-destructing over foolish ambition. Sounds like the perfect self-introduction for you, Iwako Heiki." Hearing that, Heiki boiled with rage, his face flushed red, veins bulging on his forehead as he roared, "Who the hell are you, you bastard?" Kyosuke strode out confidently in his school uniform, hands still pocketed, moving slowly and deliberately. Heiki shouted, "I'll expel you, give me your student ID number right now." The angrier Heiki got, the more Kyosuke enjoyed it. He smiled wickedly and soothed, Now, calm down. We've finally reached this point, so let's take our time and chat a little, just the two of us." Kyosuke had waited for this day for so long. The irreconcilable grudge from his previous life would now be settled slowly. Outside, twilight descended, bathing the treetops in a nostalgic golden hue, a perfect backdrop for settling old scores from the past. Seeing Heiki losing his composure, Kyosuke calmly suggested, "Why don't we have a little chat, just you and me?" "Iwako Heiki," Kyosuke boldly called the man by name while staring straight at him. He, the principal of a prestigious academy, was being addressed so directly by some insignificant student. Heiki ground his teeth in fury. "You dare mock me? His hand began glowing again, just like when he had confronted Sudai earlier. Rocks and clumps of earth of all sizes around them rose into the air under his control. Heike clenched his fist, eyes blazing with rage, brimming with confidence. I'll show you just how vast the gap in strength between us really is. Take this advanced earth magic. From the ground erupted a colossal hand mimicking his own but 100 times larger, forged from rock and soil. The massive hand soared high above. It clenched into a gigantic fist and hurtled forward like a devastating punch. Heideke's pupils glowed golden as he channeled his earth-manipulating power, his own hand mirroring the enormous fist in a tight grip. His lips curled in contempt. A mere student like you can't possibly dodge this. He thrust his powerful fist forward with a roar. Die. Instantly, instead of moving himself, the colossal fist shot straight toward Kyosuke under his command. Kyosuke stood perfectly still and defiant as the fist closed in right before his eyes. A tremendous collision erupted, earth and stone flew everywhere amid a thick cloud of dust and smoke. Heidke threw his head back and laughed in deep satisfaction. This is the price you pay for a nobody student daring to defy me. Through the haze after the attack, the half-collapsed factory flickered into view. The ground cracked wide from the sheer force, and no trace of anyone remained inside. With power like that, an ordinary student would either be obliterated or left dying. Heidke smirked smugly. Maybe I went a bit overboard. Guess I'll need to find another spot for some proper torture. Still, I don't even know who you are, but I'll stick around to watch you die. The explosion had kicked up so much dust that mud flecked his face. He reached into his coat for a handkerchief to wipe it off. Heidke dabbed at his face and slowly approached the ruined factory to witness Kyosuke's end, grumbling, "What a pain." Then he froze in surprise, staring ahead. As the dust finally cleared, a figure stood exactly where it had been, unmoved amid the wreckage, as if nothing had happened. Heidke halted. "What?" Kyosuke walked slowly toward him. Though he had initially suggested peace, Heidke had rudely attacked first. Kyosuke furrowed his brow and asked calmly, "I said I just wanted to talk a little, did I?" He wasn't injured or even scratched, not a speck of dust on him. Heidke stared in utter shock. "What? You're completely unharmed after taking my advanced magic. No student has ever." Furious, he pointed straight at him and demanded, "Who the hell are you? Tell me your name right now." Kyosuke smiled at the question, rubbing his chin provocatively. "Who am I, huh? You still don't know who I am?" His face darkened, eyes gleaming with accusation. Of course, reincarnation was beyond anything Heidke could imagine. He snapped, "What? I don't know any scum like you. Quit messing around and give me your name." Kyosuke rubbed the back of his neck and murmured with a smirk, "I'm honestly really hurt by that, Iwako. Have you truly forgotten me already?" His current appearance and tone perfectly echoed how Kawakiro, his old friend, had once spoken to Heidke. Heidke's face drained of color and terror. His mouth trembled. "No, you're..." He staggered back, legs buckling as he turned his face away, refusing to accept it. "Impossible." Heidke couldn't believe his eyes. He clutched his head in denial. That guy was clearly. His eyes suddenly lit up as something dawned on him. The fear vanished from his face. "You bastard. Stop with the cheap act. You watched the old news reports, didn't you?" He glared at Kyosuke with utter contempt. Grinding his teeth, he spat, "That guy Misato Kawakiro." He raised his hand, summoning a surge of emerald green power. Heidke roared in fury. "He's already dead." A massive vortex swirled around him, filled with countless flying rocks and earth. Kyosuke closed his eyes and sighed, looking at his old friend. He stepped forward slowly. "You've always been like this, only believing what's convenient for you and ignoring everything else." Heidke could no longer hold back. Terror gripped his heart, but outwardly he snarled, "Shut up with your nonsense. One more step and I'll crush you." Kyosuke smirked. "I see. You were swayed by the sweet words of those around you." As he spoke, he gathered power. A small golden orb began forming and growing in his palm. Heidke didn't notice, too panicked by Kyosuke's words. Kyosuke questioned sharply, "And that's exactly why you betrayed me, Misato Kawakiro, didn't you?" His gaze pierced straight through Heidke's soul. The deepest hatred he carried wasn't from outsiders, but from his closest friend. Hit right in his guilt, Heidke screamed, "Shut up!" He hurled his attack with full rage. But since Kyosuke had chosen to confront him openly, he had prepared for everything. His eyes blazed as he raised his hand to gather power. As Heidke's strike came rushing in, Kyosuke unleashed his magic. A brilliant golden beam sliced straight through the emerald green assault. The attack was nullified instantly, disintegrating before Heidke's stunned eyes. He stared wide-eyed at the familiar technique, muttering, that magics. It was exactly what Kawakiro had used back then. In his memory, his old friend had employed a similar move to annihilate monsters. Heidke's redirected attack slammed into the nearby ground with a deafening boom and thick smoke. The two men faced each other, strangers yet intimately familiar, as trees around them swayed violently from the explosion's force. Heidke dropped to his knees. Impossible. He couldn't believe it. We definitely sealed him in that dungeon. Looking at his broken old friend, Kyosuke approached and explained, I was imprisoned and thrown into the depths of despair. Kyosuke bowed his head slightly, staring down at the wretched Heidki who had caused the tragedy of his life. His eyes burned with the hatred carried over from his previous existence. Heidki stammered hesitantly, "You really are Misato Kawakairo." Kyosuke knelt on one knee and replied, "It took quite a while, didn't it?" He broke into a bright, genuine smile. "Long time no see. I'm really glad you still remember me, Iwako." Heidki knelt on the ground, looking up in stunned disbelief and hesitantly asked, "You're Misato Kawakairo." Suddenly, he shot to his feet with decisive force. He waved his hand and shouted loudly, "Don't take me for a fool. That would mean he died and came back to this world." Stubbornly clinging to his own conviction, Heidki once again began channeling his skills. He declared with murderous intent, "If you're a ghost, then stay quiet and accept your fate." This time, it wasn't just one. 5 simultaneous attacks surged toward Kyosuke at once. Kyosuke lightly shifted his footing. He effortlessly dodged every single one of Heidki's techniques without even using his hands, keeping both tucked casually in his pockets. Kyosuke looked upward. The earth-forged fist controlled by Heidki immediately slammed down from above straight toward the ground, and Kyosuke sidestepped it with perfect rhythm. Heidki clicked his tongue in irritation and cursed, "Cheeky brat." He thought to himself, "But I have to seize the upper hand. Even back when we were in the Golden Seekers, I never joined the fights, so to this day, the other 5 holy stars still mock me for it." Rage boiled furiously inside Heidki. He clenched his fists tightly, grinding his teeth. "But that doesn't mean I'm weak." Instantly, Heidki spun lightly on his heel like a conductor. He commanded the surrounding earth and stone to whirl around him in a violent storm, threads of emerald green power flashing through the air. Heidki declared proudly, "This is the ultimate technique I spent 20 years perfecting, wind-earth dual magic." Countless rocks of all sizes were swept up by the tornado-like vortex and hurtled forward like a hailstorm. He opened his mouth and roared, "Take this." The stones shot forward at blinding, near-light speed. Streams of wind power carrying earth and stones streaked toward him as brilliant emerald green trails. The stone rain slammed straight into the ground where Kyosuke stood with devastating force. Under such relentless bombardment, the earth exploded, rocks scattering in all directions. Because he had combined multiple powerful spells, Heidki dropped to one knee, panting heavily, but he still couldn't hide his smugness. This is my strongest technique." He carefully peered toward the explosion site to check on his enemy. Thick smoke and swirling leaves filled the air. Looking at the black cloud before him, unlike the previous attack, this time Kyosuke hadn't countered with magic. Heidki thought inwardly, "He's not fighting back." A delighted expression spread across Heidki's face. He let out a small laugh. Then he threw his head back and screamed in ecstasy, "I did it, I really did it." His face now fully revealed the greed, wickedness, and cruelty fueled by his ambition. He shouted with his mouth wide open, "I defeated that bastard Misato Kawakairo." Heidki raised his fist in triumph, celebrating the achievement he could never accomplish in the past. He sneered mockingly, "Did you really think I was still the same after all these years, you idiot? No matter how strong your time attribute was, that's all in the past now. How many years do you think have passed? 20 years, 20 damn years, you bastard. The me you knew back then is no longer the me of today." With the accomplishment of defeating Kawakairo, Heidki could probably boast about it for the rest of his life. Beating him had partly restored his confidence and proved his current strength. He said with satisfaction, "Don't underestimate me." He grinned wickedly, 20 years have passed, my level has risen. It's only natural that I'm stronger now." Heidki let out a relieved breath, satisfied that he had eliminated his enemy and pleased with the outcome. He narrowed his eyes, thinking of his other rivals. "Finally, I've taken down Kawakairo. No one will dare look down on me again. The truly strongest among the 5 holy stars is me." Heidki had become completely unhinged. Every vile thought in his mind now showed plainly on his wicked face. A voice suddenly spoke up, "Finished already?" Heidki's face darkened, his pupils shrank in terror. He jolted in shock. Kyosuke stood completely unscathed, calmly brushing dust off his clothes. Heidki's face twisted as he pointed and shouted, How is this possible? You took all those hits and still." Kyosuke smiled appreciatively. "You've learned a few strong spells, huh? Truly worthy of being a hero of this era." From somewhere, a strange white aura had appeared around him. Kyosuke said, "Now, I can finally let loose without holding back." With a wide, almost cheerful smile that narrowed his eyes, he clenched his fist tightly. Powerful energy surged, flashing with multicolored sparks. Heidki's face drained of blood, panic flooded his heart. This guy, he's a monster. He tried to steady himself, "But I can't back down, not after all the effort I put in to reach this day." Heidki refused to give up and summoned earth magic again. I won't let you mock me anymore. A massive magical earth hand surged toward Kyosuke's position. It instantly closed around him, squeezing with crushing force. Heike thought triumphantly, got him. But Kyosuke disappointed him once more. He murmured softly, oh dear. Still barking as loud as ever, Kyosuke used water magic to counter the grip. Since Heike's power was earth-based, contact with water turned it into soft, shapeless mud that dripped away, losing the hand's original form. Kyosuke taunted, did you really think that would be enough to beat me? The transformed mud reversed course and flew straight back toward Heike. Heike panicked, no. Stay away, get back. He unleashed wind magic to push it away. Kyosuke flicked his hand, creating a similar streak of wind power, but unlike Heike's emerald green wind, his glowed jade blue. Kyosuke's wind magic formed a massive vortex that sucked in every bit of Heike's wind spells. The tornado's range expanded rapidly with overwhelming force. Dust and smoke filled the air as Heike raised his arms to shield himself from the powerful gale. The vortex drew closer and closer to him. Heike was struck by his own redirected attack. He tumbled backward, head slamming into a nearby tree trunk with a painful cry. Before he could recover, Kyosuke appeared before him with fire magic ready. Heike scrambled backward in terror. Knowing he couldn't win, Heike dropped to his knees and begged, I'm sorry, Kawakiro, I beg you, please spare me. His appearance was utterly pathetic now, clothes and face smeared with mud and dirt. Heike slammed his forehead to the ground. I'm sorry for what happened 20 years ago, so please. Facing his desperate plea, Kyosuke remained silent, lips pressed tightly together. While Heike kept his head bowed, he secretly smirked inwardly. Kawakiro was always a soft-hearted idiot. If I do this, he'll definitely, true to form, his nature never changed. He still only cared about his own benefit. Facing his desperate plea, Kyosuke stayed silent, lips pressed tightly together. Contrary to Heike's expectations, Kyosuke replied coldly, shut your mouth. Heike jerked his head up in shock. What did you say? This is exactly how you tricked me back then. Did you really think I'd let that happen again? A terrifying aura emanated from Kyosuke. His face darkened, the hatred from that day burning intensely. Forgiving him so easily would be an insult to everything he had suffered. Hearing that, Heike scrambled to his feet in fear. Wait, Kawakiro, we used to be friends, right? Kyosuke's rage reached its peak. Murderous intent flashed in his eyes as he growled, you have no right to say those words, especially after turning me into a vengeful demon. He gathered power into his fist. He drove it straight into Heike's hateful face without mercy. Not just once, he rained down punch after punch on Heike's entire body, repaying every bit of the grudge he had carried from his previous life. Unable to resist the barrage, Heike spat fresh blood. Deep in his heart, he regretted bitterly. I never should have. The image of Kyosuke before him now looked like a demon come to punish him for every crime he had committed. Heike gasped in agony. I never should have messed with this guy. Finally, a massive palm strike erupted with overwhelming force. The powerful blow sent Heike flying miles like a rocket, crashing through massive tree trunks. Heike slammed headfirst into a thick tree. Kyosuke stood before him and said, you should thank me for not killing you. I still have one question left. Heike before him was now little more than an empty shell. He had completely passed out, his body scorched by fire and frozen by ice magic, covered in bruises, mouth foaming, utterly broken. Seeing him like this, Kyosuke said, but you can't hear me anymore, can you? The setting sun cast half of Kyosuke's face in light. His cold eyes gazed down at the traitor who had betrayed him, feeling that at least part of the long-standing grudge had finally been settled. Heike slowly opened his eyes, pain throbbing through every inch of his body. Kyosuke looked down from above with an ice-cold tone. Hey, you're finally awake. Heike panicked so badly, he scrambled backward 100 meters in terror. His face turned deathly pale as he trembled and shouted, please don't kill me. Kyosuke curled his lips in a slight, contemptuous smile. Oh please, I'm not going to kill you. He tilted his head slightly in a leisurely yet terrifying manner. However, his pupils flashed with golden light as he spoke in a low, threatening voice. You will answer my question, won't you? He casually reached into his coat as if searching for something. All right then, first things first. He pulled out a phone. The lit screen displayed a contact name. Tell me about this woman. Heike's eyes widened briefly. He clearly recognized her. He jolted to his feet in panic. My phone. But Kyosuke only stared coldly at the top name on the call history. In your recent calls today, someone named Lei contacted you. The gentle expression on Kyosuke's face vanished, replaced by anger. What exactly did the two of you talk about? Sweat rolled down Heike's cheek. His voice wavered hesitantly. That, because Lei is coming to Japan in 3 days, I thought she wanted to discuss that, but a meaningful smile appeared on Kyosuke's lips as though he already understood everything. I see. Memories of his past betrayal flooded back. In 3 days, Lei will. He loosened his grip slightly, confidence returned to his handsome face. I've decided what to do. Heike hurriedly caught the phone as Kyosuke tossed it to him. Here, take it back. For now, treat Lei exactly as usual. Suddenly, Kyosuke raised a finger to his lips in a silencing gesture. However, you are not to breathe a single word to her about my identity. He pointed firmly at Heike and declared, while you were unconscious, I placed a curse on your heart. A slow flame flickered to life in his palm. If you tell her who I am. He clenched his fist. The flame instantly erupted into a terrifying explosion. Heike's face turned ashen and lifeless. Then boom, remember to keep your promise. Kyosuke casually turned and walked away, leaving him behind. Deep down, he's secretly delighted at having fooled Heike. I didn't actually use that kind of magic at all. Right now, Heike was clutching his head in terror, lips pressed tight. But with Iwako's personality, a threat like that is more than enough. Finally, Heike collapsed fully to the ground, all willpower drained. I won't use absolute hypnosis on you, Iwako, because I want you to despair while fully conscious. A sinister, wicked smile quietly spread across Kyosuke's face. Flight attendants carefully pushed the refreshment cart down the aisle 3 days later. Ryuoxi gazed thoughtfully at the hazy scenery outside the airplane window. Her bodyguard beside her spoke softly at that moment. Lady Lei, we're almost there. The flight attendant's calm announcement came over the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be landing shortly at. Suddenly, a panic scream drew her attention. A group of hijackers appeared out of nowhere and seized a flight attendant. This plane is now under our control. One of them pointed a gun at the passengers and ordered, everyone down on the floor now. Then Ryuoxi calmly stood up, seemingly unbothered by the chaos. She walked steadily toward the shouting hijacker, if you don't obey me. In an instant, she appeared right beside him. With one decisive strike, she knocked him down. The man stared wide-eyed in disbelief at what just happened. In mere moments, she had completely neutralized the rest. Passengers throughout the cabin stared in stunned amazement. They cheered her poised, powerful, and captivating presence. 5 Holy Star Lei Ryuoxi were saved. In the end, the hijackers were apprehended as soon as the plane landed. The man greeting her bowed deeply and sincerely. Lady Lei, I don't know how to thank you enough. Her youthful face showed a warm, gracious smile without any pretense. Luckily, I was on this flight. Thanks to that, the airline avoided a scandal. Then she glanced at the gun in her bodyguard's hand. But more importantly, it seems this firearm is a special type that evades metal detectors. Ryuoxi's voice dropped to a near whisper, almost as if conducting an under-the-table deal. Lately, many groups have been using equipment made from dungeon materials. That's why. She placed a sympathetic, understanding hand on the man's shoulder. I need to equip my staff with some self-defense items. The corner of her mouth curved into a dangerous smile. Her tone carried clear threats, like the kind of weapon you're carrying. The man bowed low in fear and replied quickly without daring to protest. Of course, I'll arrange it immediately. Inside the airport, crowds bustled as people searched for their flights. She lightly pressed the phone to her ear and gave quiet instructions. It's me, release the hijackers. Her bodyguard glanced at her with a faint smile. Everything went smoothly, she agreed, unable to hide her amusement. This was quite interesting. Recalling the chaos on the plane earlier, her voice rose with satisfaction. Planting those hijackers turned out to be the decisive move for sealing the deal. The groveling, respectful demeanor of the man earlier delighted her. The excited cheers of people outside the waiting area lifted her spirits even more. Look at that, it seems this incident was quite useful for polishing my reputation. The crowd kept chanting her name in excitement. Lady Lei, truly the hero Lei Ryuoxi. Her practiced public smile appeared as she waved warmly in response. Several black cars pulled up in front of a stern-looking school building. She stepped out gracefully and strode forward. Now then, it's time to handle the reason I bothered coming all the way to Japan. A wooden door bore a sign that read Principal's Office. Heike sat staring blankly out the window, his face covered in wounds. A soft sound drew his attention. Ryuoxi entered with a friendly demeanor. Pardon the intrusion, Iwako. She sat down leisurely and spoke casually. You said you were investigating a student with the void attribute. Any progress on that? His eyes darted nervously. He chose his words carefully. No, it turned out to be a false alarm. Just as you said, that student is nothing but a useless failure. She took a slow sip of tea and continued nonchalantly. Is that so? A rare attribute doesn't mean much in the end, nothing particularly special. But for Heike right now, it felt like ants crawling over hot coals. If he slipped up and said something wrong, the curse would activate immediately. I just need to answer normally. She gently set her teacup down, her tone suddenly turned serious. Well then, let's get straight to the main reason I'm here. Darkness quickly hid the cruel expression on her face. Regarding the new drug we're developing, what do you think about our next test subject? She elegantly crossed her long legs and commented lightly, "You've certainly made clever use of this academy's systems." Meanwhile, through the earpiece in Kyosuke's ear came the sound from the principal's office. First, let's start with the student roster. He stood on the rooftop and muttered a quiet curse. How pathetic. His face turned utterly cold as he declared in a low voice, "The next one to taste despair will be you, Lei Ryuoxi." The TV in Kyosuke's room droned on stiffly. And now for today's news. Yesterday, 5 Holy Star Lei Ryuoxi arrived in Japan. He listened silently without missing a word, expression blank and unreadable. She received widespread praise for subduing the hijackers, those who. Watching Ryuoxi's smiling image on the news, he thought inwardly, Lei Ryuoxi, one of the ones who betrayed me 20 years ago. She casually glanced at an exquisite hourglass in her hand. She manufactures special weapons from dungeon materials and has apparently amassed quite a fortune from selling them. But he recalled the conversation he'd just overheard. From her talk with Iwako earlier, it seems she's using this school for shady dealings. He stood up and slipped on his coat. On the surface, she's a hero, but behind the scenes, she exploits others for profit. A contemptuous smile appeared on his thin lips. I can't overlook this. Then he stepped out the door and headed straight toward his target. The scene shifts to the bustling, laughter-filled school hallway. He held his phone thoughtfully, calculating his next move. But how exactly should I make my move? On the screen was the latest news about Ryuoxi. Ever since she set foot in this academy, security has been extremely tight. Finally, he settled on his own path. First, while investigating the situation, right then, someone called him from behind, Kyosuke. Recognizing the voice, he greeted softly, "It's you, Asahi." Karin replied cheerfully in her gentle tone, "Good morning." She stepped closer and peeked at his phone. "You're reading about Lady Lei." He glanced over coolly and tossed out, "Yeah, just skimming." Karin's small face lit up with unmistakable admiration. "Lady Lei is amazing, isn't she? Yesterday she took down those hijackers." She paused for a moment before continuing, "And the great mountain serpent clan is really famous too." His eyes flickered slightly at the new information. "Mountain serpent?" She explained innocently while walking. "That's the clan Lady Lei founded. It has a lot of powerful members." He briefly recalled the men who looked like her bodyguards. "I see, so those people in black protecting Lei are from that clan." Karin continued enthusiastically, full of praise. "A lot of students here want to join the military. What about you, Kyosuke?" He gave a soft, completely rejecting laugh. "No." But he suddenly paused as if remembering something. "Wait a second." His slender hand rubbed his chin thoughtfully as he calculated. "If I use that clan, I can get close to Lei." His footsteps finally moved forward with firm resolve. "All right." He raised a hand to bid Karin farewell and added, "Thanks, Asahi, thanks to you, I know exactly what to do now." She stood at the classroom door, watching his hurried, retreating figure. A giant question mark practically hovered over her head. What was that about? Inside the luxurious wooden cabinet were rows of prestigious awards. Heidki, sitting at his desk, flinched slightly at the sudden ring of the phone. Huh. He carefully lifted the receiver, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's me." Kyosuke tilted his head back to gaze at the deep blue sky and spoke softly. "Hey, Iwako, I need you to do something for me." On the other end came Heidki's hesitant, timid reply. "What is it?" Kyosuke gave a faint smile and lowered his voice with the request, "If Lei contacts you." The scene shifts to some kind of laboratory. A man bound and kneeling on the floor was surrounded by several researchers. The door suddenly swung open. Light spilled in, illuminating a familiar silhouette. Ryuoxi stood with hands on hips, exuding confidence as she spoke. "How's it looking?" The man, pale with panic, begged desperately, "Please don't inject me with that drug again. If this keeps up, I'll die." Her high heels suddenly appeared right in front of him, making him even more terrified. Without mercy, she kicked him down to the floor. Ignoring his trembling, she coldly declared, "No way, I don't take opinions from lab rats." Her crimson lips curved into a meaningful, delighted smile. "No need to be so pessimistic." The heel of her shoe carefully pressed against his cheek, making his pupils shrink. "If your body adapts to this drug, you'll become even stronger." She turned to leave, snapping her fingers lightly. "So, let's begin." Seeing the syringe filled with red liquid, the man screamed louder, "Please no, wait, I still." But the researchers swiftly injected the substance into his neck. His entire body stiffened, the scream cut off mid-breath. Soon after, the scream turned into agonized howls. The man struggled violently for a moment before finally collapsing. His face went blank, his words devolved into meaningless groans. After observing, Ryuoxi sighed. This time he lost language ability. It seems without some magical talent, the drug won't take effect. The door opened again with a soft sound. "We still need more data." Her bodyguard behind her carefully reported the next steps. "We'll soon need additional test subjects." Ryuoxi crossed her arms in agreement. Indeed. A sinister smile spread across Ryuoxi's lips as her fingers tapped impatiently. As usual, we'll disguise it as recruitment for the Great Mountain Serpent Clan. She strolled leisurely into the elevator while contacting Heike. Hello, Iwako, about the test subject we discussed earlier. Her graceful figure leaned against the elevator wall as she made her request softly. I need people skilled in magic. Can you select a few students from your academy? On the other end, Heike remained silent for a moment. After a pause, he tentatively suggested, in that case, how about this? Ryuoxi stood silently in the elevator, listening intently to every word. We could hold a selection event right at the academy. That way it'll be easy to filter out the capable ones, right? The corner of her mouth curved upward. Her face openly revealed her wicked intent. Sometimes you come up with pretty good ideas. The elevator chimed softly, ground floor. She stepped out gracefully, her heart brimming with delight. The date, time, and details will be announced later. On the other side, Heike quickly hung up. He clasped his hands behind his back and stared silently at the sky outside the window. I've done as you asked, Kawakairo. The scene shifts to a crowded grand hall. I have an announcement to make. The bodyguard stood solemnly on the podium and declared, the Great Mountain Serpent Clan has decided to hold a recruitment examination to seek new talent. The students below erupted in excited murmurs. Really, this is our chance to join that famous clan. Kyosuke, standing in line, couldn't help but smile faintly. His gaze fixed directly on the man on the podium. So the path to approaching Lei has opened. The next morning on the sports field, students and judges were all present. One judge spoke. We thank you all for participating in the Great Mountain Serpent Clan selection exam. The long-haired male judge began explaining the rules. I will now explain how this examination will proceed. While the judge explained the format, Kyosuke silently calculated in his mind. To join the Great Mountain Serpent Clan and get close to Lei, I must pass this exam. When approaching Iwako, I tried not to attract attention, but this time it's the opposite. To draw the attention of Yang Zinyu, Lei's right-hand man, and the judges. I will display my full strength. While standing thoughtfully in the hallway, a voice suddenly called, Kyosuke. It was Karin approaching with a greeting. Are you participating in the exam? Kyosuke nodded lightly. Yeah, you too, huh? His eyes flickered slightly. I don't want her getting involved in this, but... Karin gave a shy smile that cut through his thoughts. I know I don't really belong here, but I have a reason I have to participate. With a determined smile, she looked at Kyosuke. Let's both do our absolute best and pass this exam together, okay? Kyosuke silently vowed to himself, I have to pass no matter what. At the sports field, the judge announced, we will now begin the mana measurement test. He pointed to a golden orb. This device will display the mana level of anyone who touches it. We'll conduct the measurement here, so please step forward one by one. The first young man stepped up and placed his hand on the mana measuring device. After he stepped away came a sigh and the judge's score announcement. The judge called the next name, next to Sai Kyosuke. Kyosuke walked up with a friendly smile. Thanks in advance. He held up his student ID card and stepped forward. Seeing the information on the card, the judge had no expectations. Void attribute level 30, looks like there's nothing to hope for. Kyosuke placed his hand on the mana measuring device. A blinding light erupted, shaking the entire hall. The judge, dazzled by the light, still couldn't comprehend what was happening. The surrounding students were stunned. What the hell, this is insane. Kyosuke stood calmly beside the device amid everyone's shock. He turned back confidently and asked, so that's it, right? The judge, still dazed, replied, yeah. Kyosuke walked away while the judges began recording his rank. Among everyone who had been measured, only Kyosuke achieved S rank. The next part of the exam was the magic skill test. Kyosuke created a small ball of earth and stone. The judge behind him commented, he can only make a lump of dirt. Having a lot of mana isn't enough on its own. Suddenly, the corner of Kyosuke's mouth curved into a meaningful smile. In his hand now was a sphere of water attribute. Witnessing this, the judge was stunned. Kyosuke had created 2 spheres of different attributes simultaneously. The smile on his lips didn't fade. Next came a sphere of fire attribute. Without stopping, Kyosuke continued to form 2 more spheres of different attributes. Everyone around was shocked by his ability. One man exclaimed, creating all basic attributes at the same time. Kyosuke grinned smugly. How's that? A guy with the void attribute. The thing always considered trash can do this much, and it surprises you all, doesn't it? From a distance, Karin ran over excitedly. You're amazing, Kyosuke. Kyosuke encouraged her back. Thanks, you do your best too, Asahi. Now it was Karin's turn. She prepared to demonstrate her ability. Karin focused her mana to showcase her power. The wilted plants on the shelf began to revive thanks to her magic. The stems straightened and started producing flowers. Finally, from those withered sprouts, Karin transformed them into large, vibrant blooming plants. 2 male classmates seeing her ability laughed mockingly. she can only revive wilted flowers, nothing special. Only Kyosuke recognized the uniqueness in Karin's magic. That's light attribute magic, a very rare attribute. But the judges probably won't be able to evaluate it properly. I feel bad for her, but it's better if she doesn't get dragged into this. Mocked Karin bowed her head in embarrassment and walked away. The long-haired male judge from earlier had taken note of her and jotted on his phone, "Asahi Karin, worthy of being a test subject." The next round was announced by the judge. "Finally, we will proceed to the one-on-one combat test." The long-haired judge pointed toward the people behind him. "Your opponents will be them." The students were stunned. "You want us to fight members of the Great Mountain Serpent Clan?" The judge reassured them. "Don't worry, we won't judge solely based on win or loss. What matters is how you fight." On the surface, he said that, but deep down the judge sneered. From the start, what chance does a student have against someone from the Great Mountain Serpent Clan? The arrogant blonde man challenged Kyosuke. "So you're the kid who caused a stir in the earlier tests." He cracked his knuckles with a threatening tone. "Looks like you showed off quite a bit and got good results in the other tests, but I'll show you none of that means anything once real combat starts." Facing the muscular man's pressure, Kyosuke only gave a polite smile. "Yes, I hope I can learn a lot from you." The blonde man declared confidently, "I'll defeat you in one blow." He used his earth attribute skill to create spheres of rock. Then dozens of similar spheres shot straight toward Kyosuke. Without any fear, Kyosuke calmly used his own magic to block the attack. The earth spheres were then reflected back toward his opponent. The blonde man was struck by his own magic. He gritted his teeth. "What? He destroyed my magic in one move." Regaining his composure and looking ahead, Kyosuke was no longer there. The blonde man was confused. Where'd he go? Suddenly Kyosuke appeared behind him, an ice dagger pressed against his throat. Kyosuke smiled smugly and whispered in his ear, "You call unleashing one spell to create an opening real combat? I learned a lot from that." The result of the match was announced. Winner Asahi Kyosuke. The long-haired judge stood among the stunned crowd. He defeated a member of the Great Mountain Serpent Clan. Just who was this student? Night fell. Ryuoxi sat in her room listening to the judge's report. "Lei, the examination has concluded." She asked curiously, "Did you find any interesting subjects?" The judge on the other end replied, "Well, there was one particularly noteworthy student." Ryuoxi showed interest. "Noteworthy student?" The judge continued. "Yes, he dominated the exam with overwhelming strength. However, it seems he has the void attribute." Ryuoxi pondered. Void attribute. Could that be the student Owako was investigating? Thinking of that, she sat up and burst into laughter. "Haha." Ryuoxi's eyes sparkled with excitement. "Looks like I'm about to get my hands on a very interesting lab rat." In the judging hall, the long-haired judge announced, "Now I will announce the names of those who have passed the examination." First, that stern face stared straight ahead. A decisive voice immediately rang through the entire room. Asahi Kyosuke. The students around started whispering. Of course he passed. The guy went absolutely insane during the exam. Kyosuke alone wore a satisfied smile. "Everything is going exactly according to plan. Now I can get close to Lei." The judge continued reading the list. Next, Asahi Karin. She joyfully answered here. Kyosuke glanced over in mild surprise. Asahi got selected too. He began to ponder. "I didn't think just having a special attribute would be enough to pass. It seems Lei is using the academy students for some kind of scheme. There has to be some reason behind Asahi being chosen." Karin was overjoyed with her own result and smiled very happily. Kyosuke also smiled at her, but mixed in was a helpless sigh. He looked at Karin and told himself, "It's fine. I won't let them lay a hand on Asahi. I just need to achieve my goal and protect her, that's all." On another new day at the Great Mountain Serpent Clan, a few days after the examination, in front of the building, H. Lei Company, Japan branch. In the office, the long-haired male judge was greeting the students. "Welcome everyone, those who have passed the examination." He began explaining the schedule. "Today we will conduct the compatibility test before officially accepting you into the Great Mountain Serpent Clan. In addition, Lei Ryuoxi will also be arriving." Hearing those words, our main character's eyes instantly turned extremely dangerous. "She will meet you after the test concludes. Please follow me." Kyosuke along with Karin also followed behind the group. While Karin curiously looked around, Kyosuke was deep in thought. "I want to confront Lei right away, but I can't leave Asahi behind." Karin said excitedly, "Stepping into such a huge building really makes you nervous, huh?" Kyosuke replied to her, "Yeah." Karin turned to him again with a happy smile, "But thinking about being able to join the Great Mountain Serpent Clan, I'm really thrilled." Kyosuke had a question. "By the way, why do you want to join the Great Mountain Serpent Clan?" Karin scratched her head shyly. "My mom is in the hospital and the treatment costs are pretty high." Kyosuke nodded in understanding. "I get it now. You've made up your mind, so she is joining because of her mother, not because of me. Now I have even more reason to give it my all and protect her." The long-haired male judge stopped in front of a basement level level, we've arrived, Kyosuke wondered, the basement, huh? After that, all of them stepped down into the basement and stopped at the lobby. Kyosuke scanned the surroundings once, testing equipment, huh, so probably they. At this moment, the long-haired male judge ordered, close the door. The door slammed shut, making everyone confused. Kyosuke commented, no intention of letting anyone out, huh? They're pretty serious about this. Seeing the situation, two young men stepped forward to question, hey, what do you mean by this? The long-haired judge now revealed his scary face and shouted, order. The two young men were intimidated by his words to the point of trembling. The long-haired guy explained, as I said earlier, now we will begin the compatibility test. Specifically, we will check compatibility with a new drug that is being secretly developed. This drug is formulated from materials collected in dungeons. It has the ability to greatly enhance the user's physical strength and mana. The red-haired young man was confused. What? The green-haired guy smiled, so this is a good thing then. Kyosuke spoke up with a question, does this new drug have any side effects? The long-haired guy pointed toward the screen. It'll be quicker if everyone just watches this. A male student who was tied up and about to be injected begged, please stop, I still. The other students who witnessed the scene became shocked and terrified. That male student quickly passed out, drool unconsciously flowing from his mouth. The green-haired young man shouted, what the hell is this? The judge calmly replied, what everyone just saw is a person who is not compatible with the new drug. Is that enough to answer everyone's question? The two young men fiercely protested, don't be ridiculous, there's no way we'll accept that drug. After saying that, they cast magic preparing to attack the judge. The two young men charged toward the long-haired male judge with threats, let us out of here right now. On this side, Kyosuke calmly instructed Karin, Asahi, don't leave my side. The long-haired guy clenched his fist tightly. He effortlessly took down the two young men, causing trouble in the laboratory. The two of them immediately passed out after the judge's strike. After the strike, the long-haired guy looked at the two young men. Oh dear, the number of test subjects has decreased. His gaze began shifting attention to others. The long-haired guy pointed toward Karin and ordered, let's start with that girl over there first. He took the drug and put it into the syringe. That girl is probably a student with the light attribute. I'm really looking forward to the results of this experiment. Then he slowly stepped closer toward Karin, making her terrified. Immediately, Kyosuke stepped forward to block in front of Karin. His expression was serious as he protected her from the bad guy approaching. The long-haired guy questioned, what are you doing? Kyosuke replied, preventing a coward like you from getting close to her. His words made the long-haired guy grind his teeth in anger. He ordered the big henchman in front, hey, hold him back. The guy threw a straight punch at Kyosuke, but with his speed, he dodged it. Kyosuke's speed caught him off guard and he couldn't keep up. With just one strike, Kyosuke quickly took down the big henchman. The guys around who witnessed it were also surprised. What? After dealing with the first one, Kyosuke moved as fast as lightning. The next two were also quickly taken down by him. The big henchmen who got hit by Kyosuke were in pain and knelt on the ground. The long-haired guy couldn't believe his eyes. Impossible. He took down so many people in just one strike. After dealing with the obstacles around him, Kyosuke turned back. He gave a cold, sharp look toward the long-haired guy with a warning, you're next. He was frozen by Kyosuke's pressure. In this unfavorable situation, the long-haired guy decided, it's come to this. If I can capture that girl. The sudden attack from the long-haired guy made Karin scream in fear. No. Kyosuke grabbed the hand that was about to grab Karin from the long-haired guy. I already told you, I won't let you get near her. He angrily pulled his hand back. Damn it. Who the hell is this guy? A normal student couldn't possibly. Kyosuke's eyes at this moment had become terrifying. Now then, get ready. At this moment, Kyosuke stood like a hero shielding Karin. The long-haired guy angrily ground his teeth. Damn it. Kyosuke instructed Asahi, stay behind me, though scared Karin still trembled and replied, thank you, Kyosuke. Looking at the guy protecting her, Karin thought inwardly, Kyosuke is amazing. Just now, I couldn't even keep up with his movements. I knew he was stronger, but I didn't expect him to be this strong. The long-haired guy regained his composure and reminded, you bastard, don't get cocky. He wasn't afraid of him at all and spoke up, let me ask you one thing. The academy students are being used as test subject. What the hell is this for? Those sharp eyes stared straight at the opponent in front. Hearing Kyosuke's question, the long-haired guy gave a sinister smile. He arrogantly replied, simple, those who believe in Lady Lei can receive her blessing. Once we successfully develop this drug, she will become even stronger than before. Kyosuke frowned, do you think conducting such inhumane experiments is acceptable just for that purpose? The long-haired guy still confidently spouted inhuman words. We're just making use of what's available, that's all. Besides, at this moment, he suddenly gave a somewhat strange smile. Being a test subject for us is actually an honor for them. Kyosuke recalled Karin's words in the company lobby earlier, my mom is in the hospital. The treatment costs are quite expensive. Being able to join the Great Mountain Serpent clan makes me really happy. Remembering those words made him clench his fist even tighter. The long-haired guy still casually pointed toward Karin, that girl too, she was extremely happy when she became Kyosuke's voice carried extreme rage. Shut your mouth. At this moment, a massive source of power enveloped his entire body. The magic radiating from his body made the long-haired guy slightly falter. Kyosuke angrily gritted out each word. Who do you think you are? A piece of trash who only knows how to trample others like you could never understand Asahi's feelings. Karin looked emotionally at the boy in front of her, Kyosuke. The long-haired guy wondered, what is this overwhelming pressure? Is he really just a student? Though shaken, the corner of his mouth still formed a smile. The long-haired guy spoke to Kyosuke with confidence. Normally, I would have told you to know your place, but I don't hate your boldness at all. How about it? Why don't you submit to Lady Lei? If you hand that girl over, you might even get promoted to a high-ranking officer. I'm sure Lady Lei will be very pleased. His words made Kyosuke even angrier. I already told you to shut up. I can't forgive someone like you. The long-haired guy loosened his tie. You'll regret this. Then he also began to show his power. The long-haired guy's eyes shone with a powerful golden color. His power caused the ground beneath his feet to shatter. Kyosuke realized, body enhancement magic, huh? The long-haired guy affirmed, yes, combined with my martial arts, this is an unbeatable skill. Then he started throwing out taunts, challenging him to come at him if he dared. The long-haired guy's feet had already left the ground as he lunged forward. He threw a punch right at the guy, yelling, take this. The fist came down with a lot of force, but it completely missed Kyosuke, leaving the long-haired guy stunned. This power. That guy, his face full of confidence, kept talking. Looks like you managed to dodge that one, huh? Kyosuke commented, I get it now, so this is body enhancement magic. It's really strong. If that's the case, the long-haired guy charged at Kyosuke again. I dare you to dodge this one. Kyosuke had his eyes closed, casting magic, focusing, turning his imagination into an image. Seeing him just standing there, the long-haired guy mocked him. What the hell are you doing? You giving up already? His fist got closer and closer. Die. Kyosuke's eyes snapped open. Void magic. He blocked the long-haired guy's punch. Activate. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. No way. He's got strength equal to mine. No, even stronger. Kyosuke looked at the long-haired guy and smiled challengingly. Looks like I can use body enhancement magic now too, thanks. Thanks to you, I was able to imagine it. Taking the opportunity, Kyosuke landed a powerful blow on the long-haired guy. He was badly hurt by Kyosuke's attack. His whole body was sent flying, smashing through rocks and dirt in the distance. Knocked to the ground, he couldn't accept this defeat. No way. A single thought flashed through his mind. Just who the hell is that guy? Kyosuke just stood there silently, looking at the long-haired guy with eyes full of hatred and contempt. With that done, Karin was incredibly grateful. Thank you, Kyosuke, and our protagonist gently asked her, Asahi, are you okay? Glancing over at the others, Kyosuke suggested, I'll clear a path, so you guys should get out of here. The two young men hesitated, but what about you? Kyosuke didn't answer their question. He used his strength to smash a large window. While his three friends behind him stared in shock, Kyosuke walked out proudly. He left only saying, I've got something to do. On Roxy's end, a voice on the phone said urgently, Lord Lei, there's an emergency. It seems Lord Yang has been defeated and the trainees have escaped. Roxy was stunned. What? The voice on the other end continued to report, there's an extremely strong guy heading straight this way. Just as the call ended, a loud noise suddenly erupted. Roxy was momentarily confused. What the hell is going on? It was Kyosuke standing right in front of her door. On guard, Roxy questioned him, who are you? Why are you here? Kyosuke's expression turned terrifyingly cold. His voice calm but full of threat as he spoke. It's simple. I'm here to pay you back for a grudge from 20 years ago. Roxy couldn't fully understand what Kyosuke was saying. A debt from 20 years ago? What are you talking about? Kyosuke slowly stepped closer. Looks like you still don't get it. Do I need to spell it out for you? Ever since the SSS-Rank dungeon 20 years ago, you Pentagons of Saints have been hailed as heroes. Hearing him mention the past, Roxy's expression became more tense. Kyosuke continued, let's just say someone's scheme was crushed that day. Roxy acted nonchalant, turning away from him. What is a student like you rambling about? Are you trying to give me a history lesson? Ignoring her, Kyosuke kept going with his story. Now, the Pentagons of Saints are all leaders in every major field across the world. They're praised as the heroes who destroyed evil. Roxy interrupted, what exactly are you? Kyosuke cut her off, even so. The truth is completely different. Roxy frowned, her voice laced with annoyance. What did you say? Kyosuke continued explaining, his aura suddenly shifting. You used your own comrades as sacrifices, to reap the rewards and build your reputation. Even now, you trample on the will of those who once fought by your side, am I wrong? Hearing Kyosuke's accusation, Roxy laughed out loud. She scoffed at his words, I was wondering what nonsense you were talking. Don't tell me you actually believe some stupid conspiracy theory. Facing Roxy's attitude, Kyosuke stated firmly, it's not just a conspiracy theory, I know what you did. You yourself pushed your own comrade through that gate. Kyosuke's indictment made Roxy's face turn pale with guilt. She frowned in suspicion. Why, how does an ordinary student know about that? Sensing the conflict in Roxy's thoughts, Kyosuke spoke up, still don't get it, Rei, who I really am. His expression changing, Kyosuke emphasized, I am Misato Kawakairo. Hearing that name, Roxy panicked. No way, Kyosuke cut her off forcefully, it already happened. I used the very power that made you call me a monster back then. A level 100 guy who can use time magic really is a monster. Every word Kyosuke said made Roxy more afraid. She was shaken by the truth, unable to believe it. No way, Kaiwakairo, are you really here? Kyosuke confirmed, I also know exactly what your Ray company is secretly doing. If I expose that, your reputation will be destroyed. Roxy angrily waved her hand and yelled, don't mess with me. Kyosuke kept slowly walking closer. Don't mess with you. I should be the one saying that. Because of what happened 20 years ago, and because you trampled on the hopes of a girl who gave it her all. I will never forgive you for that. Faced with his threat, Roxy suddenly smiled. She held her head up arrogantly. Don't underestimate me. You're not in Misato's body anymore. Roxy clenched a staff tightly in her hand. Now that you've dared to show yourself in front of me, I'll make you regret it. She used her magic to attack Kyosuke. The power was so strong it shook the whole room, covering it with cracks. Kyosuke used his speed to dodge one of Roxy's attacks. Holding the staff, Roxy proudly explained, what do you think? This is the power of a weapon developed by Ray Company. It's forged from dungeon materials, harder than any metal. Let me show you how sharp it is. Saying that, she leaped into the air, aiming her attack at Kyosuke. Facing Roxy's continuous assaults, Kyosuke dodged them all. A powerful blow aimed straight at his face, but it couldn't land. Seeing this, Roxy mocked him. Looks like dodging is the only thing you're good for. Suddenly, she realized something was wrong. Why aren't any of my hits landing? Kyosuke spoke calmly, I see. While dodging Roxy's attacks, he commented, you've been too busy playing the corporate queen. Your moves have gotten sloppy. Now you're not much better than Owako. Kyosuke appeared behind her, making her freeze. She shouted loudly and charged at Kyosuke, enough talk. Just then Roxy's weapon went through him. She was triumphant, got him, I hit him, but before she could celebrate, Kyosuke's voice sounded again, too bad. Kyosuke appeared behind her, making her freeze. Instantly she stood there frozen, why you? Then Roxy gritted her teeth, realizing, was that void magic? I've never heard of it working like this. If that's the case, the weapon was ready for another strike. She started applying fire attribute magic to her weapon. Her eyes blazed with anger. I'll finish him with the next hit. I'll shut that big mouth of yours for good. Take this. The power seemed ready to burn everything in its path as it shot forward. Roxy charged wildly, engulfed in a huge flame. The spear, combined with fire magic, thrust straight into Kyosuke. But without much effort, Kyosuke stopped the spear tip with 2 fingers. Roxy exclaimed in shock, no way. Looks like that's all the power you've got. Kyosuke glared at her mockingly. You're actually worse than you were 20 years ago. Sensing the situation was bad, Roxy decided, if that's the case, then I have no choice but to use that. She got ready to use another spell. Kyosuke was momentarily taken aback. You're going to. A flicker of surprise showed in his eyes. Just then Roxy grabbed a red syringe. Then she pointed the needle at herself. Instantly, a surge of purple magic enveloped her body. Kyosuke's expression immediately became tense, his brow furrowing. Roxy's whole body began to transform. You're willing to go that far. Her eyes filled with murderous intent as she spat out the words, you monster. Not long after, the purple energy layer slowly dissipated, revealing Roxy's body now fully transformed into a half-monster state, and after the transformation finished, she let out a scornful chuckle. Haha, you can't beat me now. In response to her words, the protagonist stayed calm and shot back. On the contrary, you think you can beat me just by using some enhancement drug? You really think it's that simple? Answering his question, Roxy kept up that same condescending attitude from before and said, don't underestimate me. Do you have any idea how much time and money I poured into this drug? I gathered rare materials that can only be found deep inside dungeons and spent years researching to create this thing. Ever since I witnessed that extraordinary power 20 years ago, I've been searching for a way to reach that same level. And now I've finally found a power that surpasses everything. Honestly, I should be thanking you, Kaiwakairo. Switching to Kyosuke's perspective, by this point he clearly couldn't stand listening to this evil woman ramble any longer, so he cut her off. Huh, how pathetic. Surpasses everything, really? You rely on a drug and still have the nerve to brag about it, Kyosuke said with an ice-cold expression, his tone full of accusation. This made Roxy's face freeze in shock as she asked back, what did you just say? Before she could even finish, our main character shifted into an attack stance. Sorry for interrupting your little monologue, but it's time for me to end this once and for all. With those words, both of Kyosuke's hands were suddenly engulfed in blazing golden flames. On the opposite side, Roxy seemed just as eager to send Kyosuke straight to the afterlife, so she also dropped into a fighting stance. Fine, let's settle this right now. We'll see who the real strong one is. The moment she finished speaking, her body shot forward like a rocket, moving as fast as the wind, closing the distance to Kyosuke in an instant. However, facing this attack, the protagonist simply tilted his body slightly to the side and completely dodged it. Too bad for the wall behind him. After taking Roxy's direct hit, it shattered into countless chunks of debris flying everywhere. As for Roxy, after landing her move, she spun around and taunted Kyosuke. How's that? This is the result of my research. I'll send you to your death one more time. She charged again while shouting, attacking at a terrifying speed that even made Kyosuke inwardly flinch. Before he could even raise a proper defense, Roxy's massive hand slammed straight into his chest. The sheer force of the impact sent the protagonist's body flying backward like a cannonball. Seeing that she'd landed a clean hit, Roxy smugly thought to herself, "I've won." Unfortunately for her, her celebration didn't last long. Suddenly, she felt a sharp pain shooting up from her foot, forcing her to look down in a hurry. She realized that, at some point, a razor-sharp ice shard had pierced straight through her left foot. The excruciating pain shot all the way to her brain, making her small body collapse to her knees on the floor, while Kyosuke calmly walked up to her with both hands in his pockets and said, "I set that up the moment you launched your attack." Kyosuke's meticulous preparation left Roxy in a panic, sweat pouring down her face as she stammered, "How could you possibly?" Hearing that, Kyosuke didn't hold back and leisurely explained, "It's all thanks to your minions using it earlier. I already figured out how you were enhancing your body with magic. Your drug is impressive, I'll give you that, but in the end it only lets you whip up a little whirlwind, nothing more." With a tone dripping with contempt, Kyosuke made Roxy grit her teeth and retort, "You dare mock the fruit of my research." Not letting her finish, Kyosuke shouted, "Don't make excuses. You trample over other people and still have the gall to call that progress? You seriously make me sick." The angrier he got, the more murderous intent filled his eyes. This set off every alarm bell in Roxy's mind. With no other choice, she desperately gathered power into her palm, ignoring the wound on her left foot, and lunged at Kyosuke again. She kept yelling, "Shut your mouth." Too bad for her against such a straightforward attack, Kyosuke simply extended his hand forward, firmly grabbing her wrist, while his other arm delivered a devastating mountain-shattering punch straight into the evil woman's stomach, making her cough up blood in agony. At this moment, all Roxy felt was shock and unwillingness. My power has no effect. So this is the true strength of Kaiwakairo now. Just like that, before she could even show anything more, Roxy collapsed like a dead dog. On his side, after taking down his old enemy, Kyosuke coldly walked away from the scene, saying as he left, "Lay, right from the start, that was never real strength." Right after he stepped out of the building, a familiar voice suddenly called out from behind the protagonist. Kyosuke turned around and saw it was none other than his friend Asahi. "Oh, Asahi, you're okay," Kyosuke replied with a warm smile. "Good to see you're safe too." At the same time, not far away, a group of reporters started buzzing about the building explosion. "Hey, it's exactly like the tip said. Lay Corporation just got attacked." Hearing them, Asahi turned to the boy next to her with some suspicion. "Was that you?" Of course, Kyosuke played dumb, who knows. He shrugged, then drifted into his own thoughts. Now the truth about Lay's crimes is out, the test subjects are safe, and Lay has lost everything. From Asahi's perspective, noticing the thoughtful look on the protagonist's face, she spoke up worriedly. "Hey, Kyosuke. I still don't fully understand what's going on, but if you hadn't been there, I probably wouldn't be standing here right now. So thank you, really." Asahi's words caught Kyosuke a little off guard, but he quickly gave a faint smile and reminded himself, "Right. I almost forgot, helping others used to be my whole reason for living." Time flew by, and by that evening, news of the Lay Corporation attack had spread everywhere, with a female newscaster's voice coming from the TV. "We've just received reports that illegal human experiments were being conducted in a secret underground lab owned by Lay. Roxy, one of the 5-star saints. The incident came to light after the facility was attacked by an unknown individual. She is currently showing signs of memory loss, and the identity of the attacker remains a mystery." Back to Kyosuke, hearing the newscaster, he felt a spark of curiosity. Wonder how the rest of them will react? Then suddenly the anchor's voice turned urgent. We have a breaking update. 5-star Saint Nathaniel has just issued an official statement." Those words made Kyosuke's expression darken instantly, his eyes filling with killing intent as he stared hard at the screen. On the TV, the blonde man began speaking. "On behalf of the 5-star Saints, I stand here to deliver an urgent message. We are deeply saddened by the incident involving Lay. Roxy was our comrade. We feel profound regret for not noticing her fall from grace sooner." He spoke while putting on an act of great sorrow, but that fake performance couldn't fool Kyosuke's eyes for a second. If anything, it only made the protagonist more irritated. Didn't notice, so the 5-star Saints are just gonna pretend they knew nothing. Just like they did 20 years ago. They haven't changed one bit, lying without even blinking. Willing to do anything to protect their precious heroic status. People like me and Asahi aren't even worth being called potential to them. We're just stepping stones. Nathaniel Cavell, judging by how he acted back then. It's very likely he was the mastermind behind getting me exiled. Makes sense, he's always been the scheming type, careful with every move. And even now, no one knows where he really is. Kyosuke calmed down a bit and pulled out his phone, as if about to contact someone. In another scene, inside an unfamiliar church, a girl was kneeling before an altar, seemingly in prayer. Behind her, a stranger approached and spoke. That's what he said, Lady Claudia. Up front, Claudia didn't bother turning around and just replied coolly, I see, understood, you may go. With that, she clasped her hands again and continued her prayer. Lord, please guide us toward a future filled with light. Cutting to the training room, there was Ingolf. He also received a reminder from his subordinate. Lord Ingolf, the council meeting is about to start. Hearing that, Ingolf casually dropped the weight he was holding and growled, got it, I'm heading there now. Lay, that damn dog, what the hell was she thinking? Ingolf's voice was full of rage. Not long after, the closed-door meeting of the 5-star Saints began, and naturally, the one presiding was none other than Nathaniel. Seeing everyone present, he spoke up. All right, everyone. Let's get this 5-star Saints Council meeting started. On the TV screen, Claudia maintained her prayer posture while speaking up. So the attacker exposed Lay's illegal experiments, how utterly despicable. On the other side, the burly Ingolf growled in agreement. What the hell was that bitch Lay thinking? She dragged the honor of the 5-star Saints through the mud. In response to both of them, the blonde Saint Nathaniel slowly sat down in his chair and gave his opinion. Right. However, those experiments were carried out solely by Lay and initiated by her alone. The rest of us 5-star Saints had no knowledge of any of this. For someone like Nathaniel, how could he possibly not have known? Yet he decided to pin the entire blame squarely on Lay's head. Speaking of the traitor Heidke, he immediately understood Nathaniel's intention and couldn't help but admire it inwardly. As expected of Nathaniel, he's always so rational. In other words, they're just dumping all the guilt onto Lay and abandoning her completely. I don't know about Claudia or Ingolf, but Nathaniel definitely knew about Lay's experiments. And yet he's discarding her so easily. The more Heidke thought about it, the colder the sweat that ran down his back at Nathaniel's ruthless decisiveness. After about 2 seconds, he calmed down a bit, then shifted his anxious gaze to a letter beside him and reminded himself, no, right now the most important thing is to follow his instructions. Over on this side, the ugly Claudia suddenly spoke up. I'm quite curious about the attacker. To explain that, Heidke answered, well, a sealed letter was sent to the academy from the one who attacked Lay. As he spoke, he picked up the letter and showed it to everyone. This made the others startle. A letter from the attacker. Iwako read it out loud right now. The group urged him. Heidke then looked at the letter in his hand. Of course, I'll read it now. The contents of the letter were, I have returned to this world from inside that gate. I will deal with all of you, so just wait for it, Misato Kawakiro. The moment they heard the name of the sender, the expressions of the other three changed drastically, especially Nathaniel's. Her face was drenched in anxious sweat as her trembling voice spoke with a sliver of hope. Could someone be impersonating Kawakiro? In reply, the blonde man pondered for a moment before shaking his head. No. He couldn't possibly know about the inside of that gate unless he himself had been there. The sender is definitely Kawakiro. Hearing that, the nun-like woman stroked her chin in thought. Perhaps he used time magic. Before she could finish, the hulking Ingolf snapped irritably. Why the hell should we worry? If Kawakiro really has come back, we just need to crush him again and be done with it. The big man spoke with murder dripping from his voice. And naturally, Nathaniel fully agreed. Ingolf's right, think about it, we don't need to act rashly. On her side, Claudia still seemed a bit uneasy and was about to say something, but Nathaniel cut her off immediately. Why don't we just observe what Kawakiro does next? And so, the brief meeting ended in a hurry. After turning off the computer screen, the burly Ingolf walked over to the window, gazed outside and said in a voice full of rage, Kawakiro, you're the one person I will never forgive. In another development, after the meeting ended, Principal Heidke Iwako hurriedly reported the situation to the protagonist over the phone. So, following your instructions, I've carried out the orders. Hearing that, Kyosuke calmly replied, got it. With that, he leaned back comfortably, his mind racing with calculations about the next step. So Nathaniel isn't making a move right away. He's very cautious. Let's see, no problem at all. Once they realize I'm really back, they won't be able to sit still anymore. First, I'll go after the ones whose locations I already know. Having decided, he cheerfully ordered his loyal hound. All right, Iwako, time to get moving. On the other end of the line, Iwako's anxious voice came through. What's our next move? Seeing his dog so nervous he looked like he might wet himself, Kyosuke quickly reassured him, it's not that hard. Just arrange for me to transfer to an academy connected to Ingolf. Hearing that, Heidke seemed to guess Kyosuke's intention and asked, so next, you're targeting Ingolf? Kyosuke admitted straightforwardly, exactly. Using a short-term exchange program should be easy, right? From Iwako's perspective, since he was already on Kyosuke's side, even if reluctant he had to warn him, let me make one thing clear, Ingolf isn't like me or Lay. You won't find any bad rumors or shady deals about him. This warning from the sharp-faced man made Kyosuke go quiet for a moment, but then he replied calmly, Even so, I still need to see his face at least. Handle all the formal paperwork for me. With that, he hung up, turned his cold gaze to the scenery outside, and muttered under his breath, even if there are no rumors about him. That doesn't change the fact that he betrayed me 20 years ago. Time passed quickly. Thanks to Awako's arrangements, our protagonist soon received a slot for studying abroad. Switching to Kyosuke's viewpoint, at this moment he was looking around at the surroundings and whispered, "So this is Germany. They've confirmed a connection between this country's academy and Ingolf. I'll use the German academy to get close to him. But first I need to head to the school." With that thought in mind, the protagonist quickly set off. Before long, he was drawn by a noisy commotion. These damn leeches. And of course, Nathaniel completely agreed with this. Ingolf's right, think about it, we don't need to act rashly. However, Kyosuke couldn't understand what they were saying about the foreign language issue. Thinking back, they were speaking a completely different language here. Guess I'll use Void for automatic translation, Kyosuke thought. No hesitation, he immediately activated his magic and spread it around. Soon enough, the words started flowing clearly into his ears. The guy in the brown jacket laughed and said, "Don't be like that. Come on, little lady, just hang out with us for a bit, what's the harm?" Next to him, the one in the black coat chimed in, "Come with us, we won't waste your time, let's go." In response, the black-haired girl kept her annoyed expression and shot back, "That's exactly why I called you leeches. I'm not going anywhere with street trash like you." Her words seemed to anger the two thugs. "What did you just say, bitch? Too cocky, we're gonna have to punish you." As he spoke, the black-coated one reached forward and grabbed the girl's shoulder tightly, making her face darken. But right at that moment, an intervening voice rang out, "Hey, why don't you assholes fuck off and leave her alone?" The sudden words drew the attention of all three. The brown-haired thug turned and barked at Kyosuke, "Huh, who the hell are you?" On his side, Kyosuke didn't hold back. "I said get the fuck out, you pieces of trash." The non-stop insults immediately drove the two thugs into a rage. Without any hesitation, both of them gathered power into their fists, forming blazing golden flames as they charged forward, determined to teach Kyosuke a lesson. "You fucking dog, don't underestimate us," they roared while swinging their flaming fists at Kyosuke. Too bad for these two, they had no idea how strong the guy in front of them really was. With just a casual flick of his hand, Kyosuke sent them flying, leaving them sprawled out like dead dogs. This left the black-haired girl stunned. Just one move and he took them both down. Who the hell is this student? Luckily on this side, Kyosuke didn't go too hard on them, so the two thugs quickly came to and scrambled away in a panic. "We were really sorry." Watching them flee in such a pathetic mess, the black-haired girl turned to Kyosuke and didn't forget to thank him. Yeah, thanks for helping me out." Hearing that, Kyosuke just shook his head lightly. No big deal. With that, he glanced around and noticed the crowd of onlookers chattering non-stop, some even pulling out their phones to snap pictures, which made him feel pretty uncomfortable, so he said, "Looks like we've drawn a crowd. Let's get out of here quick." Just like that, the two of them hurried away from the chaotic spot and kept walking. Behind him, the black-haired girl seemed lost in thought. "The last time someone helped me like this was when I met that person." Time flew by, and soon Kyosuke and the mysterious girl had put quite a distance between themselves and the scene. Once there was no more gossiping crowd around, the mysterious girl finally spoke up. "Hey, I just wanted to thank you again for what you did. Thanks to you, things didn't get any worse." For Kyosuke, dealing with those thugs was just a casual favor, so he didn't think much of it. "I already told you, don't worry about it." In his mind, he mused about her attitude. She seems like the responsible type. That said, I feel like I've met her somewhere before. Unlike Kyosuke, who had a bunch of questions swirling in his head, the black-haired girl turned to him and asked, "By the way, that uniform, you're a Japanese student, right?" The question snapped him out of it, and he nodded. "Oh yeah, that's right. I just arrived here today on a short-term exchange program. I'm on my way to the training academy." He explained calmly, and whether it was fate or not, the black-haired girl broke into a smile and offered, "In that case, let me walk you there as thanks." With someone willing to guide him, our protagonist wasn't dumb enough to refuse. He nodded and said, "Thanks a lot." And so they kept walking together for a while longer, chatting as they went. Kyosuke asked, "Are you traveling around the world or something?" To that question, the mysterious girl shrugged and admitted, "Yeah, well, I have my own circumstances." Her vague but natural reply sparked a bit of curiosity in Kyosuke. "She's about my age. It's pretty rare to see a girl traveling solo like this." Unable to hold back his curiosity, Kyosuke asked, "Isn't it dangerous going alone? Don't you end up in situations like that one pretty often?" Hearing him say that, the mysterious girl waved her hands frantically and laughed. "Nah, I'm fine. I might not look it, but I know a few spells." Her words didn't ease Kyosuke's concern at all. In fact, they made him worry more. In his mind, the protagonist thought quietly, but didn't she just get grabbed a minute ago? Brushing that aside, the short-haired girl stroked her chin and continued, "By the way, you're studying at the training academy, right?" Kyosuke replied. Is there a problem? The black-haired girl glanced at him. Well, it's all about achievements. A lot of students there think the same way. They have this whole class ranking system, like their own little hierarchy. And there's even a reward point system based on performance. Hearing that, Kyosuke just nodded lightly. Got it. In his head, he quickly pieced together what she meant. Sounds like they take the merit-based system way more seriously than back in Japan. Like Iwako said, Ingolf often holds regular training sessions for the top-tier students. So if I want to get close to Ingolf, I'll have to make a name for myself in that merit-driven environment. This is perfect, exactly the kind of challenge I like. Thinking about it, Kyosuke couldn't hide the excited look on his face. Back to the mysterious girl, she soon pointed ahead and reminded him, "Look, we're here." That's the Lansing Training Academy. Right in front of them stood an enormous academy campus. Seeing they'd arrived, Kyosuke waved goodbye to the mysterious girl. "This is far enough, thanks again." From behind, the black-haired girl waved back. "No problem at all." "Oh, I haven't introduced myself yet. My name's Shirato Seiyuki." As she spoke, she extended her hand forward. Seeing that, Kyosuke reached out to shake it and introduced himself. "Got it, I'm Asai Kyosuke." The instant she heard the protagonist's name, Shirato's expression suddenly changed, turning emotional as if she couldn't believe it. This caught Kyosuke's attention and he asked, "What's wrong?" On her side, Shirato quickly composed herself and shook her head. "Oh, nothing. Your name just reminds me of someone I know. Anyway, see you around. Good luck at the academy." With that, the black-haired girl turned and walked away. While Kyosuke watched her back, he felt a bit thoughtful. Shirato, there's something about her that keeps nagging at the back of my mind. But whatever, time to head in. With that, he picked up his pace and stepped into the campus grounds. However, he hadn't gone far before trouble found the protagonist again, this time in the form of an arrogant voice. "Hey, you there. Is that really you?" The voice belonged to a cocky red-haired guy. Facing that attitude, Kyosuke stayed calm and shot back. "And who the hell are you? Some punk-ass thug." His words instantly pissed off the redhead, who yelled, "Who are you calling a thug? We don't get Japanese exchange students here every day. I figured you were nothing special. But so you don't get the wrong idea about this place, I'll give you a little welcome gift." He leaned his face right up close to Kyosuke to intimidate him. As for Kyosuke, one glance was enough to see what the redhead was up to, which only made the protagonist sigh inwardly. "Man, I just got here and I already ran into a weirdo. Just like she said, looks like he wants to test me with a fight." Thinking that, Kyosuke casually tossed his bag aside and said, "Fine, let's do this." Seeing him agree, the redhead locked it in right away, even feeling a bit thrilled inside. "Nice, at least you're reasonable. Bring it on then." With that, he started channeling his power, levitating chunks of rubble around him and firing them straight forward like bullets. However, this still wasn't enough to challenge our protagonist. With one simple wave of his hand, Kyosuke effortlessly shattered the entire attack, leaving the redhead's face stunned and blank. But he didn't get to stay shocked for long. Kyosuke's cold voice rang out. "Quantity's decent, but the power's pathetic. If you're gonna use earth magic, at least make it do something like this." Along with those words, a massive earth orb formed in Kyosuke's hand. Without any hesitation, Kyosuke hurled it forward with full force. The redhead barely dodged in time, but the rock slammed into the wall behind him, blasting a huge hole through it. Just seeing the damage was enough to make the thug tremble all over. Finally, at this point, he realized the guy in front of him was a real monster. In his mind, he wondered, who the hell is this freak? In another scene, cutting to Iwako's location. At this moment, she was walking while talking to someone on the phone. Yes, that's correct. She spoke coldly, holding a stack of papers printed with all sorts of info on the protagonist. "On Saturday the 7th, I encountered Asai Kyosuke. I'll remain in Germany to continue observing the target." Back to the protagonist's perspective. At this moment, he had just received his student ID card from a staff member and quickly left the administrative office. As he walked, Kyosuke glanced down at the card in his hand and thought, "All the paperwork's done. Finally, I can enter the local dungeon. Unlike back in Japan, since I'm a student here now, I get automatic translation privileges, so it's a bit different." From Kyosuke's view, his student ID displayed basic info like Lansing Training Academy, Asai Kyosuke, attribute, void, level 41, points, none. Seeing that none in points, our protagonist quickly guessed, this must be the point system Shirato mentioned. It probably tracks dungeon exploration and performance. Thinking that, Kyosuke casually slipped the card into his pocket and reassured himself, "Whatever. No classes today anyway. I need to check out what the German dungeons are like." With that, Kyosuke hurried off, completely unaware that right behind him, the red-haired guy he'd beaten up earlier was secretly watching from a distance, his face thoughtful as if pondering something. Time passed quickly, cutting to the front of an unidentified dungeon gate. Before stepping inside, Kyosuke reminded himself once more, "If I want to get close to Ingolf, I need to climb to special rank first. Guess I'll start racking up points in this advanced dungeon." Without any hesitation, our protagonist strode right in. Very soon, the interior of the dungeon came into view, a vast corridor. From the far end, a few skeleton soldiers began shambling toward him. Sparking some interest in the black-haired young man, let's see what kind of monsters come out. Undead right off the bat, and some pretty strong ones too. I didn't run into these back in Japan. But I already know their weaknesses from when I was still Misato Kaiwakairo. Deciding to act, Kyosuke channeled his magic, engulfing his palm in blazing golden flames. Meanwhile, on the opposite side, the skeleton soldiers caught the scent of the living and charged like rabid dogs. One gripped its axe tightly and swung hard forward. Good thing Kyosuke was quick enough to dodge to the side, otherwise that swing might have cleaved him in half. Now on the counterattack, Kyosuke thought to himself, undead crumble under strong physical blows and fire. As the thought crossed his mind, he unleashed a fiery fist punch straight into the skeleton's gut with full force, snapping its spine in two and sending its upper body flying backward. Seeing their comrade go down in a single hit, the remaining two undead froze, too stunned to move. Taking the initiative, Kyosuke extended his hand forward and taunted, "Come on, bring it, I'm right here." Time flew by. Soon the area around him was littered with shattered undead bones, while Kyosuke strolled forward casually with both hands in his pockets, muttering, "This is probably the final room. The boss should be waiting up ahead." With that in mind, Kyosuke picked up his pace, and sure enough, he soon encountered the dungeon's true boss. At first glance, it appeared to be a lick. The overwhelming aura it emitted even made Kyosuke acknowledge inwardly, so this is the boss, that's some heavy pressure. Let's start with fire and see how it goes. I'll hit it first with fire magic. Deciding that, Kyosuke quickly hurled a fireball forward. However, the lick reacted lightning fast, swinging its staff to the side, and releasing a burst of purple energy that shot out and clashed directly with the fireball, causing both attacks to cancel each other out in midair. Seeing that, Kyosuke wasn't too surprised. It nullified the fireball, makes sense, it's the boss after all. Switching to the lick's side, it now went on the offensive. It gathered mana into its staff and unleashed a blob of dangerous-looking purple liquid. Though unsure what the attack was, Kyosuke swiftly leaped backward to evade. Sure enough, the next sight made his face stiffen. Because the floor beneath where it landed had corroded into a massive hole, this sent a chill down Kyosuke's spine. That orb melts anything it touches. That's advanced level magic. But I can turn it to my advantage. Thinking that, a sly grin spread across his face. Whether the lick felt provoked or not, a second later it fired 3 more magical orbs in rapid succession forward. However, our protagonist already had a plan ready. He thought, I'll channel wind magic into my feet to boost propulsion. Thanks to that magic, Kyosuke's speed surged noticeably. His body turned into a streak of green light, easily dodging every attack, until he closed right in front of the lick, leaving it completely dumbfounded. Not stopping there, Kyosuke taunted, "Let's see if you can handle your own attack." At that moment, in Kyosuke's palm was one of the lick's own purple energy orbs. Before the lick could react, the protagonist slammed it straight into its face, corroding its skull at visible speed. A pain shriek echoed all around, accompanied by green smoke. Finally, its body helplessly began to disintegrate. Back to Kyosuke, even he had to admit the effectiveness of that last move. Pretty effective, but since it's advanced magic, I couldn't replicate it perfectly. I need to level up my void magic. More importantly, there's still someone else here. Thinking that, Kyosuke spoke up lightly. "I know you're there, come out already." Sure enough, not far from Kyosuke stood the red-haired guy who'd been watching who knows how long. Realizing he'd been spotted, he gave a wry laugh and stepped forward. "Haha, you're sharper than I thought. I watched your fight, hope you don't mind." In response came the protagonist's ice-cold expression. "So, you here to challenge me again?" As he spoke, Kyosuke inwardly assessed the redhead. Looks like he still hasn't learned his lesson. But that aura, he's definitely hiding something. On the opposite side, the redhead slowly approached and said something cryptic. "Well then, maybe it's time to clear things up." As he spoke, he reached into his pocket and pulled something out, an action that instantly put Kyosuke on high alert. He quickly dropped into a fighting stance, brain racing to figure out the opponent's move. Damn it, he's really up to something. Is he another enhancer like Brusen, or maybe some hidden weapon? Completely contrary to what Kyosuke expected, the next second the redhead suddenly dropped to his knees, bowed his head, and pleaded, "Please take me as your disciple." The unexpected move left Kyosuke completely stunned. His mind in total chaos. What the hell is he doing, and what's with that cup? Kyosuke wondered silently. And almost immediately, as if sensing his confusion, the redhead held out the cup and explained, "This is the Japanese doja, right? I heard you're supposed to offer sake to show respect too." "I couldn't hold back, your power totally blew me away. Please teach me magic, I beg you." Seeing the guy begging like that, Kyosuke felt a shiver and took 2 steps back. "Are you messing with me?" he muttered. However, the redhead pressed on. "That fight just now was insane. I feel so stupid for picking a fight with you." From Kyosuke's perspective, he could only sigh at the absurdity. Great, now things just got way more complicated. Thinking that, suddenly Kyosuke sensed something and quickly turned to slap the red-haired guy's shoulder. The redhead thought Kyosuke was about to accept him as a disciple. But a second later, not far from them, a massive explosion erupted, sending rocks and debris flying everywhere. The cause was a gigantic skeletal dragon's claw slamming down onto the ground. Turns out the lick earlier wasn't the real boss. Seeing its appearance, the red-haired guy's face went pale while Kyosuke's brows furrowed tightly. So that lick wasn't the final boss after all. Looks like the true boss is showing up now. Beside him, the red-haired guy, after seeing the boss monster's form, quickly recalled something from memory and said, "If I remember correctly, I've seen this thing in books before. It's a skeletal dragon, the monster that wiped out an entire village a long time ago. Rumor has it Lord Ingolf barely managed to take it down, but how the hell is it here?" He said in a daze while Kyosuke, after hearing that, turned his head and replied coolly, "I get it now." His icy attitude made the red-haired young man behind him flinch, and he hurriedly tried to stop him. "Wait, don't tell me you're actually planning to fight it? That's way too reckless." No matter how strong you are, before he could finish, Kyosuke turned back and cut him off. "Just relax, and from what you said, Ingolf wasn't the one who actually killed it." With that, he began silently calculating in his head. "I see. For the 5-star saints, admitting that Misato Kawakiro was the one who really slayed the monster would be a huge hassle. So they twisted the story for future generations. Classic cowards. And now all I need to do is kill it again. Alright, let's do this," Kyosuke declared with a voice full of chilling intent, and as if responding to his provocation, the skeletal dragon didn't hesitate at all. It slammed its massive bony claw straight down, sending a shockwave rippling outward in all directions. Witnessing that, the red-haired friend immediately panicked. Before he could even react, the shockwave hit him head-on, sending his small body flying backward. Only Kyosuke remained standing firm in place. However, from that attack alone, Kyosuke's expression darkened slightly as he thought inwardly, "Damn it, it's gotten stronger than it was 20 years ago." But that's not a problem. Once he'd thought it through, Kyosuke channeled power into the soles of his feet and shot forward toward the skeletal dragon like a bolt of lightning. He leaped into the air, closing in on its skull, his hand engulfed in blazing golden flames. Kyosuke whispered softly, "Take this," then unleashed a 1,000-pound punch straight into its gigantic face, shattering the skull into countless fragments in an instant. Not far away, the red-haired young man who witnessed it was practically petrified with excitement. "Holy crap, did anyone see that? My master just blew that monster's head off." Hearing him say that, Kyosuke complained, "You're getting way too carried away. Didn't you just say fighting it was suicidal?" "I don't feel like explaining much to you, but this isn't over yet." As he spoke, Kyosuke turned his gaze forward again, which suddenly froze the joyful expression on the redhead's face. Sure enough, right after, the skeletal dragon's head regenerated as if nothing had happened. It's regenerating," the red-haired guy shouted in shock. And Kyosuke took the chance to school him. "Skeletal dragons have pretty high vitality compared to other undead. If you only half-ass it, it'll just heal itself right back up." The redhead looked puzzled, wondering how Kyosuke knew all this. But the protagonist had no intention of answering because he was busy silently plotting his next move. "It's tougher than I expected. In that case, the next thing to do is..." Speaking of the red-haired young man, seeing Kyosuke deep in thought, he also sank into his own musings. He guessed, is Kyosuke planning to try something else? But how can he even take on a monster like that? On the opposite side, the skeletal dragon was starting to lose patience. It opened its maw and let out a deafening roar, then spun around, swinging its enormous tail straight toward both of them, forcing the pair to duck in panic to avoid the attack. However, the skeletal dragon's assault didn't stop there. Immediately, it redirected its tail toward the most dangerous threat, Kyosuke himself. But the speed of this hulking monster still wasn't enough to trouble the protagonist. With a light sidestep, he easily dodged the tail whip. On his side, the red-haired young man grew worried for Kyosuke, since he seemed to be only defending. He didn't realize Kyosuke was quietly waiting for the right moment to strike. His eyes were locked on the monster as he thought, "Not yet, make the image clearer." That's the essence of void magic, born from imagination. The clearer the image, the stronger the power. As he thought, he began gathering some kind of magic into his palm. Unfortunately for the skeletal dragon, it had no idea. It kept charging forward with its mouth wide open to attack. The moment it closed in on Kyosuke, it unleashed a terrifying heat wave from its maw. Seeing Kyosuke take a direct hit like that, the red-haired young man was so terrified he nearly wet himself. He shouted desperately, "Master." But just a second later, his eyes widened in disbelief. Because when the blinding light faded, what appeared before him was Kyosuke gripping the skeletal dragon's razor-sharp jaws tightly. no matter how much it thrashed. Kyosuke's hand clenched harder as he channeled his magic, forming a spiraling torrent of water that enveloped the skeletal dragon's entire body, and finally froze it solid, rendering the gigantic bony frame completely immobile. Witnessing the battle's end, the red-haired young man was left gaping in astonishment. Unbelievable, you're way too strong. Time passed quickly. Not long after, the two of them exited the dungeon, and of course the red-haired guy was still chattering excitedly behind the protagonist. Master, wait up. Hearing that, Kyosuke let out an exasperated sigh. Why do you have to sound so cheesy? In reply came the redhead's bright grin. Hey, you know it's all out of respect. As he spoke, he noticed Kyosuke staring intently at his student ID card and asked curiously, "Something on your student card bothering you?" Kyosuke nodded and explained, "I'm just calculating how many points one dungeon clear gives." "You're Mateo, right? How do those points affect class rankings?" Kyosuke asked, and Mateo stroked his chin thoughtfully. Before explaining, "This is just a rough guide, but every 10,000 points bumps you up one class. So to reach the special class, Kyosuke, you'd need around 30,000 points. But unfortunately, dungeon points are fixed, and that skeletal dragon you just took down doesn't give any extra." After hearing that, our protagonist quickly did the math. "I got 500 points from that dungeon, which means I'd have to grind it 600 times just to qualify. Looks like reaching the special class is gonna take some serious time," the protagonist said lightly, while Mateo looked a bit surprised and exclaimed, "As expected, you're aiming for the special class." At that point, as if suddenly remembering something, Mateo cheerfully suggested, "Oh, there's a shortcut to rack up points faster." Before he even finished, Kyosuke shoved his killer glare right up close and demanded, "Tell me," Mateo yelped in fright. "Whoa, too close. It's the Celestial Festival happening in a month. It's an event where ranked students compete directly and assign challenges, and the winner gets 20,000 points." Just hearing the reward made Kyosuke's eyes sharpen like never before. "Nice. If I take first place, I'll close the gap to engulf in one shot." Thinking that, Kyosuke clenched his fist and declared, "I'm taking first place in this Celestial Festival." Just like that, time flew by. 1 month later, on the day of the Academy's Celestial Festival event, right now every student planning to compete for extra points had gathered at the venue, and the announcer's voice echoed all around. "All right, the Celestial Festival officially begins." In one corner of the plaza, Kyosuke, who was dead set on joining the special class as fast as possible, naturally couldn't miss this. Right beside him stood Mateo, who cheerfully said, "The festival's finally here, master." To that, Kyosuke just gave a cold nod in acknowledgement. Meanwhile, in his mind, he was already calculating how to claim first place quickly. "If I rack up enough points and take the top spot here, I'll get promoted straight to the special class. That way, I'll be one step closer to the bastard who betrayed me 20 years ago." Ignoring him, up on the high platform, the Academy professor's explanatory voice continued. "Your task is simple. Seize the gemstone at the top of the tallest tower. The method doesn't matter. You can fight your way up or climb straight through. The choice is yours. Show us the strength you've trained for." The stern tone made Mateo break out in a nervous sweat. In contrast, Kyosuke cracked an excited grin. In his head, he thought, "Sounds exactly like something merit-obsessed students would do. Perfectly suits my style." A moment later, as if regaining his composure, Mateo started shadowboxing to warm up while shouting enthusiastically, "Master, we're taking first place no matter what." Hearing that, Kyosuke could only sigh wearily. "When I heard the Celestial Festival only takes pairs, I had no idea what to do. Lucky for me, I already had a partner ready." Before he could dwell on it more, a familiar voice called out from ahead, "Hey, Kyosuke." The newcomer was none other than Shirato. Her appearance surprised Kyosuke a bit as he asked, "You're here too, Shirato?" Shirato smiled brightly and replied, "Yup, I came to watch you shine." Standing nearby, Mateo perked up at the sight of a pretty girl and eagerly asked, "Who's this beautiful lady, master? Your girlfriend?" In response, the protagonist delivered a swift chop to his head. Cut the jokes. Before their greetings could continue, suddenly the students around them erupted in excited shouts. "Hey, look over there." Right in front of them was a massive screen, and what shocked everyone most was the figure appearing on it. None other than the traitor Ingolf himself. His appearance filled the protagonist's face with murderous intent, as if he wanted to charge up and fight right then and there. Cutting to the stands, a black-haired professor smiled and said, "Lord Ingolf, we're honored to have you join our festival." Ingolf replied with a light shake of his head, "No need to fuss, I'm just curious about this event. Let's see if any golden eggs are hiding among these young mages." Back to Kyosuke, his face was still radiating killing intent, and seeing that look, Shirato seemed to be lost in her own thoughts. Not long after the announcement rang out, Contestants enter the tower now. Following the command, everyone hurriedly stepped into the tower. Very quickly, the interior came into view, a spiral architecture with multiple staircases leading straight upward. On their side, seeing others rush ahead, Mateo said, "All right, let's go, master." Kyosuke nodded in agreement. However, things couldn't be that easy. Before the group could even climb to the next floor, a massive explosion suddenly erupted. The cause was a gigantic wolf. Its appearance made Mateo's eyes roll back like he was about to faint as he groaned. "Oh, come on," right from the start. Kyosuke shrugged and replied, as expected, they already ranked the creatures beforehand. Hearing that, Mateo quickly turned and asked, "What do we do now, master?" Before the question even finished, he realized that at some point the protagonist's figure had vanished. Mateo frantically looked around and witnessed Kyosuke charging forward, slamming a fist straight into the giant wolf's face and knocking it out cold to the side. After taking down the staircase guardian monster, the protagonist casually turned back and reminded him, "What are you waiting for? Hurry up." Mateo nodded in a daze. "Ah yeah, coming right up." Just like that, the two of them quickly ascended to the second floor. At the same time outside, their entire battle was being broadcast for everyone to watch. And sure enough, the traitor in golf began paying attention to him. His eyes narrowed slightly as he muttered, a Japanese student." Unlike his reaction, the other students were awestruck and cheering non-stop. "Holy crap, that guy one-shotted the monster." Even Shirato broke out in a cold sweat at the power Kyosuke displayed. She whispered to herself, "I knew he wasn't ordinary." Switching to Mateo's position, he just finished off a monster when Kyosuke asked, "You okay?" In response, Mateo gave him a thumbs up and declared, "I'm still full of energy, master." Seeing his little disciple was fine, Kyosuke quickly moved on. "Good, then no more hesitation, let's keep going." Mateo followed wearily behind. And so they continued climbing the stairs upward, until Kyosuke noticed something. He shouted, "Stop!" Sure enough, right then a huge explosion appeared ahead of them. But this explosion wasn't caused by a monster, it was man-made. The culprit was a blonde student who used magic to block their path. His creepy laugh echoed, "Hee hee, you guys aren't getting past us." Mateo got pissed, clenched his fist, thrust it forward and cursed, "You cheating bastards, this is too dirty." Hearing that, the two students not only felt no shame but mocked back. "What'd he say? Too far, can't hear ya." "See ya later, losers, you can just sit and watch." With that, both rushed forward, leaving the red-haired young man fuming. "Hey, get back here," he yelled before turning to his master for advice. "Master, what do we do now?" Kyosuke replied nonchalantly, "What do you mean? Easy, just fly right over." After hearing that, Mateo was still confused. But right after, Kyosuke grabbed his shoulder tightly and leaped forward, dragging the young man along in flight. Cutting to the blonde guy's position, at this moment, a large door stood before the two of them, looking like the boss room. Seeing that, he said happily, "Nice, this is the final room." "This is easier than I thought." Beside him, the blue-haired guy excitedly agreed. "Exactly, no way we lose to some Japanese guy, right?" That's what they thought. However, a familiar voice suddenly came from behind them. "How is that possible?" The voice made the two cheaters jump in panic, turn around, and shout, "What the? How'd you get here?" Answering their question, Kyosuke replied with a face full of contempt, "I hate to break it to you guys like this, but the obstacles you set up barely slowed me down at all." Behind him, Mateo was nearly dead on his feet but still mustered the energy to back his master up. "That's right, we're nowhere near losing to clowns like you. You're done for," he said while trembling and pointing forward. While the two students sensed Kyosuke wasn't simple and proactively cast magic first, "Don't underestimate us, we'll crush you," both shouted loudly. However, in Kyosuke's eyes, their casting speed was painfully slow. Before their magic could even form, he charged in and delivered a chop to the back of both their necks, making their eyes roll back as they collapsed unconscious on the spot. Seeing that, Mateo was stunned at first but immediately burst with joy. "Wow, I didn't even see him move." Setting aside that minor skirmish, the two opened the door and stepped into the final room. Inside was a crystal orb placed on a stone pedestal. Kyosuke guessed that crystal was the gemstone needed for the task, and Mateo excitedly said, "Yes, we're the first ones here." But nothing's ever that easy. Kyosuke quickly realized it's not over yet. Right after his words, several armored knights suddenly appeared around the crystal, as if summoned from somewhere, leaving both of them wondering where they came from. This situation even startled the professors watching from outside, who were confused. What the? Armored knights? That wasn't in the program. Only the traitor in golf looked amused, because he was the one who set this up. In his mind he thought, perfect, let's see if they can overcome this challenge. Next, a sly grin spread across Ingolf's face as he said, "What I mean is, if it ends too quickly, where's the fun in that, right?" Sitting beside him, the black-haired professor could only force an awkward laugh. "Haha, you're really ruthless, my lord." In response, the burly man maintained his resolute attitude. "If they want to become great mages, something like this is nothing." As he spoke, he silently calculated in his mind, Of course, no student could possibly break through that many enemies. How could they possibly push through and claim the gemstone? Let's see what they've got, he said with interest before turning his full attention to the screen in front of him. Switching to Mateo's position after witnessing a horde of summoned constructs appear, he was freaking out completely. "Master, what do we do now?" he asked in a panic. Kyosuke, for his part, had only one answer in this situation. "If we don't defeat them, we can't get the gemstone. We have no other choice." Hearing that, the red-haired young man quickly turned and asked for more details. "Defeat them, but there are so many, and they look tough as hell." Kyosuke replied with a completely serious expression. "Even so, I still have to do it. If I want to achieve my goal, I have to make it happen." Seeing the unwavering determination on his face, even though Mateo was still worried deep down, he could only muster the courage to say, "All right. In that case, I'll support you, even if it's just a little." As he spoke, he cracked his knuckles to warm up, completely unaware that while he was running his mouth, a construct behind him had already swung its sword at blinding speed. Luckily, Mateo reacted in time and ducked, otherwise he'd have been sent straight to the afterlife. On the other side, Kyosuke was facing an attack from another construct. However, its strike wasn't even worth worrying about for our protagonist. Instantly, he activated body reinforcement magic, enveloping his entire body in a faint golden aura, then casually pinched the tip of the blade between his fingertips. Next, Kyosuke gathered energy into his right hand, clenched it into a fist, and punched straight forward, sending the entire construct flying into the air. This sight left the students watching from outside gaping in shock, with voices ringing out, He took it down barehanded. Back to Kyosuke's position. At this moment, he charged again and unleashed another fiery fist strike, sending the construct's body flying backward and knocking over a whole group of others in a tumbling heap. Just like that, with a single blow, not a single construct around the protagonist remained standing. Witnessing that, Mateo couldn't help but admire silently in his heart. Master really is on another level. Not just him, even the burly Ingolf watching from afar had to acknowledge it inwardly. That Japanese kid's got some seriously useful magic. Is he planning to take them all on solo? But it won't be that easy. As he thought, he slammed his fist hard against the table. Sure enough, just as he'd predicted, inside the tower, the constructs he'd just defeated hadn't even been down for 3 seconds before another wave was summoned in their place. This made Mateo's eyes roll back in terror. They're respawning again. What the hell is the Academy thinking, throwing these things at us? At the same time, Sayuki was thinking exactly the same thing. With numbers like this, there's no way he can fight them all. But I still want to see if he can break through. "So Asai Kyosuke, what are you going to do now?" she pondered silently. Back to the protagonist. At this very moment, a construct wielding a massive axe charged straight at him, swinging down hard. Luckily, Kyosuke was agile enough to leap back and dodge in time. He quickly scanned the area and mentally counted the enemies. About 30 of them. That's a lot. But compared to back then, this is nothing. Unaware of Kyosuke's inner thoughts, the constructs up ahead began attacking again, giving him no time to rest. Right then, 2 of them hurled their spears forward like arrows. In response, Kyosuke used earth magic to raise a dirt wall and block the assault. However, the constructs coordinated perfectly. While the front ones pressed the attack, several others circled behind him for a sneak strike. But Kyosuke had already noticed. He swung his arm, unleashing wind magic. That sliced out a blade of air, blasting the entire group behind him far away. Yet almost immediately, more constructs took their place and slowly closed in on him. This made his eyes narrow in irritation as he thought to himself, taking them down one by one is pointless. I want to wipe them all out with one powerful spell. But in a situation like this, I don't have time to build a new image from scratch. Which means, the best option is a spell I've seen before. That way, I won't waste time recreating it. Whatever, let's just go with it. Kyosuke let out a sigh as he recalled the magic that Principal Iwako had once used. Next, he activated his void magic, causing the surrounding rocks and debris to suddenly float upward, as if controlled by an invisible force. Witnessing this, the burly Ingolf was so shocked he shot up from his seat. It seemed he'd recognized exactly what magic this was. Back to Kyosuke. At this moment, he swung both arms outward, combining earth and wind magic, unleashing a barrage in all directions that no construct could withstand. The power was so immense that even the students watching outside could feel the resulting shockwaves. Not long after, the magic faded, leaving the room littered with the wreckage of constructs scattered everywhere. By now, Kyosuke had already walked up to the crystal orb. He reached out, gripped it firmly in his palm, and whispered, "Done." On the other side, Mateo, who had somehow hidden, whooped and rushed out to celebrate when he saw Kyosuke complete the task. He did it. He really did it, master. Just like that, the crowd erupted in cheers and congratulations for the protagonist's success. Elsewhere, Sayuki's eyes widened in astonishment at the protagonist's ability. Fusion magic. He can use that too. His power is terrifyingly deep. Cutting to Ingolf's position, at this moment he burst into an amused laugh. haha. So he can use the magic that took Owako 20 years to develop, and he's doing it as a mere student. Asai Kyosuke, huh, very interesting. If he makes it into the special class, I guarantee I'll personally teach him properly. As he spoke, a cunning, fox-like expression spread across his face. In the auditorium, a person standing on the podium announced, "Now it's time to reveal the students who will be promoted to the special class this semester. Asai Kyosuke, please come up to the stage." Kyosuke calmly pulled out his chair, stood up politely without saying a word. Down below in the audience, a group sitting at the edge whispered among themselves, "That guy's seriously talented. He only transferred here a month ago and he's already pulling off results like that. You saw him at the festival too, right?" One guy sitting with his arms crossed spoke up enviously. "This is insane. How can a human even do something like that?" Sitting next to him was Mateo, who lightly touched his chin with a smug little smile and replied, "He's my master after all. Doing something like that is pretty normal for him." The man on the podium spoke again. "Next up is the armband ceremony, and we have a very special guest with us today." Suddenly, something shifted in the depths of Kyosuke's eyes. He frowned in suspicion and thought to himself, "A guest, huh?" "Don't tell me," he continued in a hoarse voice. "Please give a warm welcome." A man in formal attire slowly parted the curtain and stepped out. He smiled as he revealed the figure. "Lord Ingolf, this stage is yours." Hearing such an imposing name, the crowd below jolted and erupted in murmurs. "What, for real?" Dietz casually picked up the armband with a calm expression. On this side, Kyosuke shot a cold, emotionless glance as he judged the man. "Ingolf, he's personally come to the academy. What the hell is he plotting?" Dietz had already approached him, observing his expression before smirking and speaking. "You really entertained me quite a bit back at the Celestial Festival." Kyosuke's expression shifted. He politely lowered his gaze and hesitated before replying, "It's an honor." He slowly handed the armband over, and Kyosuke gently took it. Unexpectedly, Dietz leaned right up to Kyosuke's ear and coldly called out his name, "Asai Kyosuke, come to my estate tonight." Down in the audience, Mateo and the others shared the same confusion and asked, "What's going on? What did he just say to him?" On stage, Dietz waved his hand in greeting to them while cheers erupted nonstop from below. The noise still hadn't died down when he swept his coat and left the room. Kyosuke gripped the armband tightly, coldly staring at the man's retreating figure in deep thought. "Ingolf, just what the hell are you scheming?" The sky had turned pitch black, and there stood a grand, luxurious castle. At that moment, in the grand hall, the butler placed a hand over his chest and respectfully answered, "Asai Kyosuke, correct? We've been waiting for you." Kyosuke slipped his hands into his pockets, his face completely calm as he followed the butler while pondering, "What does Ingolf want to talk about? Wait a second, does he already know I'm Misato Kawakiro? Damn it, I wanted more time to prepare. If he already knows, then I don't have any other choice." The butler stopped at a room. Kyosuke paused slightly to observe. As the door slowly opened, Kyosuke steadied himself and thought, "Right here, right now, this could turn into a fight." He looked into the room and saw the lavish spread of food on the table with Dietz already seated. He gave a faint smile, knife and fork in hand, slicing into the beef while looking at him and saying, "You've arrived, take a seat." "We'll talk after we eat." Kyosuke approached the table politely and replied, "Please excuse me." His eyes filled with cold indifference. He thought suspiciously to himself, "So, what's this really about?" The meal was cleared away. Dietz looked straight at Kyosuke's calm face and said nonchalantly, "Once again, I have to say, your performance at the Celestial Festival was truly impressive, especially that fight at the highest level. You really caught my attention. Now then, there's something I want to say." He lowered his face, a glint of killing intent in his eyes as he spoke coldly. "Just what exactly are you hiding?" That look sent a shiver through Kyosuke. He thought uneasily to himself, shit, does he know? Under the table, his hands clenched together as he weighed his options. No, that can't be it. If he really knew I was Kawakiro, he would have said it outright. He must be probing something else. At that moment, Dietz leisurely touched his coffee cup and mentioned, "The fusion spell you used at the highest level, that was Iwako's lifelong work. He spent 20 years creating it, so how exactly are you able to use it?" Hearing that, Kyosuke unconsciously smiled, regaining his composure as he guessed, "Just as I thought. He's only curious about my magic." He looked straight at him and explained, "Back in Japan, Master Iwako gave me special training." Dietz lifted the steaming coffee cup in a hoarse voice and replied, "So that's when you learned fusion magic?" Kyosuke politely responded, "Yes." Kyosuke put on a cheerful fake smile, proudly adding, "He really was an amazing teacher. I owe him so much." Hearing that, Dietz gave a faint scoff. He pondered for a moment, then said, "Looks like that's exactly something he would do. The kid uses it very proficiently. However, don't abuse that power, or you'll end up like Misato Kawakiro, the one who nearly tore this world in half." Hearing Dietz mention his former name, Kyosuke's face showed not even a hint of panic. He turned his back to Kyosuke and brought up the old topic, "Surely you've heard about it. the SSS-class catastrophe dungeon from 20 years ago. He drowned in his own power, and in the end he came up with a twisted plan. Dietz' face filled with anger and envy as he spoke irritably, luring the monsters out of the dungeon. His plot to wipe out the rest of us, his former allies. Kyosuke's expression changed. He froze at Dietz' words and thought in disbelief. What? Over here, jealousy etched deep into the man's eyes as he scowled and continued. Also, he could become the only hero left. With that mindset, Kaiwakairo carried out his plan that day. Fortunately, we stopped him before everything went to hell. Now Kyosuke's fingers clenched into fists, trembling under the table as he struggled internally. Bullshit. What the hell is this? Those bastards, I can't let this slide. Suddenly, Dietz turned his face away and spoke in a low voice as a reminder. That's why I'm warning you, don't let power consume you. Kyosuke cut in seriously and replied, "It's fine, sir. Power exists to fight evil," his face filled with confidence and determination as he declared. "And I'll do whatever it takes to become stronger than anyone else." In the depths of Dietz' pupils appeared the image of the boy, and deeper still the shadow of Kaiwakairo. A satisfied smile spread across his face as he rasped out, just like back at the festival, "You're incredibly interesting." "Very well, I'll reward that spirit of yours." Right then Dietz moved closer to Kyosuke, who looked up at him suspiciously and asked, "A reward?" He lowered his gaze and replied, "Yes. For the next training period, I'll personally be your sparring partner." His probing eyes looked down at him as he spoke with a cold smile, "Of course, if you agree." Kyosuke stood up, pulled his chair back politely and said, "I understand. It would be my honor to receive guidance from you." The two stared directly into each other's eyes. Night fell, stars appeared in the sky, familiar people walked the streets. Kyosuke's face was icy cold as he walked and thought deeply. "Engulf, that's the best reward I could possibly ask for. Just you wait. I'll crush you with everything I've got and settle the grudge I've carried for the past 20 years. The day of the regular training session for the special class. In the school, along the training classroom corridor, a group of soldiers casually chatted with each other. "Hey, today's the regular training day, right, for the special class." One guy with a book slung over his shoulder spoke nonchalantly to the one next to him. "So jealous, they get to meet Lord Ingolf in person. Wish he was training me too." Before he could even finish, the guy felt a chill run down his spine from behind. He shivered and glanced back. A murderous gaze was locked on him. It was Kyosuke, sitting on the bench glaring at the one who just spoke. The two of them paled instantly. The other one stammered in panic. "Hey, let's go." The first guy hurriedly mumbled in agreement. The two scrambled away in a hurry, leaving Kyosuke alone with a cold face staring straight ahead, muttering the name, Ingolf. "Finally, I can settle this debt once and for all. He promised to spar with me in today's training session. He's probably just planning to teach some curious kid a lesson, but for me, it's different. I'm going to completely crush him and make him regret betraying me 20 years ago." Right at that moment, on the school's training field, a hoarse voice rang out, "All right, the regular training session begins now. Please welcome Lord Ingolf." As soon as he finished speaking, someone slowly appeared before their eyes. Dietz walked forward while observing the soldiers' reactions and responded. Instantly, Kyosuke's eyes narrowed. He calmly pondered in his mind, "Here he comes." He took a few steps forward and spoke as a reminder, "I trust you all, the most elite students of the academy. Every day you continue honing your skills as usual, but sometimes observation itself is training. So today, I've decided to heat things up with a sparring match. No need to worry like that, I've already chosen my opponent." Dietz looked straight at Kyosuke's face, gave a faint smile, and called out to him, "Isai Kyosuke, please step forward." In a flash, Mateo was already up in the stands, eyes wide as he blurted out, "Holy crap. Worth skipping class for this. Master is actually fighting Lord Ingolf." Suddenly, he noticed someone down below and thought suspiciously, that girl was at the Celestial Festival too. Mateo rubbed his flushed nose and guessed, "I get it now. Things are going well between Master and her, huh?" Down below, Sayuki felt a chill down her spine. She crossed her arms silently and imagined, "I sense some weird stare somewhere, but whatever, forget it. A 5-star saint praised as a hero of the world. Let's see what he can do." When facing an opponent like this on the arena, Dietz's long coat fluttered slightly as he spoke in a low voice. "Now then, shall we begin?" Kyosuke's gaze remained calm as he assessed. He steadied himself and judged, "Ingolf is one of the toughest among the 5-star saints. He's on a completely different level from Iwako or Lei. But today, the one who will kneel will be you." Seeing him fully prepared like that, Dietz clenched his fingers and unleashed his power as he declared, "I'll make the first move." His power surged down to his hand, and he swiftly swung it forward. The punch aimed straight at the target he'd locked onto. A terrifying whoosh echoed out. That fist was about to reach Kyosuke, who hurriedly raised his hand to dodge. The soldiers nearby also quickly backed away, murmuring in shock, "What sealing magic?" Even Sayuki hastily raised her hand and silently guessed, "No, just the shockwave from that punch alone tore through the air." Right then, Kyosuke dropped low to the ground, unleashing his full body strength as he sneered contemptuously and thought, He's using body reinforcement technique, huh? I'll counter with earth magic. The rocks on the field naturally rose up and slammed straight into Dietz' magic. His expression remained calm, power still surging from his hand. He looked at Kyosuke and praised, "You blocked it." Kyosuke stood up lightly, brushed the sand off his clothes, gave a faint smile and asked, "That was body reinforcement technique, right? No wonder that hit felt so heavy." Kyosuke glanced down at the shattered stone and pondered deeply. "I barely managed to block it with reinforced rock. The power behind that strike is insane." Suddenly, Dietz let out a low chuckle, smirking as he replied, "You're mistaken. I haven't even used body reinforcement technique yet," he said while flicking his coat aside. Kyosuke secretly furrowed his brow, his eyes staring straight at him. In Dietz' hand, a golden, glowing orb of power formed as he spoke coldly. "Now this is when I use it." With those words, he hurled the orb straight at his opponent. Kyosuke's expression changed. He startled and cried out, then quickly dodged the incoming fireball heading his way. Dietz kept firing fireball after fireball relentlessly at him. The barrage of magical attacks left him struggling as he hurriedly evaded. Up in the stands, Mateo frowned worriedly for him and guessed, "No way, Master's getting pushed back. What kind of attack is that?" Over here, Dietz' face grew exhilarated as he prepared his stance and rasped, trying to escape with wind magic. "Huh, you've got sharp instincts, but this fight isn't over yet." With that, he unleashed his strongest magical force and threw it straight at Kyosuke. Just before the orb reached him, he desperately dodged out of the way. He clenched his fingers tightly, gritted his teeth, and glared at him while thinking, with this much effort to break through. Now's not the time to hold back. He quickly stood up. Dietz' face darkened. He thought suspiciously. He stopped moving. Is he planning to counterattack? Sayuki's expression turned grave as she silently assessed. That's the thing he used at the Celestial Festival. Fusion magic. Kyosuke's eyes lit up, filled with murderous intent. He used magic to make the scattered rocks fly up and hurl them straight at the target. Dietz quickly blocked the attack, his face twisted ferociously, eyes bulging white as he gritted his teeth in resistance. Suddenly, a deafening explosion rang out right before Kyosuke's eyes. Amid the thick black smoke about to disperse, Dietz knelt on one knee stunned in place. Kyosuke furrowed his brow and scowled as he thought, the shockwave reduced the impact, that engulf guy. He's gotten even stronger after 20 years. Dietz lowered his face and let out a mocking laugh. Murderous intent filled the depths of his eyes as he growled, "Good, very good. I shouldn't hold back anymore either." Behind Dietz, a blinding power erupted. Kyosuke raised his hand to shield his eyes. Beneath his palm, he calmly let out a sound. "Dawn is coming." He stared straight ahead, suspiciously guessing. "What is that magic?" Dietz lowered his gaze to Kyosuke, his face full of provocation as he spoke coldly. "Come on then, let's continue this battle." A terrifying surge of magical power erupted from Dietz. Kyosuke took a deep breath, a spell even I don't recognize. He saw the man beckon with a full provocative gesture. So he's mastered that move in the past 20 years, huh? Keeping a cool head, he assumed his stance. No big deal, let's see how he fights with it. Kyosuke's eyes flashed brightly. His hand reached forward, the ground began to crack open, starting with this move. Dietz frowned and dodged earth magic. His eyes narrowed like blades. This is a wide area attack. He won't be able to avoid it, and the ground where he had just landed split apart, throwing him off balance. Seizing the opening right in front of him, he spread his arms to activate the next technique. Once his footing is broken, I'll unleash a fusion spell to take him down. A powerful strike shot forward as he declared, "Fusion magic." Mateo, watching from the sidelines, cheered even more enthusiastically. Yes, Master's using fusion magic now. Sayuki beside him was also drawn into the fight. He's losing balance midair. This is the perfect opportunity. Just as she predicted, the blow was about to land. But no one noticed that the corner of Dietz' mouth had quietly curved upward. He tensed his body and let out a loud shout. Kyosuke was thrown off rhythm by the action. What is he doing? Those rocks were blocked barehanded by him. Little by little, Dietz began to reverse control over the swirling earth and stone aimed at him. The technique was literally torn in half by him. The rocks and debris were forcibly pushed aside in both directions. Dietz stood there completely unscathed. Kyosuke couldn't believe his eyes. He just sliced right through my fusion magic. Sayuki couldn't help but break into a cold sweat at that terrifying power. Unbelievable. He neutralized a spell at that level. He spoke to him in a low voice. That attack was truly excellent. Dietz' entire body remained intact and enveloped in magic, but it can't penetrate my mana armor. Only then did Kyosuke realize mana armor. I get it now. That golden light is his armor. His hand clenched a little tighter, but to withstand fusion magic without a single scratch, that durability is absolutely insane. He smirked. This armor doesn't just protect me. Dietz took one step forward. It turns my body into a weapon, combining attack and defense into one. That's the essence of my mana armor. In a flash, he charged forward with a smug smile. Here I come. His whole body leaped into the air, fist clenched tight. Kyosuke hurriedly jumped back a step. With just one blow, he shattered the spot where Kyosuke had been standing moments ago. Mateo jolted and yelled, "What the?" Flying rocks kept slamming into Kyosuke nonstop. It took a while for the dust to finally settle. He wiped the blood from his cheek with his hand. Damn, engulf. He's so much stronger than 20 years ago. Diet still stood tall as ever, and that mana armor of his is extremely troublesome. His eyes narrowed, his mind no longer as calm as before. I have a way to counter it, but that spell isn't perfected yet. I don't know if I can even pull it off. Twisting his wrist casually, he spoke, "You're not coming at me, guess I'll have to end it then." Next, Diet shot forward like lightning. "I'll finish this fight." Kyosuke frowned in frustration. Damn it, I have no other choice anymore. One hand gripped the other tightly, gritting his teeth as he poured power into that palm. Seeing this, Diet chuckled inwardly. Is he trying to create something? You think that can stop me? Suddenly, the space around him went pitch dark. Diet looked bewildered, not understanding a thing. Seeing him straining to continue the technique, he narrowed his eyes sinisterly. Diet's right hand swung and knocked Kyosuke flying. He couldn't dodge in time and took the full hit. Gritting his teeth through the pain, he clicked his tongue in regret. As expected, I'm still not proficient with it. After a moment, he managed to stand steady and face him again. At this rate, suddenly Diet relaxed his fist. To Kyosuke's astonishment, he spoke up, "That's enough." Diet said indifferently, "This is more than sufficient for a sparring session. We'll end today's training here." But this only made Kyosuke's face darken further, his hand clenching so hard it trembled. He casually announced to the students, "The regular training session is over. You're dismissed." The students hurried after him, praising Lord Ingolf. That performance was truly amazing. It really inspires the students. Someone laughed and said that Asai guy put up a pretty good fight too, but in the end Lord Ingolf had him cornered the whole time. Another nodded. A 5-star saint really is on another level. Only Mateo came over to comfort Kyosuke. "Master, you did really well, but when facing Ingolf, no one blames you." He said nothing but thought to himself, "I underestimated him. Right now, I can't beat Ingolf." His hand clenched with determination. "I need to push void magic further and become even stronger." Around them, the usual lively chatter and laughter of the students continued. Seiyuki silently watched Kyosuke's retreating back. No one here realizes what kind of potential Asai Kyosuke is hiding. Diet strode away from the crowd. He recalled the feeling from the fight just now. That moment, what was it? Bloodlust? No, something else. A delighted smile appeared on Diet's face, but it's been a long time since I had such an intense battle. Then he turned away with a solid back. Doesn't matter. Asai Kyosuke. Diet's chuckled to himself once more. He's not the type to end here. Holding a glass of top-shelf red wine in his hand, Diet's calmly leaned back into the armchair. He gently swirled the wine in the glass and mused thoughtfully. It's been a very long time since a battle truly got me this excited. His hand carefully applied just enough force to keep the wine from spilling, but that boy Asai Kyosuke, I never expected him to be that strong. He recalled the fleeting moment of shock during the fight, especially in that instant. I actually felt fear. Diet's deep eyes reflected on the surface of the wine glass as he thought, come to think of it, memories from long ago suddenly flooded back. I felt that sensation once before. A scream from the past echoed in his mind. That person stood before a younger Dietz and said lightly, "All right, looks like I win this time, huh?" He knelt on the ground and looked up to ask Kaiwakairo, "What was that just now? You've always kept that magic hidden from me, haven't you?" He laughed with his hands on his hips. "You almost took me down back there, and besides, I had to save my trump card until the very end, right?" The young Dietz sighed inwardly. "You haven't changed at all, always completely outside my expectations." As he stood back up, he let out a sigh. "That's exactly why you're my eternal rival." Once he straightened himself, Dietz suggested again, "How about another round, Kaiwakairo?" Dietz now clicked his tongue thoughtfully. "Damn it, the wine's making me way too nostalgic." Suddenly his face darkened completely, but the past has been tainted. There's no washing it clean anymore. Another unavoidable sigh escaped, but still, I remember that thrill. He brought the glass to his lips and took a sip, when fighting someone on the same level. Dietz' eyes lit up as if anticipating something. "So come on then, Asai Kyosuke. Perhaps the uncertain future of that boy, show me what you've got." Kyosuke lifted his head to gaze at the deep cavern before him. 20 years later and it still looks the same. Looks like I can make good use of this place. Both fists clenched tightly. Right now I'm not strong enough to take on Ingolf. I need to start training from scratch again. The entrance exuded an extreme ominous aura. Fortunately, this dungeon is the perfect spot for that. Step by step he advanced inside. The pressure here made every step feel unbearably heavy. It has a gravity field, far stronger than outside. Kyosuke realized, no wonder Ingolf can throw such powerful strikes. If I take one of those head on, I'm done for. He lightly raised and lowered his hand with determination. So first things first, I need to make this body tougher. Just thinking about it almost made him want to laugh. Once I can face him head on, the magic I've been developing will deliver the finishing blow. Ahead lay a dragon's den and tiger's lair filled with thousands of monsters, yet he had only one target, just you wait, engulf. Time passed quickly, and now it was 3 days later. Sayuki watched the stream of people passing by thoughtfully. That's strange. Since that day aside, Kyosuke hasn't returned to the dorm at all. The black-haired girl wondered to herself, where could he have gone? Suddenly she spotted a figure trudging wearily after class. Sayuki recognized him. That's Mateo, looking wilted like a dead flower, mumbling, "No master around, this is so boring." Her call snapped Mateo back a bit. Hey. Mateo's eyes widened. Master's fangirl is here. Hearing that, Sayuki inwardly cursed, "Fangirl my ass." Suddenly she realized the benefit of that assumption. Oh right, if everyone thinks that it actually makes things easier for me, do you know where Kyosuke is? Mateo scratched his head awkwardly. I don't know the exact spot, but I heard he went to the Eastern Forest for training or something like that. Sayuki narrowed her eyes and thought, the Eastern Forest, could it be? A moment later, the black-haired girl quickly turned and ran off. Got it, thanks, leaving Mateo behind waving confusedly. No problem. The red-haired guy still innocently thought, wow, she's really enthusiastic. Not long after, Sayuki had tracked her way to the forest where the dungeon was hidden. A dungeon concealed deep in the woods. Yes, that's the perfect place for training. She bit her lip and questioned herself, but how did he even know about it? He shouldn't know anything about this place. A suspicion rose in Sayuki's mind. Could it be? Little by little, it was as if she was pulling back a curtain hiding a shocking secret. It's possible. Sayuki's eyes flashed, cold sweat rolling down her cheek. Asai Kyosuke is Misato Kawakiro. The black-haired girl recalled about a month ago. Her superior had summoned Sayuki at the time. I've been given a classified order. She remembered every page of the documents handed to her. Investigate anyone who might be Misato Kawakiro in disguise. And the image of him appeared clearly. Asai Kyosuke was on that list. Sayuki's hand clenched over her chest. If he really is Misato Kawakiro, then I. Her footsteps grew heavier with each passing moment. The pressure here made Sayuki pant for breath. I've been here once before for another mission, and it's still as brutal as I remember. The pitch-black tunnel ahead seemed endlessly long. Asai Kyosuke has been training in here. Fortunately, she had found the person she was looking for. Kyosuke stood motionless amid a pile of neatly sliced monster corpses. There he is. But something around him felt completely off, to the point that Sayuki hurriedly hid herself without daring to show. But his aura has changed entirely. Looking around the cavern in horror and all these monsters, did he take them all down alone? Sayuki's eyes narrowed. This is. The overwhelming presence radiating from Kyosuke's entire body made her swallow hard. Beyond anything I could have imagined. As she left the dungeon, Sayuki hurriedly contacted someone. Yes, that's right. The black-haired girl spoke cautiously. At this rate, he might actually surpass Lord Ingol. The other end let out an intrigued sound. And what about the possibility that he's Kawakiro? Sayuki was silent for a moment before answering. Very high, ma'am. The person on the other side chuckled softly. She spoke with delight, just as I thought. And at her feet, dozens of people knelt. Things are about to get very interesting. Virgo spread her arms wide and declared loudly, everything. Her brilliant blue eyes sparkled with excitement, is unfolding exactly according to the will of the gods. Deep in the dim cavern, faint purple crystals emitted a soft glow that illuminated the surroundings. Kyosuke stood beside the corpse of a dragon and muttered, it's done. He rubbed his wrist with a delighted tone as he concluded, this time, it will reach Ingol. In a modern room, a man was about to leave when the phone on the table suddenly rang. He turned back to look at the device, inwardly puzzled and thinking, who could that be? This man was none other than the 5-star saint Iwako Hideki. Hideki didn't hesitate and immediately picked up the call. Hello. On the other end, a middle-aged man spoke calmly. It's me. The moment he heard that voice, Hideki recognized it instantly, engulfed. He asked cautiously, what's the matter, only to hear Dietz coldly state his request. There's something I want to ask you. He continued, about a student named Asai Kyosuke. Upon hearing that, Hideki's eyes widened in shock. After a while he had spilled all the information. Dietz listened and replied calmly, I see, that's all I wanted to know. Hideki replied with a trembling voice, all right. Ending the call, he placed the receiver back down. Hideki was terrified as he thought anxiously, Ingolf asked me about Asai Kyosuke's past, but I can't tell him that he's actually Kawakiro. He clutched his head in dread and inwardly screamed, if I say it I'll die for sure. On Dietz's side, he stared at the phone deep in thought. His mood grew heavy as he pondered, Iwako is hiding something, but I can't find any solid proof. Dietz turned to leave while considering, in that case next would be. Suddenly he noticed something on the floor. It was an envelope. Dietz looked at it suspiciously and thought, Did someone slip this under the door? He picked up the envelope and opened it, curiosity rising as he wondered who sent this. The moment he saw the contents, Dietz' eyes widened in horror. This is. He gripped the letter tightly as hatred surged within him. I understand now. Dietz ground his teeth in fury. I knew it. Old memories flooded his mind. On a high cliff, two people sat together. The short-haired one apologized sadly. Sorry about today, Kaiwakairo. The one beside him replied casually, it's fine. Kaiwakairo leaned over to look at Dietz and said, your homeland was destroyed. Of course I had to help. He turned to him with some hesitation and advised, but are you sure about this? Conquering the dungeon the nation demands would surely benefit you more. He tilted his head back to the sky with a mocking, sarcastic tone. They're just high-end mighty folks showing off their power. Kaiwakairo said frankly, I'd rather help those who truly need it. Dietz laughed at that and commented, good grief, you're kind to the core. He looked at the scene ahead again and said cheerfully, besides. Kaiwakairo sincerely praised, this place really is beautiful. Hearing that, Dietz proudly explained, it's called Keld Hill, the best spot here to watch the sunset. Sensing his joy, Kaiwakairo followed along and observed, I see, you really treasure this place. Suddenly Dietz called his name, Kaiwakairo. Kaiwakairo glanced at him, curiously waiting for what came next. His expression turned serious as he declared, I want to become stronger. Dietz' voice was resolute as he confessed, not just for my homeland, but so many places are threatened by dungeons. Hearing that, Kaiwakairo laughed happily and said, why not, I'll work with you. He stood up energetically and declared passionately, alright, I've decided to train harder while in this country. Dietz couldn't hold back a smile as he followed. Let's do it, Kaiwakairo replied excitedly. It's settled then. Back in the present, he stood by the window lost in thought. After that, we often met up on that hill to push our limits together whenever we had free time. Recalling a certain moment, Dietz suddenly furrowed his brow tightly, his eyes turning icy cold, but he couldn't suppress the resentment as he thought, but then a sea of flames completely engulfed his mind. In the past, a young Dietz was running desperately through a blazing inferno. Reaching a spot, he suddenly halted, his eyes filled with horror and disbelief. What shocked him was Kaiwakairo's figure, standing ahead laughing loudly. Remembering this, Dietz clenched his fist in rage and resolved inwardly, I won't drag Nathaniel, Claudia, or the other 5-star saints into this. He declared with hatred, I'll end Kaiwakairo with my own hands. At the academy, Kyosuke was walking down the corridor. He pondered as he walked, the next regular training session is in a week. That's when I'll face in golf again. Kyosuke coldly vowed, this time I will definitely. Suddenly someone called out, breaking his train of thought, Master. From behind, Mateo rushed over excitedly shouting, Master, you're back. Seeing this, Kyosuke asked curiously, why are you running like that? Mateo answered honestly, the principal told me to give you this letter. He repeated suspiciously, a letter. His friend confirmed and handed it over. Here it is. Kyosuke calmly opened the letter to read. After finishing, his eyes widened slightly in shock. Mateo leaned in curiously, wanting to see. What does it say? But Kyosuke quickly folded it and turned to leave. Nothing. His friend stood there confused, whispering, Master. Behind him, Seiyuki was hiding behind a pillar, seriously watching everything. A while later, on a lush green hill, a figure stood waiting. Dietz noticed the movement and greeted, you've arrived. Kyosuke looked at the back ahead, calmly asking, Keld Hill, the reason you called me here is. He spoke plainly, pointing it out. Exactly, I know who you are now. Dietz turned to stare at him, coldly exposing, aside Kyosuke, no, Misato Kaiwakairo. Kyosuke didn't confirm anything but asked calmly in return, you called me here for that reason. He turned fully and stated clearly, isn't it obvious? Dietz unleashed power surging around his body and said, I called you here. He declared in ultimate fury, to erase your existence from this world. Hearing that, Kyosuke replied just as coldly, is that so? We feel the same way then. He channeled power enveloping his body and declared, I'll send you off myself. Kyosuke stood tall and declared firmly, I have one question for you. He took on a dangerous tone and warned, you claim you're absolutely sure I'm Misato Kaiwakairo. How can you be so certain? Dietz tensed up and brushed it off. You don't need to know, but I'll tell you this much. He frowned as he announced, this has nothing to do with the 5-star saints. This is purely my personal matter. Kyosuke pressed on asking, so that's why you chose this place? Dietz replied straightforwardly, exactly. Suddenly he grew imposing and cautioned, don't make the mistake of underestimating me. Dietz ground his teeth in rage, I will never forgive you. Kyosuke showed no fear and sneered, what a coincidence, I feel exactly the same way. Right after that, the boundary between the two of them was clearly drawn, both radiating murderous intent. Dietz surged with power, raising his superpowered fist high. As you saw in our sparring match, my mana armor blocks every attack. Immediately, his body was clad in golden armor. Whether physical or magical, it doesn't matter, meaning. Dietz charged forward furiously and roared, Kaiwa, you have no chance of beating me. As soon as the words left his mouth, he unleashed a powerful punch straight at Kaiosuk. Diets kept up the relentless barrage, not giving his opponent any room to counter. Kaiosuk stood in a defensive stance, ready to receive Diets' strike. He stared intently at Kaiosuk and taunted, "So what are you going to do now?" Diets recalled the moment Kaiosuk lay in pain on the ground from their previous spar. "Last time you could only dodge if you're still the same this time." While thinking, he hurriedly prepared the finishing blow. "I'll hit you with another shockwave." Suddenly, a nimble foot leaped high into the air. Kaiosuk emitted a green glow, his face serious as he charged straight forward. Seeing Kaiosuk move so swiftly, Diets froze in surprise. What? He watched Kaiosuk rushing right at him. Is he taking it head-on? Right after that, Kaiosuk threw a punch to intercept Diets' attack. Instantly, his strike created multiple green circles that enveloped Diets' move. At that moment, Kaiosuk was right above him, his body blazing with fire. He stared down at Diets with eyes full of hatred, positioning himself for the next strike. And then their hands finally clashed hard against each other. Immediately, a swirling vortex erupted between them, blasting both backward. Kaiosuk strained to plant his feet firmly on the ground to avoid being flung too far. In that instant, he realized, I get it now, his armor is as hard as rock. Kaiosuk observed each of Diets' strikes thoughtfully. He can push through shockwaves, and not only that, his attacks are heavier than before. Diet stared at Kaiosuk and thought, that physique, I see now you've trained intensely. Deep in those scheming eyes lay calculations, but surely that's not all right. He watched Kaiosuk's body gradually changing and realized, don't tell me you're copying my mana armor. Realizing the truth, Diets gritted his teeth in anger and cursed inwardly. How pathetic. Diets clenched his fist and shouted, Kaiwa, I get it now, the trick behind your magic. He pointed straight at Kaiosuk's face and declared, your void magic can copy other people's magic, right? Then Diets sneered mockingly, but imitation is just imitation to me, that cheap trick means nothing. Kaiosuk stood there with an irritated expression, listening as he said, your time magic has become quite the desirable thing. Suddenly, Diets placed a hand on his chest and bowed his head. Even I have to look up to it. Immediately, he shot a sharp glare at him, but you're not the same as before, you've weakened a lot. Right after that, Diets grew towering and imposing, and you can't break through my mana armor. His body radiated blinding light as Diets ground his teeth and emphasized, never. But on this side, Kaiosuk calmly countered, copy close but not quite. He clenched his fist tightly, void magic goes much deeper than that. Kaiosuk turned slightly and raised his hand, creating a green light. It took me a while to imagine it, but finally I can show it to you. Hearing those words, Diets suddenly recalled, that must be the technique he tried to use in our spar, the ultimate move of his. But that didn't make him worry anyway, it doesn't matter. Diets charged forward wildly, no magic can pierce my armor. He decisively raised his fist, aiming at Kaiosuk, intent on finishing him. Kaiosuk's eyes turned emotionless and cold as he said, activate void magic. Diets rushed ahead, roaring, take this. But Kaiosuk remained standing there, eerily calm. Instantly, streaks of blood sprayed wildly in front of Diets' eyes. He lost balance, staggering backward repeatedly. Diets clutched his wounded arm, grimacing, he actually injured my arm. He looked down at the bleeding limb, refusing to accept it. Impossible, he broke through my armor, no way that happened. Diet still stubbornly muttered, no one can. Kaiosuk said calmly, I told you already, void magic isn't just copying. Diets looked quite shocked and blurted, that's. He stared at the sword in Kaiosuk's hand in disbelief, recognizing it, the sword of blazing flames. Diets completely lost composure, shouting, what the hell is this? Kaiosuk continued, created through imagination, that's the essence of void magic. He pointed the sword straight at Diets, now then you can. Kaiosuk glared sharply and affirmed, feel its power for yourself. Diets let out a cold huff, inwardly fearful and doubtful, thinking, how could that be? How can that sword cut through my mana armor? His mind dazedly replaying the earlier clash. Then Kaiosuk's words cut through, you look confused. Kaiosuk rested his flaming sword on his shoulder, coldly mocking him. You said your mana armor could block any attack, but reality says otherwise. Diet stubbornly insisted, what are you talking about? My mana armor is invincible. My magic has no blind spots. Before he could finish, Kaiosuk interrupted, it does. Because your magic attribute turns mana into metal, the metal attribute. Hearing that hit the nail on the head, Diets froze stiff. He shouted back, asking, how do you know? Kaiosuk replied nonchalantly, don't be ridiculous, I've already used it. Only then did Diets recall that strike from earlier and realize in shock, so that's what he did back then. Kaiosuk continued calmly, if I can recreate it, that means I fully understand it. With that, he seriously explained to Diets, no matter how hard metal is, it's not invincible, so I created something. A sword with extreme heat capable of melting metal. He finished, pointing his blazing sword at Diets. Seeing the flames enveloping the sword up close, Diets grew even more terrified, thinking, My mana armor has endured countless spells without a scratch, even fire attacks were nothing yet. How much heat did he pour into that sword? Kyosuke still defiantly pointed the blade at Dietz in challenge. But he coldly stated the blunt truth, slapping him in the face. Accept it, Ingolf, you can't block my attacks anymore. Dietz ground his teeth in fury, cursing, don't underestimate me. He stubbornly declared, one little trick doesn't mean you'll win. Then his entire body erupted in raging flames, sending the surrounding ground flying in all directions. Dietz charged straight at Kyosuke. He raised his fist fiercely, saying, I'll smash that arrogant face of yours. As his fist came down, Kyosuke blocked it with his sword. A vicious glint flashed in Kyosuke's eyes. Then he swung the blade in a fierce arc, sending Dietz flying far away. Dietz took the hit, his leg wound bleeding profusely red. He collapsed in pain, then slowly rose again. Dietz looked toward him somewhat stunned, thinking inwardly, impossible. Kyosuke stood firm and tall, staring straight at him mockingly. When you get emotional, your movements become stupid and predictable. You still have the same old habits. Your aura now is completely different from back when you were naive. Seeing this, Dietz's emotions suddenly became complicated. He collected himself, then shouted, shut up. Shut your mouth right now. With that, Dietz unleashed a punch, controlling earth and stone rushing toward Kyosuke. Kyosuke clicked his tongue in disdain, asking, you still want to keep fighting? As the wave of rock flew rapidly at him, he casually sidestepped. At that moment, Dietz had closed in preparing a punch while he wasn't paying attention. But he roared furiously, don't lecture me about the past anymore. Kyosuke was slightly surprised but still dodged in time. Dietz threw another powerful punch at him, shouting bitterly, you burn my homeland to ashes. Hearing that, Kyosuke froze in confusion. He calmly tried to ask back, wait, Ingolf, what are you? But Dietz in his rage wouldn't listen. He roared, overpowering Kyosuke's voice. Seeing he couldn't talk reasonably, Kyosuke accepted it and said, all right then. He assumed a combat stance and unleashed his mana. A dense stream of mana shot out from him. It surged straight toward Dietz. Dust and smoke filled the air. Dietz grunted in irritation, covering his face and complaining, smoke, huh? He grew even angrier, shouting, curses, damn it you. Suddenly, Kyosuke's blazing sword pointed right at his throat, making him freeze in fear and fall silent. The surrounding space grew tense. Both held their positions, neither making the first move. Kyosuke glared straight at him with a grim face. Dietz's entire body stiffened, not daring to move a muscle. Suddenly, he squeezed his eyes shut, unwillingly asking why. He began to pour out his heart. I thought you were my rival in the best way, someone I could fight with all my strength. At this point, he couldn't hold back choked sobs, tears welling up as he turned to question him. So why wouldn't you let me believe in that? After a few seconds, Kyosuke finally spoke, intending to say engulf you. But right then, an arrow flew from nowhere, piercing straight into the back of Dietz's neck. Dietz's eyes widened in shock, and he collapsed just like that. Kyosuke was equally stunned, unconsciously shouting, what? At that moment, he spun around toward where the arrow came from. The sound of high heels clacking approached from the edge of the high cliff. Burjo laughed mockingly and spoke, I won't let you end things so easily. Kyosuke furrowed his brow in fury, shouting, you. Seeing her face clearly, he froze in shock, yelling, Claudia. Burjo sneered in greeting, long time no see, Kairo. Hearing that, Kyosuke inwardly panicked, wondering, does she already know my identity? Burjo activated her magic with a sinister smile, saying, I'd love to have a proper chat to my heart's content, but that'll have to wait. Anyway, the real fun is just beginning right now. Dietz's entire body was enveloped in a surge of demonic energy. Dietz unconsciously cried out in agony, HRRGH, from the overwhelming pain. His whole body was lifted into the air by that demonic energy. Witnessing the scene, Kyosuke couldn't help cursing inwardly, damn it, it's Claudia's magic. Burjo, having achieved her goal, spoke with satisfaction, now then go ahead, enjoy slaughtering each other. After Burjo infused him with magic, Dietz not only regained his fighting strength, but became even more powerful. He stood firm, resuming a combat stance, his eyes vacant as he growled, staring fixedly at Kyosuke. Burjo stood on the cliff edge, looking down at the two below, gusts of wind lightly fluttering the hem of her dress. Suddenly, a figure approached, calling out, Lady Claudia, it's time. Kyosuke, holding his sword, looked up from below, his face showing shock. That's the figure entered Kyosuke's view. He exclaimed in astonishment, Shirato Sayuki. Kyosuke frowned, questioning her tone. Why did you report to Claudia? Burjo ignored his question, leaving only one remark, now fight with all your heart, Kairo, then turned and left with Sayuki. Seeing this, Kyosuke wanted to chase after them, shouting, wait, Claudia. But before he could pursue, a powerful figure blocked his path ahead, radiating an overwhelming aura. Terrifying magical power glowed and surged from the man's body. Transparent armor fragments wrapped around Dietz's form. He clenched both fists and let out a long roar. Kyosuke gripped his sword tightly, assessing inwardly, engulf, clearly he's no longer in control. He recalled the sight of Dietz collapsed on the ground. Earlier, Claudia must have used her hypnosis magic on him. Kyosuke realized a truth, even the perfect hypnosis I once used on that Yoichi guy was really just a copy of Claudia's original hypnosis magic. He looked at the raging figure ahead and sighed inwardly. If she used it on engulf, this is going to be a huge pain. Kyosuke swung his fire sword forward, resolving inwardly, however I have no choice but to charge straight in. At that moment, Diet suddenly threw his head back and let out a massive roar to the sky. After roaring, he launched an attack on Kyosuke, who saw it and assumed a ready stance. Plan stays the same. Kyosuke observed every movement of Diet's with sharp eyes, calmly reading him. Each step he took crushed the ground, sending rocks flying everywhere, showing just how much power Diet's was pouring out. He charged with ferocious momentum, so fast he left after images. In the blink of an eye, Diet's appeared right in front of Kyosuke, his powerful fist following right behind. Seeing such terrifying speed, Kyosuke's eyes widened in disbelief, blurting what? Fortunately, Kyosuke reacted in time, raising his sword to block one of Diet's punches. But the force still pushed him back a long distance. Kyosuke felt his hand go numb from the impact. He groaned in pain, inwardly exclaiming, what kind of strength is this? Kyosuke stabbed his sword into the ground to stop himself from being pushed further. Sweat dripped as he gritted his teeth, staring ahead warily. After that punch, Diet's hand was also badly injured. He clenched his fist, growling, muscles bulging to their absolute limit. Kyosuke opposite him held the same defensive stance, observing his muscles are swelling violently. That means he looked at the mindless Diet's ahead, guessing the reason. I've heard humans unconsciously limit their own strength. Did she use hypnosis to remove that limiter? Just thinking of the possibility made Kyosuke curse furiously. Damn it, Claudia. He pulled his sword from the ground, truly worthy of the queen of mind manipulation. Kyosuke raised his sword into an attacking stance, inwardly reassessing his opponent's combat power. His speed is on a completely different level. I need to deal with that first. At that moment, Diet's entered the range of the fire sword's attack. In an instant, Kyosuke's entire aura shifted, his eyes now filled with killing intent. Target. Diet's charged again like an arrow. Winds whipped up around both of them. Kyosuke locked onto his attack point, this time his legs. In a flash, both of Diet's legs were slashed open, gushing blood. Seeing him hit vital spots, limiting his movement, Kyosuke inwardly rejoiced. Yes, he thought, with this strike. But before Kyosuke could think further, Diet's moved as if nothing happened. He rushed forward, throwing a straight punch at Kyosuke. Not just one, he punched relentlessly without pause. Under that fierce onslaught, Kyosuke could only passively defend and keep retreating. Kyosuke's current situation was somewhat strained. He fought while cursing inwardly. Damn it. Kyosuke watched the mindless figure, who only knew to attack forward even after taking that hit. Suddenly, for some reason, Diet's movement stuttered for a moment. Kyosuke also noticed the change. That abnormality caused his punch to graze past Kyosuke. Kyosuke quickly retreated, assuming a defensive stance. He watched Diet suddenly stop and stand still not far away, inwardly wondering what's going on. Diet's current state looked off. He clutched his face, roaring in pain. Kyosuke observed the purple energy around his body, gradually dissipating, unsure, asking, is the toxic aura around him fading? Kyosuke guessed, has the hypnosis worn off? No, Claudia isn't the type to be careless. He put on a serious expression, pondering, if she's using engulf, she must have calculated every detail perfectly. Kyosuke closed his eyes, thinking something feels off, but I'll think about that later. His mana armor is crumbling. Seeing the opportunity, he seized it. If so, Kyosuke's hand began casting magic. He assumed an attacking stance, saying, let's end this engulf. With that, Kyosuke shot forward like an arrow, tearing through the wind. Diet seemed to sense the danger and whipped around. He immediately threw a reflexive punch. Their attacks collided, unleashing a terrifying shockwave. Both the sword and fist were repelled backward, but it didn't end there. Kyosuke had a follow-up. Take this. He began charging his ultimate move, firing a shockwave straight at him. At such close range, Diet couldn't dodge. The shockwave slammed right into his chest. And finally, an explosive impact rang out. At that moment, on the vast grassland far in the distance, a range of rolling mountains stretched across the horizon. Diet was knocked out cold. Kyosuke was supporting his body. Diet trembled as he forced out each broken word, I lost. Kyosuke replied calmly, as if nothing had happened. Yeah, I won again. Hearing that, Diet laughed with an unreadable look in his eyes. Haha, you're still as sharp-tongued as ever. He admitted, fighting you always gets my blood pumping, but clashing with you has confirmed one thing for me. Sunlight poured over everything. Diet used his last bit of strength to say, you're not the one who burned my homeland. Kyosuke frowned in confusion, asking, burned your homeland? What the hell are you talking about? At night, when the moon had risen high, its gentle light bathed the entire grassland. Diet lay on the ground, slowly opening his eyes. Kyosuke, sitting by the campfire, suddenly spoke, startling him. Awake, you're awake. Diet looked at the indifferent figure in shock, stammering, Kawakairo. He stared at the bandage wrapped around his hand in disbelief, asking, you bandaged me? Kyosuke replied, just basic first aid. If you thrash around, it'll mess up the wound. Diet asked, puzzled why. He repeated warily, aren't we enemies? enemies, why would you help me? Kyosuke answered vaguely, I'm thinking about something. Then Kyosuke shot him a sharp glance, asking, earlier, before you passed out, you said I'm not the one who burned your homeland. What did you mean by that? The fire crackled in the darkness. His voice continued, I heard that 20 years ago someone turned an entire village to ashes and the culprit still hasn't been found. Dietz narrowed his eyes inwardly, assessing the man before him. That attitude, just as I thought. He closed his eyes as if giving in. Alright, I'll tell you. Dietz began recounting 20 years ago, just 1 week before the SSS-class dungeon catastrophe. His eyes carried sorrow as he recalled the past. I was absolutely certain about what I saw you, or at least your figure drenched my homeland in flames. Kyosuke asked in disbelief, what? Dietz confessed, at first I couldn't believe it. I never thought you'd be the type to do something like that. He remembered his hometown engulfed in fire, but amid the blazing town and people desperately fleeing. The figure laughing was none other than you, Misato Kawakiro. Kyosuke looked at him, confused. What is this? He rested his chin and thought, of course, I would never do something like that, but who did engulf C? Dietz continued right after that. He stared ahead with hollow eyes. We found something in your room, a plan laid out to assassinate all of us. Hearing this, Kyosuke's pupils contracted in disbelief. Dietz recalled the enemy's wicked grin and continued, Misato Kawakiro was a wolf in sheep's clothing. That was the conclusion the 5-star saints reached. He summed it up bluntly, and the result you already know. Kyosuke inwardly guessed engulf isn't lying, which means someone pulled strings behind the whole thing. He arrived at the most likely possibility, and the person engulf saw the one impersonating me was probably just a fabricated image prepared by that very person. Kyosuke's expression grew grave, manipulating others' senses, planting false memories. Only one person could do that. He pictured a woman none other than Claudia. Kyosuke began analyzing. I'd copied her hypnosis magic before, so I understand how it works. It directly affects the target's brain, forcing their behavior. He glanced at the man beside him, saying, engulf, could it be? Dietz's face remained calm. Before Kyosuke finished, he already understood. Yeah, I think so too. Dietz continued, the magic Claudia cast on me earlier wasn't to support me. He considered a worse possibility if she can implant a command like fight until one of you dies, then blocking your ability to confirm the truth probably wasn't hard for her either. He turned to Kyosuke, seriously saying, in other words. Dietz's voice echoed in the quiet night, she might have made me misunderstand you as the one who burned my homeland. Kyosuke half closed his eyes with a faint smile. Yes, everything's clear now. Dietz pushed himself up on his knees. Anyway, I owe you an apology. He placed a fist over his chest, solemnly saying, Kawakiro, I misunderstood you. Kyosuke looked up, engulf. He stated a truth, I didn't trust you either. Dietz reached into his pocket, as if searching for something, saying, I have to accept the consequences. He turned the dagger's handle toward him. Kawakiro. Dietz offered with determination, kill me. He gave a bitter smile, bury me here, I deserve it. At that moment, Kyosuke looked at him thoughtfully for a long time without speaking. Suddenly he called out, hey, engulf. Night winds blew, tousling his hair. Kyosuke smiled lightly. Look at the view from this hill. Doesn't it take you back to the days we trained together? Dietz called out bitterly, Kawakiro. Kyosuke's voice echoed through the night. We were once like brothers. That bond can't just break on its own. Suddenly he grew serious. So who broke it? Are we really going to let them get away with this? He stood up. Now we have a common enemy, so. Kyosuke extended a hand. Let's work together, engulf. Dietz gaped in shock at the sudden proposal, unable to speak. Kyosuke added, accepting defeat isn't your style. Dietz finally smiled a smile that quietly let go of all past grudges. He agreed, you're right. The two clasped hands like they once did. Looks like their tightly gripped hands symbolized their renewed bond. I still have things to do. Late into the night, the campfire had died, leaving only the moon's soft light shining down. Dietz turned, asking, are we heading to the Mediterranean? Kyosuke replied, yeah. He explained the reason. Claudia's about to build a city for her followers there. It could become her base. Dietz volunteered, then I'll go with you, but Kyosuke refused immediately. No. He told Dietz, Claudia cast magic forcing us to fight to the death, so she probably thinks one of us is already dead. Dietz understood. So we'll use that to our advantage. Kyosuke confirmed, exactly. He gave a cold smile. She thinks taking down one of us is enough time to show her how wrong that calculation was. Kyosuke began planning. If she believes I'm dead, I can move more freely. Engulf, you keep operating as a 5-star saint like before. He recalled a sleazy face. Nathaniel's movements have been suspicious too. Kyosuke said trustingly, I'm counting on you. Dietz accepted the new mission. Seriously, got it. Both stood on a narrow path. Kyosuke, hands in pockets, head tilted back, gazing at the sky. He looked at the bright moon hanging high, inwardly thinking, so much has happened, but now the next step is clear. Kyosuke clenched his fist, inwardly vowing, I'll make you regret deceiving engulf and framing me. His eyes sharpened with murderous intent as he silently uttered her name, Claudia. On a peaceful morning, birds soared and chirped, drawing a serene picture over the sea. Standing before that beautiful scene, Kyosuke paid it no mind. He pondered deeply, so much has happened in Germany. Suddenly, a loud shout from the mainland shattered the quiet. Master Kyosuke thought to himself, Mateo hasn't changed a bit after all. At the same time, he reflected the thing with Ingolf really was an unexpected turning point. Recalling the past, I never imagined I'd reconcile with someone I once believed betrayed me. Yet he reminded himself, but I can't just sit here lost in emotions forever. What matters in the present is that right now I'm on my way to an island in the middle of the Mediterranean. The place Kyosuke was heading to was where Claudia gathered her followers and built her city. He sneered inwardly, how ridiculous, but right now she's there. Kyosuke calculated silently, if that's the city of her believers, then I just need to sneak in disguised as one. It will give me the key to get close to Claudia. He also understood that to pull it off, I'll need to use this void magic first. It's known as perception sealing magic, though it's not perfect yet. It will let me hide my presence whenever I want. Right then, Kyosuke noticed a bearded man who greeted him casually. You're on your way to worship the Burgo faith too, right boy? Hearing that name, he inwardly wondered. Burgo faith, that must be the new religion Claudia created. Kyosuke nodded vaguely, something like that. Getting the answer the man mocked. Oh, I see, so devoted, especially for someone so young. But devotion alone won't get you far. At the same time, not hiding his own ambition, I hope to meet Lady Claudia in person. That's why I brought a grand offering. Kyosuke sighed, inwardly figures. The man acted knowledgeable, only high-ranking believers get to see her. This revelation made Kyosuke fall into deep thought. He guessed inwardly, so the Burgo faith has a ranking system for believers, huh? Just then the loudspeaker announced, we are about to dock, please prepare to disembark. The man turned to say farewell. Well, good luck to you. But right in front of him now stood empty space. He looked around confused. Huh, that's strange, I was just talking to someone. No matter how hard he tried to remember, he couldn't recall anything. Kyosuke thought with satisfaction, perfect the perception sealing magic work. Next up, it's time to settle the debt from 20 years ago and the one in Germany to Claudia. After some time, he arrived at a district. Seeing the scene before him, Kyosuke gaped in astonishment. He stood stunned in the middle of the street. This is. In front of Kyosuke towered an enormous spire reaching endlessly into the sky. He couldn't help thinking it's massive. Not just Kyosuke, many around him were equally shocked. Is this the Burgo Tower? One confirmed. Yes, inside it's an entire city for the believers. They admired it in awe. Incredible, Lady Claudia bought the whole island. Hearing about that wealth left him even more stunned. Because 20 years ago in the past, Claudia only had a small monastery here. Yet now Kyosuke couldn't believe she'd built it into this. He assessed inwardly, a tower this huge means countless believers, perfect for sneaking and unnoticed. Though the tower's security seems tight, that doesn't matter. Kyosuke was confident because I have void magic. With that, he strode boldly through the gate. The security staff announced inspection complete, no abnormalities. The staff explained, per protocol, you've been accepted as a level 1 Burgo believer. Here's your proof. Inside the tower, your rank determines which floors you can access. They added clearly, since you're level 1, you can only enter floor 1. They explained coldly, to advance ranks, you must pass the challenges set by the Burgo faith, reach level 7, the highest, and you'll be granted an audience with Lady Claudia. Then they opened the gate. Now go inside. In a moment, Kyosuke had officially entered the tower. He breathed a sigh of relief, thinking inwardly the fake identity worked. The perception sealing magic made the guards forget everything. Suddenly, Kyosuke's steps halted. Facing the massive architecture before him, he marveled inwardly, so this is the Believer's City. On the suspended bridges, countless believers moved back and forth busily. Along the streets, statues of guarding soldiers stood, creating a sense of complete safety. While observing, he was quite surprised. Floor 1, hard to believe this is inside a single tower. After that, Kyosuke wandered the many streets to learn more about the place. Suddenly, he noticed something. At the gate area, Kyosuke spotted a familiar person. It was. The bearded man anxiously pleaded, I told you I'm willing to pay, name your price. The security staff firmly refused. No level 1s cannot access higher floors. But the man charged forward. I don't care. He insisted, I'll go meet Lady Claudia. The staff shouted, hey, wait. Yet the moment he tried to touch the stairs, a surge of electricity blasted out. It struck him directly. Instantly, his hair stood on end and he collapsed to the ground. The scene left even the 2 security guards shaking their heads. Witnessing it, Kyosuke inwardly understood, so brute force won't get you through. Makes sense. Kyosuke had to admit Claudia stands at the pinnacle, meaning I need to rank up first. Next goal, pass all the challenges this faith sets for me. Having decided, he steeled himself. Alright, I'll climb from the bottom. Meanwhile, on one of the highest floors of the tower, a servant approached respectfully. Priest Samoa, here is the list of new initiates. Please select today's trials for them. He sneered, more pitiful lambs stepping in today, very good. At the same time, he decided, I'll personally test them this time. Kyosuke sat alone on a street, rubbing his chin, thinking, alright, I've successfully infiltrated the tower. tower. He gazed into the distance, thoughtfully. Next, I need to pass the trials they have for new believers so I can advance ranks. Suddenly, a small pigeon flew over and landed on Kyosuke's arm. He gently took the pigeon a letter H. Then Kyosuke removed the letter from the pigeon's leg. To new initiates, proceed to the northern manor on floor 1. To new initiates, proceed to the northern manor on floor 1. Kyosuke held the letter, smirking. I see. He smiled calmly, walking forward. Time to pull back the curtain on this trial. Whatever it is, I'll crush it. He stood among a group of others, listening attentively. You must all be the new believers. Nice to meet you here. A gentle-looking man smiled, introducing himself. I am Samoa, the priest assigned to oversee level 1 believers. He slowly scanned everyone, then asked, now then, why have you all come to this tower? Samoa suddenly called out, you in the white robe answer first. She startled, yes. Then the girl in white stepped forward, explaining, I came here because I want to meet Lady Claudia. I want to reach the highest floor. She sadly recounted, lately, my village has been struck by an unknown disease. Even my grandmother is bedridden. Kyosuke glanced at the girl in white, listening, so I hope Lady Claudia can lend me her power. He looked at her with admiration. Coming here alone for her family and village, truly admirable. A man in brown sneered, look at those rags. Even someone like her can become a believer. He mockingly asked the blonde beside him, dreaming of climbing to the top too? The blonde chimed in, no tax on dreams, right? Suddenly Samoa scowled, shouting, what's so funny? He glared furiously at the two men. Don't you want to meet Lady Claudia yourselves? The blonde bowed. Yes. The brown one apologized, sorry. But right after they grumbled bitterly, damn it, because of that useless girl we're dragged into this mess. Samoa turned away, saying, exactly, climbing this tower isn't easy. He raised a finger. 1 year and 90%. Do you know what those numbers mean? Then Samoa explained calmly, 1 year is the average time for a level 1 to reach level 2, and 90% is the rate of those eliminated before even leaving the first floor. Through his words, images appeared of many struggling desperately on the stairs. So many came here full of hope, but in the end most were crushed. Samoa smiled reassuringly, but having high goals is good. I support your ambitions. He announced seriously, now then the first trial. Everyone present listened intently. I will give you all a total of 3 trials. The first one is. Samoa extended his hand forward, making a terrifying expression. Go to the dungeon in the northeast of this island and kill 500 monsters. The man in brown shouted in horror, 500. Samoa took out some purple magic stones and continued, monsters will drop stones like these when defeated. Collect them as proof of your skill. He smiled, turning away, and reminded, no time limit, so take your time. At the end, Samoa declared decisively, that's it. I hope you all achieve good results. Kyosuke said nothing, only glancing at the girl's retreating figure. The girl in white also stood still, staring straight ahead. Kyosuke gave a dangerous look, turning his head back. Right after she gently began walking away. Suddenly someone spoke, startling the girl in white. As she looked up, I really didn't expect that. She stammered, recognizing him, you're the one from earlier. Then the two walked together. The girl in white asked curiously, what didn't you expect? Kyosuke replied straightforwardly, everyone was stunned hearing the trial, but you didn't even blink. She gave a gentle smile, lowering her face. Of course I'm scared. The girl in white placed her hand on her chest, saying, but for my village I have no choice. She looked at Kyosuke with sparkling eyes. You're aiming for the top of the tower too, right? Let's both do our best, he replied coolly. Yeah. Kyosuke glanced thoughtfully. This girl is strange, but figuring it out now doesn't matter. That evening outside a grand castle, a man in a hat holding a necklace babbled excitedly, thank you so much, priest. Yes, yes. He joyfully clutched the chain. Now I can climb up. Samoa leaned on his hand, smiling. It was nothing, consider it divine providence. Right after, the man in the hat grabbed his suitcase and left happily. Samoa held a wine glass as his subordinate poured more. Another success. The subordinate immediately flattered, you set trials so absurdly difficult no one can pass, then approach the most desperate ones in secret and squeeze money from them. Truly admirable. Samoa said nonchalantly, the northeast dungeon has the strongest monsters for the weak. Even a year means nothing, they'll never pass. He looked at the suitcase full of money. Those with no money to scrape together just cling to hopeless dreams until they shatter. Then he let out a sinister laugh. At that moment, Kyosuke stood high up, overlooking the scene below. He had seen everything, a classic villain draining people dry while ignoring everyone around him. Kyosuke glared angrily. Some believers genuinely just want to meet Claudia with pure faith, while others trample all over that. He emphasized how filthy, truly disgusting. The next day in Samoa's large room, hearing someone arrive, he asked sternly, who is it? Kyosuke entered, bowing politely, sorry to disturb you. Samoa immediately recognized, you're the new believer from yesterday. He slowly lifted his face with a faint smile. I completed the trial, I brought them here. Immediately, Kyosuke dropped what he was holding to the floor. Inside the bag were hundreds of magic stones. Samoa exclaimed in surprise, these are. His face paled, staring at the stones. Impossible, in just 1 day. A But then Samoa forced a smile. Wonderful, you really. Kyosuke smirked. Priest Samoa. He said calmly, if you don't want others hearing your filthy secrets, it's best to close the window. Hearing this, Samoa panicked, stammering, unable to speak. The large room suddenly fell silent, only Samoa thinking fearfully he heard it yesterday. He trembled, gripping the chair tightly. That bastard. The magic stones now scattered on the floor. This is my territory. I won't let some newbie cause chaos here. Samoa seemed to go mad, completely losing reason. I'll turn this tower into your grave. Night fell over the entire tower and surrounding buildings. Samoa sat grimacing, leaning on the table, deep in thought. He recalled Kyosuke's image, inwardly furious. He showed up just to say that to me, truly blasphemous. Samoa walked step by step to the large window, looking outside. Clearly, he wants to warn me, but nothing is more pathetic than cheap justice. But suddenly, the corner of his mouth curved into a sinister smile. Samoa's eyes gleamed cunningly, as if he'd calculated something. I'll give that little believer a special second trial. Meanwhile, Kyosuke gazed at the sunlight outside the window in a quiet room, the Virgo believer's dormitory. He slowly put on his outer robe, calmly assessing that Samoa guy still hasn't made a move. He looked up toward the outside. He won't be stupid enough to do something shady inside the tower. Suddenly, a white pigeon with a small letter tied to its leg landed at his window. It perched there waiting for Kyosuke to read the letter. Details of your second trial as follows. Proceed to the dungeon listed below. He smirked faintly while staring at the small letter. So that's the plan. He wants to eliminate me under the guise of a trial. Grasping the situation, he crushed the paper in his hand, fulfilling the tower's requirements while kicking me out. A two birds one stone move. Alone now, Kyosuke arrived at a secluded spot with a large gate. According to the letter, this trial is to defeat the dungeon boss. He calmly stepped up each stair, thinking this is obviously a trap, but that doesn't matter. He slowly lifted his shoes closer and closer to the gate. I'll face it head on. Kyosuke now appeared in a place full of lava and rocky smoke. Burjo Island's southern region lava cave dungeon. Kyosuke seriously extended his arm, observing the surroundings. A lava cave, huh? This heat is no joke. The more he thought, the more he recalled that fake expression of his. Samoa wants to kill me for discovering his dark scheme. Thinking about it, his face grew grave. That's why the dungeon difficulty is this high. Clearly, he thinks the boss here will finish me off. His eyes unwavering and sharpening if he has a backup plan. Small green energy sources continuously gathered in his palm. Then I need one too. Suddenly, Kyosuke startled, turning back at a noise. A blinding explosion scattered small stones. Before him, a creature slammed its foot down hard. A monster with sharp fangs spewing fire, and he immediately recognized it. Fire dinosaur, a high-level fire monster that always moves in packs. Kyosuke looked at it, smirking with interest. This dungeon is tough, but the green energy sources still continuously gathered in his palm. Kyosuke decisively pushed ice darts he created toward them. Void magic activate. The sharp ice darts shot rapidly toward their bodies, targeting them. Those ice darts quickly repelled all the dinosaurs intending to charge. Kyosuke stood still, controlling them by folding his palms, smiling triumphantly. The training for the battle with Engulf finally comes in handy. Before him now lay a pile of dinosaur corpses strewn about, and shattered ice dart fragments maintain this pace. Suddenly, a pair of glowing boots appeared in this situation. A man in a hooded cloak covering half his face suddenly emerged. From inside a room, a voice rang out. Lord Samoa, are you sure about that believer? A sleazy-looking middle-aged man flipped through papers. He passed the first trial in just one day. He might even defeat the dungeon boss. Samoa looked up decisively, declaring, no way has any level 1 believer ever beaten that boss. Suddenly, his face twisted cunningly with a sinister smile, and just in case, I've already sent an assassin. The middle-aged man looked a bit worried. An assassin? And now the cloaked assassin focused, observing, ready to strike. A professional assassin. He won't survive. His eyes strained to observe the target from the shadows. I see. Kyosuke entered the assassin's sight while he had just finished freezing a large beast. He took down the boss instantly. Lord Samoa warned he was strong, but this is insane. The assassin quietly drew a sharp sword from its sheath, but he still hasn't noticed me. No matter how strong, he can't react to a perfect ambush. He glared, then suddenly charged forward. The assassin raised his sword high, aiming a downward strike. While he was off guard, your head is mine. But suddenly the sword slipped from his hand and his face slammed hard into the ground. The assassin had his cloak stripped away, eyes wide in shock. Beneath his feet, his legs were frozen solid to the ground. How did he? The assassin struggled with his legs, panicking inwardly. How did he know where I was? Kyosuke appeared calmly right in front of him, speaking coldly. Hunters are always careless about being hunted in return. Before the assassin's eyes, illusory butterflies floated close. This is. A small butterfly gently landed on his skin, drawing from the energy in his palm. Void tracking magic. The assassin in pitch black robes didn't notice the small butterflies fluttering around him. Kyosuke watched the tiny butterflies circling him and smiled faintly. Good thing I prepared countermeasures. He quickly stepped forward, grabbed the assassin's collar, and yanked him up. Kyosuke stared him straight in the eyes, mocking, too bad your plan fell apart. At that moment, Samoa sat in his office reviewing confirming documents. Suddenly, a severed arm with sharp claws was tossed in front of him. Samoa's face paled at the sight. What the? Kyosuke appeared before him, casually, hands in pockets. Impossible, he came back alive. Then he spoke leisurely as if nothing happened. It was tough. I didn't expect the boss to be that strong. On the surface, he forced an awkward smile in front of him, and there was this guy in a black cloak who suddenly attacked me. Seems like someone ordered him to. Samoa nearly choked, speechless at the murmured words. Who would do such a thing? He could only rage inwardly. That bastard. With his final words, Kyosuke left the room, slamming the door shut. I'm really looking forward to your third trial, priest. Now alone in the room, Samoa sat grimacing in dissatisfaction. He didn't report it. Why? He pondered deeply, trying to understand. I get it now. Outside, Kyosuke walked leisurely down the hallway, hands in pockets. He still has no solid proof, or he thinks even if reported it would just get buried. Samoa stared down at the shadowed table, determined. In that case, I'll execute him personally. Samoa opened a small secret door. Even if he's stronger than I thought, it's no issue. He took out a special ring and slipped it onto his middle finger. With this ring bestowed by Lady Claudia, he raised his hand, admiring it cunningly. I'll definitely erase him. As night fell, several people returned to their homes, lights turning on. The blonde young man casually pulled his hands from his pockets as he walked. Another day without meeting quota. The one beside him scratched the back of his head, complaining things got way harder since Samoa became priest. The blonde looked dejected. I finally escaped my hometown and everything. The blonde kept talking even as he passed Kyosuke. But at this rate, will I ever reach floor 2? Kyosuke's sharp eyes quickly glanced back at the two. At the gate guards, one leaning against the wall, arms crossed, spoke up. Today sure is quiet. Another squatting nearby replied, hardly anyone comes through here. Kyosuke suddenly approached from behind, waving, hey, sorry. He smiled friendly. I just wanted to ask you two something. A little time passed. Kyosuke prepared to leave. Ah, I see, thanks, yeah. One guard broke into a cold sweat. What just happened? The other helplessly muttered, what a weirdo. Kyosuke walked off, hands in pockets, ignoring their whispers behind him, asking about the day the senior priest comes for inspection. Time passed again. A white pigeon brought another letter to his window. A few days later, Kyosuke slowly pulled out the letter, reading thoughtfully. They've announced the final level 1 trial already. The last one, huh? He smirked, confidently mocking Samoa scheduling it today. What bad luck, probably lacking faith. His palm opened, green mana sources, flowing void magic. He pushed out pressure, scattering the white pigeons. Activate. A middle-aged man suddenly startled, looking at the sky. What? A green-haired youth jolted, one hand supporting the bird, the other holding the small paper. Huh? Another girl who had just released her pigeons startled. What? A girl also received the letter at her window. This is. A figure in a cloak with white hair appeared on the street. The man smirked, holding the small letter O. Kyosuke leaned silently on the windowsill, gazing out. Now everything's finally falling into place. He slightly furrowed his brows, then curved his lips in anticipation. Time for you to pay for treating believers like trash. At a certain location, a meeting began. A voice spoke. First, you're here. Samoa's eyes sharpened, noticing something. Now, we'll proceed with the final trial. Are you ready? Kyosuke's face darkened, but he looked confident. Of course, I'm honored to have priest Samoa personally oversee this final trial. Samoa wasn't stupid. He immediately saw through the act, cursing inwardly, that bastard, he's pretending to be innocent. His peripheral vision sharpened, eyes locking onto him. He knows I sent an assassin to silence him after discovering my illicit dealing. A seemingly magnificent building on the first floor is my paradise. Samoa extended his palm with a cunning face. I'll erase you right here. Kyosuke suddenly shifted his expression, smiling, but priest Samoa, seems like there's quite an audience today. His words made Samoa glance back in near panic. What? And from the distant outer door came the noisy crowd. Hey, looks like it's starting. A woman with orange hair stepped forward. He's the believer who reached the final trial at record speed. Right, the boy in a green leather jacket with red hair grinned excitedly. Samoa's fighting him personally. The girl in a long skirt below the hips, curious, just like the letter said. Instantly, the arena filled with spectators, even before the two faced off. Samoa, overwhelmed, kept glancing around, hesitating. This is. He realized, looking at him, gritting his teeth bitterly. He gathered them himself. What is he plotting? Only then did he understand, eyes widening in cold sweat. Don't tell me. Just as he feared, Kyosuke announced loudly to the entire crowd, listen up, level 1 believers, I've discovered priest Samoa's corruption. He didn't stop. His resolute eyes and firm voice continued. He forces people into impossible trials, then lets some pass in exchange for bribes. When I uncovered the truth, he sent an assassin to silence me. Samoa's face twisted in bitter fury, clenching his fists, standing frozen. What, you? Ajito watched silently from the shadows, a faint smirk on his lips. Samoa broke into a heavy cold sweat but forced composure with a strained smile trying to speak. Ridiculous, everything he says is fabricated. He kept glancing at him, rage making him grind his teeth. This is bad if he really has evidence then. Samoa unleashed his fury, unable to hold back mana surging as he roared enough begin the trial charge in his mind. Fixated, I'll kill you, the dead can't speak. Instantly purple mana from him summoned numerous demonic beasts charging forward. The spectators gasped. Isn't that beast summoning magic, a high-level spell using mana as a medium to call forth monsters? Samoa seemed to lose all reason, grinning triumphantly. If you survive my magic, you'll officially become a level 2 believer, however you'll stop here. He mercilessly ordered the pack of beasts seize him. Kyosuke swiftly entered combat stance, gathering green mana in his palm. Void magic. Long ice spears surged forth at his command activate. Where he stood alone controlling them, the beasts froze midair. Samoa's face went deathly pale in disbelief. What? Kyosuke remained calm, smiling dominantly. Sorry about that. No one said I couldn't defeat them. Scattered ice chunks large and small littered the ground, exciting the crowd. He wiped them out instantly. Who is this guy? The girl in the long skirt on the stands couldn't believe it. Unbelievable, such overwhelming power. Samoa in this situation felt unbearably frustrated, nearly going mad. Don't get cocky. He rummaged in his cloak. No way, I won't let trash like you ruin my comfortable life. He slowly slipped on a red ring onto his middle finger. It's fine. Samoa clenched his fist, laughing, regaining confidence. As long as I have this ring bestowed by Lady Claudia. Kyosuke noticed immediately a ring. Huh. Samoa raised his arm, arrogantly declaring, come, I'll show you my true power. Lightning surged violently from the ring, but the entire arena remained eerily still. Nothing happened. The onlookers watched seriously. Then murmurs rose from the crowd, his face sweating profusely in confusion. Nothing happened. Is that really Lady's power? Samoa panicked, staring at his trembling palm. Why, this ring should grant me immense power. He startled as a third voice appeared in the arena. That ring has no effect on those with impure hearts. A handsome face framed by white hair appeared. Seems what he said isn't entirely fabricated. Kyosuke raised an eyebrow, noticing the arrival. He's here. Samoa looked at him, stepping back in confusion. You are. Ajido appeared solemnly right before him. Ajido, level 5 priest, Ajido Norman. Ajido said coldly, eyes fixed on him now. Then Samoa, a priest unable to use that ring. Seems there's something hidden behind it. Samoa's face paled, heavily sweating. Why didn't you tell me everything?